Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the second part of WhatIf Chaos. Deku brought everyone together to watch different versions of Izuku Midoriya. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The 8th world. Discord floated in his place as everyone digested what they just saw till Shigaraki raised his hand like a toddler, and Discord nodded. Well, I believe that this world shows how hero society is incapable of doing anything right. Discord wanted to ask him what he was going about, but the Decay user carried on, especially how they thought someone who was almost killed trying to stop us and me personally was the traitor. I think that Eraserhead wasn't looking for the traitor. No, he just wanted a traitor to calm his nerves down and pat himself on the back saying that he did something useful. He just looked at someone who might have a vendetta against the system as a whole and glued the accusation to him. I mean, if we had those notebooks before the USJ, do you think that you would have made it out alive and in one piece? Shigaraki finished, making many wonder what would have happened if Tamura had the notebooks. Discord nodded. That's surprisingly correct. Eraserhead in that world wasn't actually out for the traitor. He wanted a lamb to slaughter, and he narrowed it down to Gyro, given that she can listen to everything and everyone, and Izuku. And Midoriya was the lucky winner in the end, or unlucky given the circumstances here. He scratched his head. The man was so convinced that he asked Izuku during one of the investigations, and I quote him, "Why did you start working for the League of Villains at the age of 4? Was your jealousy against quirked people so much that you decided to be a villain right off the bat without looking at any other options?" End quote. Eraserhead smashed his face into the ground, surprised at the very dumb question that exited his mouth. Achako asked, "Why didn't any of us believe him? We've been friends for many months. How could we just forget all the suffering we had together over a small silly notebook?" Discord shook his head. Well, yeah, it's true that you suffered together, but at the end of the day, you all suffered. All of you were offered someone to take your frustrations on, and you all kinda jumped on the boat. No one noticed how Kaminari always had phone calls with the name Sensei plastered all over it, or how when the camp raid happened he was conveniently out of reach of the villains and with the teachers, or how at the USJ he somehow wandered onto a villain's hands. Izuku had something that would make him work for the League of Villains, unlike Kaminari, who just worked there before a new quirk was even on the table. He wanted a place to be accepted. Add to that, you were all teenagers who were put through hell itself during the years of their life. Izuku understood that and moved with his life. The reason he didn't speak with you was that you all thought that you'd just apologize and let bygones be bygones. I mean, Ida accused him of aiding Stain and ending his brother's career and then covering his tracks. Both Idas facepalmed at the silly accusation. Nezu asked, "May I ask what the teachers did after the truth came out?" He was very intrigued by what the teachers would have done to rectify the already bleak situation, but nothing prepared him for what Discord said. They tried to quit. All the tea that he was drinking was thrown out of his mouth as he asked, "What? After all the damage they did? They just expected that can walk out of it like nothing just happened. No trying to fix the damage they caused." Discord nodded. Funny, that's what that version of you said to them. The thing is that they all thought that they weren't fit to teach after what they have done, especially Vlad, who because of his disregard and general lack of tact in handling the situation led to the death of Minimi's mom because someone couldn't keep his mouth shut. All eyes landed on Monoma, who tried to hide on the bottom of the earth given what that idiotic version of himself did. You literally shredded their resignations and told them to take responsibility for their actions or else they'll meet the same fate as the scientists who conducted experiments on you. So yeah. Endeavor asked, "What was my stance on this?" Well, you found it quite ridiculous that they have evidence that proves that Izuku was working for the League of Villains since he was 4, so you told the president to stop wasting your time with fairy tales and nonsense. The Flame Man was shocked, as Discord carried on. Given that you imprisoned your wife with fake evidence for many years in the mental ward, you kinda had the ability to tell fake evidence for real evidence. The man nodded his head, before a dark cloud formed on his head given where that ability came from while his wife patted him on the back. Gyro then asked, "You said that Jamingye was the traitor of that world while ours was Midnight's stupid opening of random websites that gave the League a stronghold in our systems to know what's going on inside the school and spy on us. So what about the other worlds? Who has the highest probability of being the traitor?" Discord smiled. Well, the first is Yuga, given that in most worlds he is quirkless and his parents buy a quirk for a FO, and you know what that means down the line. Then comes Toru wanting to be visible again. Kaminari, either he's just a villain or wants a better quirk. Momo, since her parents were followers of a FO from the start of his movement. Achako for the money. Me, given that many versions of myself are quirkless. Everyone was shocked, but he continued, "Don't be like that because I'm no saint. And finally, the last one is Yujiro, given that your quirk is the perfect one to hear intel without being noticed. So yeah, those are the most common traitors. They are the most common traitors out there. And I once found Kendo, but it was to save her father's life. Discord asked, are we done here? Or to be more specific, is the peanut gallery done giving out their opinions or asking their questions? No one spoke except AFO, who was chuckling at the notion of a peanut gallery, with Yoichi, who was smacked by the second user for making friends with the enemy. Alright, Mini-Me, any comments? Izuku sighed because those two worlds took a toll on his spirit. His friends saw things that they weren't supposed to see, to begin with, but said, well, for starters, it kinda hurts that my friends think so little of me, at least in that world and many others, I presume, given what you said. But they are forgiven regarding the circumstances. But seriously, working for the League of Villains since I was 4. What kind of bullshit do you need to take to believe such crap? Aizawa felt himself become smaller. And by the way, who's Oboro that Kurogiri is supposed to be? Discord chuckled as Mike and Eraserhead slammed their heads into the ground as they tried to ignore the name like they did last time. Well, it was Mike's and Sensei's best friend who was turned into the first high-end Namu of sorts, and he is Kurogiri. The Mist Man replied, and I'm highly disappointed in Aizawa. Everyone looked at him as he said, yes, I'm Oboro. I'm the one in control. And the only reason I didn't murder AFO right now is that I can't move due to someone keeping the failsafe inside my body in case I regain my memories in check. He looked at Aizawa and said, and Shota, for the love of Pete's sake, stop expelling students to make them better by using trauma. This will only lead to trouble further down the line. The Night Hero nodded his head as he smiled sheepishly. Discord yelled, to a new world. The worlds began to spin around as they finally landed on one. The world simply said, a huge burden. Izuku was intrigued by the name of this world. Was he the burden or was the one being burdened? Guess I have to wait and find out. The boy thought with everyone else. Meanwhile, Eri began to wake up as she moved under Ibara's vines. The vine-haired girl looked at her and smiled. Good morning, Angel. I suppose you liked the small nap that you had. Eri nodded her head. Yes, Mama. What world are we watching now? Ibara smiled. I guess we have to find out together. The small group consisting of Izuku, Eri, Ibara, and Itsuka huddled together as they prepared to watch the new world, much to the other girls' jealousy. The new world began to play out as it showed the USJ, making one a cringe in fear. It seemingly focused on Momo staring at Izuku, making the girl wonder if she was his girlfriend in that world. Momo Yaoyorozu was no idiot. She was one of the smartest people in her class, but not the smartest. No, that honor went to the boy wonder, Izuku Midoriya. The boy seemingly had his way around any quirk he came across. Math was nothing to him. Literature from both quirk and pre-quirk eras was a sneeze, and finally English was a huge A+ on his record. But the most amazing thing about him was his quirk. Energy manipulation that had many uses. Black energy whips, flying, super strength, durability, super speed, a sixth sense that allowed him to detect danger, the ability to overwork his glands to produce smoke, the ability to charge his already powerful hits as an after effect. And finally, the most confusing one, energy transfer that allows changing his or anyone's speed that he touches, making a joke of Newton's second law. The users of OFA had their mouths hit the ground, unable to process how the boy managed to get like their quirks in one go. Did the quirk already reach singularity and All Might passed on at the moment the quirks were supposed to appear? Or was it the boy's luck that was at work here? The third asked, I don't want to be a backseat driver, but how the hell did that happen? Discord said, an explanation is on its way. The man nodded before looking back at the world, though she was 100% sure of something. To her, he was without a shadow of a doubt the ninth successor of OFA, but she couldn't find a way to justify the other powers. Momo paled, wondering if she was a traitor in that world. And she was on a mission to see who was the successor to take him out early, so she tried to ask but was silenced by a firm no. The girl after that breathed out a huge sigh of relief for not being the traitor, though this didn't help the OFA users who were wondering how in the world did this girl know about OFA. Only All Might had an inkling of an idea, and he was hoping that he was wrong. She still remembers the day that All Might, the symbol of peace, was declared dead after fighting a very strong supervillain. She was devastated that day. How couldn't she? He was everyone's favorite hero. And to see him dead made her sad, adding to that the knowledge of a villain strong enough to kill him didn't help at all. She was among many children who cried at his funeral that was aired worldwide. But the true horror came 6 years later when someone named AFO made his appearance known. The man announced himself as the person who killed All Might, not without suffering damage himself. The man talked about his quirk scaring her, and he demanded the ninth successor of OFA hand himself over or there will be consequences. That night her parents found her praying that whoever had this quirk to surrender himself so that her quirk will stay with her. To say that her parents were disappointed would be an understatement. They gave her a huge yet gentle lecture about how fearing the villain will make him more powerful in the long run. She didn't understand it back then, but now she did. The only thing she wanted now was to be as much help to Midoriya as possible. If only he would tell her the truth, given that he allows diverting the subject when OFA is always brought up. Unbeknownst to her, Danger Sense was currently humming softly as Izuku was talking to his girlfriend, Itsuka Kendo. He was trying to placate the girl's worries about Momo, given that the girl was asking too many questions about OFA and its successor to the boy. All Might told him that FO had many spies when he handed him the quirk when he met him on the day of his death 11 years ago in an abandoned factory. He just hoped that Momo wasn't one of them. Ates, you idiot. Did you burden a 4-year-old child with OFA? The united scream of all OFA users was directed to All Might par Izuku, who didn't know if he should feel proud or worried. All Might himself sighed. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Discord, trying to somehow regain control of the situation, said, "Well, what do you know, Kendo? This is the second time you turn out to be his girlfriend. Could this be a sign that you two are meant for each other?" Both teens blushed as Izuku fainted with Discord sighing. AFO being pragmatic at the moment, I don't know what they're angry about. The boy must have been amassing energy to the already powerful quirk, adding to that the reveal of the other quirks. I'm at quite the tight situation here, and since he doesn't have a quirk, he won't die for the overclock effect. This caused many heads to turn as Itsuka said, worried for herself. Overclock what? The villain explained that it was OFA simply killing its user, since no one was supposed to hold more than 1 or 2 quirks, giving the Namu as an example to what happened. Discord calmed down the atmosphere once more. Alright, calm down everyone. The overclock effect is a thing, but it doesn't happen in all the worlds, so some of you are safe. It's just poor Mirio who mostly dies from it. The blonde boy paled as he thanked the heavens that he wasn't the successor, with Sir Night-Eye gulping at the newly presented information. Yoichi looked at his brother and said, "Couldn't you? I don't know. Tell us this little bit of information during the battles with my successors. I mean, the Demon King always used to brag about his moves. You would have helped me a lot in picking my successors." AFO only laughed at his brother's expense, much to the user's ire. The boy looked at his only ally and confidant. The beautiful orange head was always at his side ever since he joined the dojo that her father runs. He trained alongside her. The only thing that annoyed him about her was that she discovered him training his quirk, which forced him to tell her the truth after a long discussion with users, with the support of having an ally coming from second and third, who believed that he needed a strong right hand, and saw that Itsuka fits the bill, as they also cited that every user had their own confidant. Itsuka had many emotions. First, she felt happy that Izuku trusted her with such a secret that would cause ripples worldwide, especially in a world like that. Second, she was confused. Why was he shocked that the second and third users were the ones that supported him? She asked, why was he shocked that those two were the ones that supported him? To tell me the truth. Second replied, because we don't approve of him, he too idealistic. He makes Eighth look like an emo. Kendo scratched her head. She knew that those two along with Yoichi were from a different time of horror, but she had to ask, but aren't you being a little harsh here? I mean, you're comparing our time to yours. He can't just go around killing people that he thinks are villainous. Third side, we're not saying that, but he can't be always sunshine and rainbows. This is the real world. You want to hope for a better world, okay. You want to have a bright future, that's cool, but you can't do that if every enemy you face, you'll go to Earth's end to save him while destroying yourself in the process. Shit like that happens only in fairy tales. Kendo took in his words, and she had to admit that there was some truth to them, crossing the whole saving villain thing. Sometimes someone had to put out a hand to help others. Second rubbed the back of his head. I think we only supported him so he can have someone who can put him on a tight leash and curb those self-sacrificial tendencies of his. Kendo nodded her head, agreeing with him, much to Izuku's slight annoyance. Calm down, Suka. I'm telling you that she's not the traitor or working for a FO. Izuku whispered to the orange-haired girl, who frowned a little, saying, how are you so sure? She's been asking questions non-stop ever since you entered 1B. I have every right to be suspicious of her. I don't want her to expose you before you're ready to fight him. Izuku smiles softly at her. For all the big sister attitude and that strong tomboyish persona she puts around herself, she was one of the kindest people he had ever met. He knew that she was holding a very huge weight beside him, knowing his secrets and the threats that came with them. Anyone else might have caved, but she stood strong. He rubbed her cheek softly as he said, Suka, there's nothing to worry about. I promise you that. He then kissed her, managing to calm her down. Itsuka and Izuku blushed that they had PDA in front of everyone and in front of their teachers in what was supposed to be a villain attack in a couple of seconds. Hiri happily clapped her hands at the love scene and said, Mama, Papa, can you kiss each other? The two teens stiffly nodded before giving each other a quick kiss, which made the horned girl smile. The two teens were called out of their romantic moment when they heard a cough. They both looked at their homeroom teacher. The blood user was not amused. He sighed, running his hand over his face. Look, I know that you're a couple, but please keep the PDA to a bare minimum. Deal. Both students nodded their heads with small blushes on their faces as they heard 1A's homeroom teacher say that they're irrational hormonal teens who can't control themselves. Vlad tried to calm him down. But Izuku sensed that Aizawa was watching him like a hawk from the first day till now. He even skipped his annual "I'm going to expel an entire class" tick just to watch him during the opening ceremony. This made Izuku worried that the hero might be after OFA, thinking that he could wield it, not that it would help him much. During his last conservation with the vestiges, he was told that he made the quirk reach 135% of All Might's strength, so now instead of killing a normal person in 1 year, it was 1 month if they were generous with the math regarding the overclock effect. Holy cow, All Might said with a shocked expression. There was no other logical response. The boy in that world manages to reach 135% of his power through sheer hard work alone without him being there to guide him either. Well, now that he thought about it, he never guided him either, since he didn't know how to guide anyone. Maybe his teacher was right about him not being able to take a baby seal to the beach. Izuku had to say that he was impressed by himself, managing to figure everything out on his own. But this cast a question that echoed, why didn't he manage to do it on his own? He supposed that he was so happy by the fact that All Might was going to teach him that he didn't think too much about the subject, and just waited for the hero to explain to him how to use his quirk. Both teens looked at their classmates. It was by pure luck that Izuku landed in 1B, as he hoped he would land in the class that will for most of the time be ignored for its flashy sister that is 1A. The boy then noticed the number hero Endeavor staring at him before looking away. He still remembers the scandals the man revealed about his life and family. His oldest son almost died in a fire caused by the boy's quirk, but the hero saved him miraculously at the last moment. Said son is now an underground hero named Dabai. The man has always urged the 9th successor of OFA to not cave into AFO's threats. He was the new heroics teacher in UA. But the man and his son Shoto from 1A have been both eyeing like a cat looking at a delicious piece of meat. He was cut out of his musings when a danger sense suddenly flared. He raced toward the stairs of the plaza as he yelled at the others, "Everyone, get out, we have unwanted company." Itsuka, seeing the worried expression. 1A and 1B, you heard the man. Come on, let's floor it. Aizawa was about to tell them to stop, but Vlad then said, we have company. The Erasure hero looked down at the plaza where a portal was forming. He then heard Izuku yell, try using your quirk to stop the portal. The man began to activate his quirk, but it was already too late as the villains all entered the plaza. A man covered with hands walked forward. Hello, I'm Tamura Shigaraki, and I'm the successor of a FO. We heard that 9th is here in this school, so we came to coax him out. He then pointed to a huge man-beast beside him, and we brought Namu here to play with him. It was made to kill All Might, so it won't have a hard time killing 9th. Izuku tilts his head in curiosity, wondering how will he be able to defeat Namu. Then again, he does have all of his predecessors' quirks, so that might just give him an edge over Namu. Meanwhile, AFO was wondering why did his self of that world send this Namu. He must have known that the 9th successor must have had time to train the quirk and further expand its strength, but then again, he must have also thought that All Might passed to some random SH muck who didn't know any better. The number 1 hero yelled, 13. What are you and the kids still doing here? You heard the boy. Run. Both classes began to run as the trio of Vlad, Eraserhead, and Endeavor went to fight. However, in a moment of distraction, the mist villain who warped everyone here managed to escape Shouda's eyes. The mist villain stood in front of the kids and said, we're the League of Villains. We've come here to have the 9th user of OFA surrender his quirk. But rest assured our master will give him something in return. He believes in fair trade. So why doesn't he make this easy for us and just hand himself willingly? Izuku was about to hit him with an air flick when the idiotic four, which consisted of Kamakiri, Bakugo, Kirishima, and Tetsu attacked him, standing in both his way and 13's way. The mist villain manages to regain his composure before sending everyone, including Izuku, to who knows where. Everyone gives the 4 idiots who jumped at Kirigiri a dry look. Kamakiri had the decency to blush. Kirishima and Tetsu rubbed the back of their heads as to why everyone was staring at them. And finally, Bakugo was yelling, why the fuck are you all looking at me like that? I was about to get the misty fucker for crying out loud. Aburo coughed. No, you weren't. You were still off the mark by a little bit, but don't worry, little kitten, keep hanging in there. This made the ashen blonde boy foam at the mouth at the insult directed to him, and he barely prevented himself from attacking the mist man. On the other hand, I sounded really cool. I mean, I had the villain voice and persona down to a T. Present Mike nodded his head. I know, right? You're been really serious that you are about to kill the students. He chuckled as he added, right, Eraser. He looked to see his friend glaring at him. The man gulped before returning to watch. Izuku woke up to see himself in what can be called the Second Ice Age. The Blizzard Zone, I presume. He heard shuffling and saw a head of green vines poking from the snow. He quickly went and helped his classmate up. Ibara looked at Midoriya as she shivered. Thank you for the assist, Midoriya. I'm afraid that I'm useless in this kind of situation. I understand if you're frustrated with me, the girl said sincerely as she looked to the ground with a sad smile on her face. The boy shook his head. Nonsense, Shizaki. I'm not frustrated with you. Now, I'll need to locate the rest of you. The boy was interrupted by an ice arrow embedding itself in the snow. He looked and saw villains rushing toward them. I guess that I have to find our classmates the old-fashioned way. His body then sparked, 50% faux style, and with that Izuku was nothing but a green blare dancing in front of Shizaki's eyes, much to the girl's astonishment. Damn Midoriya, you look like a human rocket. We can't even keep up with you dancing around like that. Try to one-up us less, Kaminari said before being poked by Gyro, who said, keep your opinion to yourself. Izuku meanwhile chuckled awkwardly at the display. It was only 10 seconds since Izuku started fighting, and he have already finished the villains, leaving Ibara shocked. The girl silently wondered if he was the 9th user, but couldn't voice her thoughts for many reasons. The boy then carried her princess style to the entrance door. He looked and saw 13 injured. What happened? He wanted to get to the bottom of this quickly so he can go help the others quickly. Ochako replied, the mist villain used her quirk against her, but our classmate managed to escape and go to warn Yue. Ochako hummed, it seems that from this point forward everything was the same. I kinda wished 13 wasn't injured though. The girl frowned, seeing her favorite hero in the ground bleeding. A space hero giggled at the love her student had for her. She rubbed the girl's head, don't worry, you're Raka. I had worse injuries than those, but the feeling of my quirk being used against me was rather unpleasant. Ochako hugged her. Izuku nodded his head. All right, I'll go help the rest of the students now. The boy then powered up his quirk at 80% and zipped away quickly from Uraraka's eyes, leaving the girl dumbfounded. The boy checked 2 areas, which were the disaster zone where the 4 apes went medieval on the villain, and the earthquake zone where it was frozen solid with Todoroki and Toru interrogating the villains. I guess Todoroki is having the time of his life, but where are the others? Did they get caught inside the ice or something? The boy searched quickly inside the earthquake zone where he found Ryuko, Bondo, and Komori hidden from sight. The boy jumped in front of them saying, you all need to go to the front, right now. The boy then left them and went to the raindrop zone where 6 of his classmates were dealing with villains. The boy took quick care of the villains before disappearing and going back to help the rest. Setsuna fanned her face. Wow, Zuko in this world is really badass. I mean, just look at how he's beating the villains left and right without breaking a sweat. He seems very fast. All Might nodded. That's quite true, young Takage. You see, OFA increases the strength of its user at an exponential level, so each time he increases the power of OFA, it doubles exponentially. The girl nodded her head. Izuku meanwhile was wondering if he can still increase the power of OFA even though it was nearing its singularity. Yuri poked him. Papa, can you take me flying like that? Izuku chuckled. Yeah, maybe after we go back home. Momo wasn't having the time of her life. She was thrown along with Gyro, Denki, Mina, Pony, Shihai, and Rin into the mountain zone, and the villains were crawling on them like bugs to rotten meat. Momo ducked under a villain's fist and hit him with a stun gun in his crotch, making him pass out. Nearly everyone male in the place covered their private parts, and Momo had a huge blush on her face with Bakugo saying, "You're truly evil, Ponytail." Rin was blasting scales left and right at the villains. Mina was using her acid. Kyoka was stabbing the villains with her earphone jacks. Pony was rushing at the villains like a raging bull set free to cause havoc. Shihai was jumping from shadow to shadow and beating up villains. And finally, Kaminari was screaming his lungs out from fear. Pony yelled at her classmate, Dona's cat. Gyro looked at the electric blonde and said, "Seriously, jamming, eh? Even in this world you were running around like a headless chicken." The boy chuckled awkwardly. Denki looked at her and yelled, "Hey, you all have powers that can be controlled. If I let loose, you'll..." The boy didn't have time to finish as all the villains surrounding were suddenly on the ground, knocked out of commission. The others in the area looked and saw the rest of the villains down and out of the fight with a green streak of lighting in their wake. Momo said, "Thanks for the assist, Midoriya." The boy stopped for a bit and said with a small smile, "No need to mention it, Yaoyorozu. It's my job as a hero in training. Now, I need..." He stopped for a moment before turning around just as a villain popped from the ground behind him. The boy kicked him, sending him into the fake mountain and knocking him out cold. He carried on as if nothing happened. As I was saying, I need you all to go to the entrance. He looked at the downed villain, adding, "And try to contact the school now." He then went away from them, leaving them in a state of shock. Momo cleared her throat, seeing that the villains are down. "I suggest we do as told and go to the entrance." Momo said, "I think that this should solidify for me that Zuzu is the mystery successor of All Might, or I'm not that smart to begin with." Izuku nodded his head. He knew of strong quirks, but this was downright ridiculous, and anyone who can't tell that he's the successor of All Might is a complete moron. AFO was now wondering how will the boy be able to fare against this Namu given that he was only showing about 50% or so of his power. The man was intrigued regarding who was going to defeat him at Kamino Ward this time around. Will it be Endeavor or the newest successor of his brother's quirk? Kendo was not happy. She first fell face down into the water, second was almost eaten by a shark villain before she gave him a piece of her mind, And finally, she was now on a boat in the flood zone with no feasible way out. She looked at her comrades at the moment, which was Tsuyu, Minta, Shota, Manga, and Takoyami. The girl sighed. I guess we need to find a way out of here because I don't think the villains will wait for us to come down. Sooner or later, they'll attack the boat and force us to go down to them. Everyone nodded their heads. Only Minta was opposing her. Are you crazy? They're going to kill us. We should stay here on the boat praying that however has OFA hand himself over so we can live. He was punched by Kendo, who said, don't say stupid stuff. If this ever happens, you can safely say goodbye to your quirk. The boy was about to continue arguing when the water shook. They looked at the villains who were floating in the water, knocked out. Itsuka smiled as she saw a green streak rush out of the flood zone. Come on, the villains are out. Let's go back to the entrance. Wow, that was fast, Minta said, ignoring the angry looks for his cowardly behavior. Back in the plaza, the two teachers along with the number 1 hero were having an easy time taking out the low thugs that the hand villain has recruited. The three did see every few seconds a streak of green lighting zipping through the space of the USJ. Endeavor punched another villain as he said, give up, villain. You and your master's plans are going down the drain. Shigaraki began to laugh. Tough talk from someone who's about to be killed. He then looked at the monstrosity standing beside him. Namu, rip him to bits and pieces. The hero didn't have time to blink as the monster was right in front of him, delivering a very heavy punch to his stomach, sending him flying into the shores of the flood zone. The man stood up as he saw the Namu approaching, and he delivered his strongest attack, Flash Fist, Prominence Burn. The attack hit the monster, head-on, burning it till it became nothing but a charred husk. I have to admit that it had the strength of All Might. The hero didn't get to think twice as the Namu began to regenerate right in front of his eyes. The monster then made his way to him, but suddenly the Namu has been punched away. He looked and saw Izuku standing there. The boy then leaped forward and punched the monster once more, sending it skidding across the plaza. The man then said in his head, there's no doubt, it's him. He's the 9th successor. Izuku then said, I have a really bad headache, so I will finish your little science project here quickly. Tamura laughed. I'd love to see that. Namu has shock absorption and super regeneration. Izuku frowned. I guess I have to use gear shift. The boy then heard a hum of approval from the second user. The boy activated gear shift and Fajin together as he yelled, overdrive. He then blurred out from everyone's sight as they all heard a yell, quintuple smash. They all then saw the Namu being sent flying through the USJ's roof as Izuku stood there lifting his hand. Have no fear. Why? Because I am here. Tamura looked at Izuku and yelled, no fair. You ended Namu too quickly. You're cheating with those quirks. No fair. The man-child crossed his arms as he looked away with twice shoving a meat bun in his mouth. Izuku meanwhile was bouncing in the second and third users' faces, asking them different questions about their quirks, to which they both refused to answer. Itsuka said, wow, Izu was really cool there. He just one-shotted the Namu like it was nothing. Discord laughed. It is to be expected given he was training from a young age. Now, let's talk opinions. 9th Universe. #TO anyone who's watching Demon Slayer from the anime. Please don't read this chapter since there are spoilers. Izuku jumped up with a happy expression. That was so awesome. The second and third users' quirks are amazing now that I saw them first time in action. I have so many questions that I need to ask. How can it work? How different is Fajin from OFA? What is the drawback of the second's quirk? I need to know everything to know about those quirks. He ran to the second and third users and began to bug them about how their quirks, which they refused, although the third was a bit more tolerant than the second. Discord removed Izuku from them, saying, Izuku, please stop before the second user strangles you to death. The boy looked back at the second user, who seemed unamused at all, before frowning and returning to his seat. You'll give it to me anyway in the future. I guess I have to wait. All right then, Discord said while rubbing his arm. Let's move to your opinion on the current universe. I mean, this must be interesting to all of you to see your friend being seriously opus. I mean, I still remember my friends' faces when I stopped the destruction of a dam just by flicking my fingers. Man, I think for a moment even Kaken was astonished. He noticed the looks he was receiving before saying, so what do you have to say? AFO was the first to speak. This world is by all means quite worrisome for my plans, and I can say that I'm doomed to fail. Not only has the boy already increased the power limit the buffoon has put into OFA, but also he has the previous user's quirks, which I admit puts me in quite the situation. I hope that version of myself has some plan to combat him if he hopes to defeat the boy and become the ultimate demon king. Yoichi shook his head. You and your fantasies, brother. When will you ever learn that the villain never wins? I mean, you saw what happened to the demon king in the manga we read. He was defeated, and so will you. I truly hope you see reason, brother. AFO replied, and I keep telling you that the villain can win sometimes. I'm close to proving it, and you'll see. The users decided to ignore this, given that it meant that all their struggles were just a century-old debut between the Shigaraki brothers and whether villains can win or not. Aizawa, on the other hand, wasn't amused that his student was the center figure inside a 2-century-old squabble between those two, and he silently wished that the boy made it to the hero course with AFO dead. Todoroki lifted his hand and said, "That world said that Izuku was wary of Aizawa-sensei. Is it true that he's after the quirk?" Discord waved his hands, saying, "More or less, the Eraserhead of that world believes that with his erasure he'd be able to defeat AFO better since he can shut off his quirks. But till this day it's not proven if his quirk actually works on the guy." Everyone looked at the villain and the hero as they both shrugged, meaning that they didn't have the slightest clue. Furthermore, the hero did a lot of research regarding OFA and AFO to the degree that it became an obsession of his to find All Might's successor so he can take the quirk to go and fight the villain. It became so bad that seeing dragging people to the police station was a common occurrence. The hero facepalmed at this point, wondering if there was a version of him who isn't an idiot. Shoto nodded as Ida asked, "What happened when Midoriya explained what would have happened if he handed him the quirk?" "He didn't take to that too kindly," Discord said while biting his lip. He grabbed Izuku with his scarf, dragged him to Hitoshi, and depended on the boy to use his quirk on him to force him to hand OFA. When the boy complied, given that Shinso believed that Midoriya was someone who lived his entire praised for his quirk only to have All Might's quirk added to it, the users acted. They took control over Izuku's body, telling the nighttime hero that he's unworthy of the quirk and the transfer procedure requires their approval before disappearing. Let's just say, Aizawa was forced to have a huge therapy session with Hound Dog. Ida sat down as Momo asked, "Did the class after that know the truth about Zuzu's true power?" Discord shook his head. Not really. They were sure that Izuku was the successor, but didn't say anything so as not to disturb his training or grab unwanted attention. You, on the other hand, confronted him and offered your help, to which Izuku patted you on the head and said that if he ever needed your help, he'll call you. The girl nodded her head. Now, before I move on, are there any more questions? Himeko raised her hand. That is not related to Izuku's blood. She kept it raised. ... or stabbing him? The girl lowered her hand as Dabai asked, "What happened to Shigaraki after Nama was sent flying away?" The villains were also intrigued. Well, he was caught before Kurogiri can save him, and was given a one-way ticket to the pits of Tartarus. Of course, he threw a tantrum while he was being taken away. He looked at Izuku and said that Sensei would free him, but to no one's surprise, AFO didn't give a shit. He went to another of his projects, Dabai, and offered him to be his successor. Dabai couldn't stop laughing at the betrayed look on Tamura's face while the white-haired man looked at his sensei, who gave him a look that said, "I'm a villain." What did you expect? Tamura was then hugged by Nana, who said, "Even if you hate me, I still love you dearly." The man-child began to cry about how everyone is betraying him as he hugged back as Nana patted him on the back. He then looked at Izuku and said, "All right, Minimi, what do you have to say about this world?" Izuku tapped his chin. "Well, it was really cool. That version of me must have had a huge weight on his shoulder. Good thing I had someone as reliable as Itsuka backing me up." The girl blushed as she hugged him, causing jealous reactions to happen. Discord chuckled at the chaos as he said, "All right, let's move the wheel of universes." The worlds began to shift and change till it finally landed on one, Ice and Snow Hashira. Discord smiled. "Now, this is a universe that I wanted to see for a while. This is so awesome. The first crossover world where two worlds meet into one." Izuku tilted his head. "Crossover, 2 worlds? Does that mean that I go to another world or was born in another? And while we're at it, what's a Hashira?" "Well, I can answer all these questions," Discord said with a smile that caused Nezu to laugh, as the rat thing knew that chaos would soon arise. "Why not bring someone from that world to answer your questions?" Before Izuku could ask, 5 people were there. 4 males and 1 female. 2 of the males looked exactly like each other with long flowing hair with red tips. What set them apart was that one had a red kimono and some kind of birthmark on his forehead, while the other wore a purple kimono and had no birthmark. The third male simply looked like some kind of wannabe Michael Jackson and was shivering in fear as he hid behind the purple-wearing man while he was looking at the other man. The fourth male was a young man about their age wearing a green checkered haori with red hair, and a birthmark similar to the man wearing the red kimono. The female was black-haired and wore a pink kimono and had her hair tied in a ponytail. Discord then appeared in front of them saying, "I already briefed what is going on, and I think 2 of you have nothing better to do with the time, given that they are receiving punishment for their crimes." And the third was lounging in heaven, while the last 2 were simply sparring to pass time. "So by all means, please introduce yourselves." The boy walked first and said, "Hey everyone, my name is Tanjiro Kamado, and I'm a demon slayer from where I come. And the girl beside me is my wife Kanao Tsuyuri, and she's also a demon slayer." He stopped for a moment before saying, "Well, ex-demon slayers, given that we won." The men then stepped forward as the purple kimono-wearing man shook off the guy tugging on his clothes as the birthmarked one said, "Greetings, my name is Yoriichi Tsujakuni, and I was also a demon slayer. And don't fret, everything about our world will be explained in a moment." The other man stepped up. "My name is Michikatsu Tsujakuni, and I'm Yoriichi's older twin brother. I was a demon slayer who turned into a demon in hopes of surpassing my younger brother, and well, you can see what the result was." Bakugo then said, "Who's the wannabe Michael Jackson? And why does he look one step away from dying?" The man stood up enraged. "Do you know who are you talking to, lowly worm? I'm the closest thing to perfection. I'm the king of all demons. I'm Muzan." He looked only to see Bakugo sighing in boredom before pointing at FO and saying, "Hey, Potato Head, guess you have a rival now. 2 Demon King wannabes. Ha ha ha, I'll just smoke both of your asses." All 4 demon slayers' sweat dropped at his confidence as Tanjiro said, "Well, let's explain how our world works before we explore this world any further." Muzan first spoke. "I'm the Demon King. My goal was to achieve perfection and become immortal, kinda like that guy's hidden agenda over there. And the only thing I needed was the blue spider lily flower that would make me walk in the sun since demons turned to ash in them, given that I beat other ways of death such as decapitation and wisteria flower poisoning. I began to make humans into demons." Michikatsu stood up next saying, "He would inject a person with his blood, allowing them to turn into demons, and some demons had something similar to your quirks called blood demon art. Of course, there was a system for demons to present their strongest, which was known as the 12 moons, 6 lower moons that were continuously changing, and 6 upper moons whom you would have the luck of the gods if you managed to escape once they found you. I was the strongest one as upper moon 1 or Kokoshibo. And this brings us to..." Yoriichi stood up as he explained. The Demon Slayers were an organization invested in hunting down and killing demons since they were too dangerous to keep them alive or imprison them like you would do with your villains. Only 2 occasions allowed a demon to live, as my experience with Lady Tameo and Tanjiro's experience with his younger sister. In our world, there is something known as breathing styles, something similar to your quirks. Tanjiro carried on. It was found that breathing styles make killing demons easier, so over time after Yoriichi developed the first breathing style, sun breathing, which almost killed Muzan when he first encountered him, many more styles were made. Of course, they were preparations such as mastering total concentration breathing to be able to use breathing styles. Kano then finished. Like the demons, we also had rankings for demon slayers, but the highest rank was Hashira. It was usually someone who killed a lower moon, or at least killed 50 demons while being a Kino. Also, the birthmark on Tanjiro's head isn't a birthmark, it's called a Demon Slayer mark. It allows the user to increase his abilities and access the transparent world where he would see the interior structure of his body. Izuku jumped up saying, "That's so cool." He ran to Tanjiro and began asking him questions, to which the boy happily answered as Tanjiro himself asked Izuku about his world. Kano and Izuku's girlfriends at this moment looked at them with vague expressions before separating them from each other. From there, everyone asked questions about the Demon Slayer world, the weapons made to defeat the demons, how were the Demon Slayers picked, much to everyone's horror, and many more. Tanjiro asked, "Discord-san, how do our worlds meet? I mean, I'm not educated or anything, but it seems quite impossible for 2 different worlds with nothing alike. Expect, well, heroes and villains, I suppose, or in my case, demons and demon slayers. Well, you can consider it as 2 rivers following directing next to each other. But as time passes, they began to get closer before they finally meet and move apart once more." He explained while showing them a hologram of 2 rivers as he pointed to the intersection. "You see, this point is the universe you're about to see. The 2 branches originate from it. These 2 worlds are identical to yours with a minor detail to the other world. The first branch represents Izuku finding a book he wrote about breathing styles, and he formed his own breathing style from sun breathing known as light breathing. The second is a world where All Might did manage to end AFO in their first fight, but he was given a chance by the gods to pass on his quirk and he chose you." The boy nodded his head, wondering how this quirk would have made his mission easier. Yoriichi was shocked that the boy without a formal instructor managed to make his breathing style. "All right, let the world begin." The scene changed, and Tanjiro shivered as he remembered the first time he met the Hashira. "I really hate how I first met them." Izuku looked at him and said, "Why?" The boy rubbed his head as Kano chuckled a little. "Oh, you'll see. I just hope that version of you isn't a jackass as the rest were when I first met them." Tanjiro woke up as he felt the world spinning around him. He looked and saw 2 people wearing all black punching and telling him to wake up. He looked around as he heard people talking, asking himself, "Where am I? What's happening here?" So this is the guy who was traveling with a demon in his wake. A man with white hair and a flashy look said, "I have to say I expected him to be a bit more flamboyant. This boy here must be judged for his crimes." A man with red and yellow hair yelled while a huge-looking man with a rosary was rubbing his hands. A pink-haired girl was silently wondering if they were actually going to kill the boy, while a young man close to Tanjiro's age was watching the clouds. Izuku scratched his head. "They don't seem that bad to me. I mean, if you broke the rules, it would be logical for a trial, but if you can put up a good..." He was silenced by Tanjiro. "Yeah, that's how it works in your system. In here, they're literally the judge, jury, and executioner. My trail was them literally saying that they were going to kill me without listening to anything I said or disregarding anything I said altogether. This made Izuku wince, hoping he wasn't like that in this world. Yoriichi, on the other hand, was extremely displeased at Tanjiro's words given how the pillars acted. They sounded to him like a bunch of bloodthirsty demons. Sure, what the boy did was a violation, but they can still hear him out. He hated how some place could casually disregard life like this, but then again, they must have lost loved ones which caused this sort of reaction, so he can't judge them without knowing them. Kendo then said, "Really, I thought you know. The highest level must be the wisest of them all. You're painting them like savages." The boy chuckled. "They're good people. Don't get me wrong, but if the situation was any different, I wouldn't blame them. I mean, demons have killed their loved ones and much worse. I can see why they didn't believe at first." Tanjiro looked around and asked, "Who are these people?" He was then punched by the same person who was wearing black, telling him to respect the people he was standing beside and that they were the Hashira. The boy wondered what the Hashira was as the purple-haired girl told him that he was being on trial for defying the rules of the Demon Slayer Corps by protecting a demon. The same girl tried to speak only to be cut off by the flame-haired man who was Kyojuro Rengoku, the Flame Hashira. "There's no need for a trial. The boy should be executed for protecting a demon." The sound Hashira. Tenjin Uzui said, "If that's the case, I decapitate them both in a flamboyant display of blood." A facepalm echoed through the place after that statement. The love Hashira. Mitsuri Kenroji wondered if they were actually going to kill Tanjiro. What the fuck? Is there actually love-breathing technique? Bakugo asked as a few others nodded their heads. Tanjiro could helplessly shrug as he said, "I didn't get it at first either, but she was a really strong fighter. A force to be reckoned with. Give Muse and Jackson over there a hard time." The man could only fume at the nickname, swearing to kill Bakugo when he has the chance. He looked and saw Yoriichi reaching for his sword, so he slung back and disappeared from his sight. The stone Hashira. Jaiomai Hanjima spoke, "Alas, to see such a pitiful creature as this. I grieve for him. Perhaps it would have been better if he was never born at all." All the while, the mist Hashira. Mukairo Takedo was staring at the clouds, oblivious to what was happening around him. Silence and only silence were on display as Ibara was the first one to speak. "I didn't expect that. I thought the monk-looking guy might sympathize with you, but it seems he was on the opposite end." The boy chuckled at the screen as shivered, remembering the ordeal he suffered that day. Jaiomai is a really nice guy, but he had a rough past. I can't blame any of them. It hurts, but at least they gave us a chance. Muzan on the other side was angered that they didn't actually kill the boy and his sister. If they had, he would have won the fight against the demon slayers. Izuku said, "I guess so, but still that seems a bit too harsh if you ask me. I hope that version of myself isn't also going to give you a hard time, or at least hear you out." Momo said, "Although I hate to admit it, they are in the right to do this. From what they explained, it seems that demons make our villains look like just a bunch of babies trying to learn how to shoot a gun. They are much more dangerous." She turned to Tanjiro. "Apologies, Tanjiro." The boy laughed. "No, you're right. Demons, from what I saw, are much more dangerous than your villains. At least yours can be detained or controlled, ours not so much. They had every right not to believe in me. You should have seen Kanao when we first met. She kicked so hard with her boot, it left an imprint on my head." He was pinched by his wife telling him to be silent. A voice spoke up. "I think that we should all calm down given that you're all not even looking at it objectively. At the minimum, we should hear the boy out. I'm sure that you're going to find his story rather interesting." "I'm sure I did." Tanjiro looked at the familiar voice. He was a man older than him by 2 years. He wore standard Demon Slayer clothes with an ice-themed Haori. He was the ice and snow Hashira. "Izuku Midoriya." Tanjiro jumped up and yelled, "Midoriya, what's happening? Where's Nezuko?" "Zenitsu." "In Sauk." He was punched on the head by one of the people wearing black who yelled, "Are you insane? How dare you talk to one of the Hashira so causally? These 10 individuals in front of you are the best swordsmen in the country." Tanjiro hugged Izuku. "Thank you, Izuku, for being the voice of reason in this one. Thank you for taking my side and not ignoring me altogether." Izuku chuckled a little. The boy spoke. "Well, I'm shocked that I even spoke because, in tense situations like these, I kind of freeze up, so that was a surprise for everyone." Bakugo yelled, "Demon slaying must have toughened you up. That occupation doesn't seem to be to those who have faint hearts, since there's going to be a lot of death in it." Michikatsu spoke. "Agreed. My brother was always a bit of a softie. The first time he held a sword and defeated my instructor, he threw it to the ground in the horror of damage he made on the man and ran away, vowing never to hold one again. So imagine my surprise when years after his disappearance, he emerged and killed the demons who attacked without so much as batting an eye." A voice came from behind everyone. "Now that you spoke up, let's ignore the boy for a moment. May I know why Tomioka and Midoriya aren't tied up? They're just as guilty as the boy for protecting a demon. No, Midoriya is even worse. He's a Hashira. And yet he befriended the demon and the boy. What punishment should we inflict on them?" He then looked to the side and said, "Did you know about your fiancé's activities, Kacho?" The man was Obanayaguro, the serpent Hashira. He sat on a tree with a snake coiled around his neck. The purple-haired girl, also known as the insect Hashira, Shinobu Kacho replied, while Izuku did contact me during his 2-year absence, I was mostly in the dark just like you were. Though knowing him, he must have a very good reason given his record. Fiancé was the only thing that Izuku and the 2 girls beside him yelled, as Bakugo was on his back laughing with the others guys. Only Mainta and Kaminari were furious that Izuku was having an interdimensional harem. Mainta jumped on him and began to slap him. Midoriya, you bastard, how dare you have a harem before me? Izuku pushed him away as Ibara tied his arms and chucked him into the boys. I don't think I asked for it. I'm just as shocked as you are. He looked at Mainta with a vein throbbing on his forehead. I'm not building a harem, got it. Stop making stories about me. The boy, still in a daze, nodded as Inko looked at Shinobu and said, she looks so cute. I hope he treats her right. Meanwhile, Kanao jumped in front of Izuku, causing him to blush as she inspected him up and down before saying, I approve. I now know that version of you will make my sister happy. The boy steamed as he fell and silently wished for someone to put him out of his misery since the moment this started. He was being embarrassed on a regular basis. He looked and saw Tamura enjoying some popcorn as he said, your pain is my gain. He was hit by Nana, who said, Tenko, be nice to him. The man-child pouted as he apologized. Achako, who was silent, then said, isn't anyone going to say something about the snake around his neck? When no one replied, she said, okay, I guess not. To the side of the meeting, a man with black hair tied in a ponytail stood alone. He was Jiu Tomioka, the water Hashira. Izuku looked at Aguro and said, tough words coming from someone hiding up there. Why don't come down and do it yourself? Furthermore, I came here without resisting, so there's no need for that. Not that I have done anything wrong, to begin with. Kyojuro, one of Izuku's first friends and closest ally, replied, Izuku, my friend, I'm sure you know that protecting a demon is a crime. So why are so calm about this? Izuku looked at him. Like I said, I've done nothing wrong, and even if I killed her, what would I've gained from killing an innocent soul like the demon girl? I've observed her for 2 years, and I can testify that she's not a threat. Have I killed her? The only thing that would have happened is her brother killing himself after losing the last member of his family, and I already have enough deaths on conscience from heroes interfering with my job. Izuku blinked as he said, demon slaying sounds hard and terrifying. There's no room for mistake. He then remembered something as he said, and what does he mean, heroes interfering with his job? Even Tanjiro was intrigued at this point. Discord replied, don't forget that this is happening in your time, the age of quirks, not in their time. The heroes. While Limelight heroes don't know of the Demon Slayer Corps' existence, only the underground heroes know about you after one of them stumbled into N over there. He pointed at the 6th user, and also the top 10. However, All Might refused the way demon slayers work, and demanded that they try to contain the demons and help them regain their minds, ignoring that demons are mostly animals working on primal instincts. This wasn't something the demon slayers were worried about, but All Might began encouraging Limelight heroes to patrol more at night, especially places where demons might hide, which are places that nighttime heroes operate, and who, as spoken from before, have already reached an agreement with the demon slayers. And this caused interference with demon slayers, who were always interrupted at pivotal moments, causing the demon to escape and kill people before he was tracked down and eliminated. This, however, was mostly portrayed as heroes stopping someone from killing an innocent person, because God knows what would happen if the news started talking about demons. All Might was shocked that his own ignorance would cause people's death, but asked, why don't they? I don't know. Talk with the HSPC. I'm sure that they can work something out. That's what you suggested, however. Their leader refused, given how corrupt the hero system is and the number of quirkless people is on the decline, given that they were the only ones who can do breathing techniques. They didn't want demon slaying to go from stopping Muzan to having the spotlight on them. The blonde hero nodded, understanding where the leader was coming from. Tanjiro asked, in that world, only quirkless people can breathing techniques. How come? Well, I suppose that mostly it comes from the fact the quirked individuals have slight changes in the biology of their body, but that's what I think. Discord shrugged. Tanjiro used this chance to speak. Please listen to him. He's speaking the truth. He then coughed in pain as Shinobu came up to him and gave him some medicine to help him with his broken jaw, telling him to take it easy since he hasn't fully recovered yet. Tanjiro then talked again. Please believe me when I say that my sister hasn't hurt a human, and she never will. Even if she's a demon, she can still protect humans. Midoriya said it himself. She isn't a threat to anyone. Yuzui said, listen, kid, as much as I respect Midoriya for being a flashy guy who won't hesitate for doing what he believes is right, your story doesn't make sense. A demon that won't kill humans. At least make it a bit more flamboyant. Izuku's sweat dropped. What was he supposed to say other than the truth? He was knocked from his thoughts when Obanai said, sorry, but I don't buy it. She's your sister, so you're going to defend her. He then looked at Izuku. And if you were so worried about the boy killing himself, you could have explained to him why you killed his sister and took him under your wing so he can avenge his family. Aren't you the one who says that demons are creatures that are enslaved by Muzan and deserve to be set free? Tanjiro smiled. That's a wonderful analogy to describe demons. Most people see them as mindless beasts with no feelings whatsoever, but you see them as tortured creatures. Now I can kinda see why Shinobu must have been interested in you. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Well, the formation proves it. Muzan have control over them, so I believe by killing them you're giving them peace. And it seems most of his deals are tricks made for someone who is at his weakest and will probably be under his control, or someone who is extremely desperate like him. He said, pointing at Kokushibo, adding, no disrespect though. The man shook his head. No, only a desperate fool will take his deal. I was really desperate at the time. I only saw what I wanted, not noticing the door being shut behind me. That's the problem that stopped me. She isn't influenced by Muzan whatsoever. Any other demon would have leashed and attacked anyone in their vicinity, but this one didn't. She only slept, and when she woke up, she didn't even seem interested in human flesh. Even after that, I still had my doubts, but then I met another demon who was also free of Muzan's influence, so I knew that the girl must be different. Jiomai then said, you met a demon who was free of Muzan's influence. He rubbed his hands a little and then added, as much as I wish to believe that, I believe that she used her demon blood art. I say that we give Izuku the proper medication to help him recover. Izuku shook his head. No, I'm telling you the truth. She even said his name and didn't suffer from his curse. She said to me that a swordsman that almost killed Muzan spared her life when he saw how much she hated him. And apparently she knows Oyakata-sama, so I couldn't just act on my own accord. Izuku saw Tanjiro smiling and asked him, do you know who he's talking about? The boy nodded as Yoriichi beat Tanjiro to the answer. He must mean Tameo. She was a demon that I saw when I first encountered Muzan. She managed to curse him out, so I spared her life. He smiled, but it appears she was a huge weapon in taking out Muzan. The man himself grumbled under his breath, calling the demoness a traitor for demonkind. Rengoku shook his head. All right, let's leave this to discuss with Oyakata-sama for when he comes. Everyone nodded till Mitsuri said, now that we mentioned Oyakata-sama, it doesn't seem possible that he didn't know about this. I mean, Izuku went missing for 2 whole years, and only Shinobu knew where he was. Before anything can be said, they heard the Kakashi arguing with someone. A man with white hair and a scarred face walked in holding a box, which caused Tanjiro to panic. You said that the demon in here can fight alongside humans? Huh. He pulled out his sword and yelled. Let me tell you that it's complete nonsense. The man moved his sword toward the box, but only hit the air as he noticed that he wasn't holding it anymore. Izuku then coldly said, that's enough out of you, Shinazugawa. The man known as Seimi Shinazugawa, the Wind Hashira, looked at him with anger, saying, what do you think you're doing, Izuku? This a demon. We're demon slayers. This is literally our job. The green-haired man shook his head. Both of them are under my protection till Oyakata-sama passes his final judgment. In other words, I won't allow you to harm them. The two looked at each other till the white-haired man scoffed, looking away and saying, fine. They then heard the approaching sounds of footsteps as all the Hashira took a line and knelt as 2 girls entered the yard, saying, the master has arrived. And with that, a man with what looked like a disease infecting the upper half of his face walked in as he said, greetings my children, today's the weather is beautiful, don't you agree? Izuku chuckled a little to himself. I guess you also have your own Bakugo. The ashen blonde began to throw curses left and right as Tanjiro laughed, saying, Seimi might look cruel at first glance, but he's someone who suffered a lot, so he hides his pain behind his anger. Don't let his attitude fool you. He's kind underneath. Izuku nodded as the scene shifted once more, now inside a room with the master and the Hashira sitting all together. The master spoke. It is just as you all reported. The demon's carnage has reached an all-time high, especially after AFO's defeat and its following chaos. Now the threat to human lives is greater than ever. Now, we must strengthen our ranks. What do you think? Seimi was the first to speak. The incident on Mount Natagumo says it all. Hasn't it been for Midoriya being there, the casualties would have been higher. You'd think the trainers know what they're doing, but apparently, they're just sending untrained children to fight. The caliber of demon slayers has fallen significantly. Most of them are beyond useless. Izuku nodded his head. The green-haired man added, as he said, most of the people who were at that night were completely worthless. They were running around like headless chickens till I came around with Tanjiro and his companions. And I managed to sort them out. And by that, I mean to kick them off the mountain completely before they drew attention to us. The slayers there went in without scouting, only swinging their swords left and right. It was a shame and a travesty beyond anything I have seen. Shinobu remarked, the more humankind spread, the harder it is to control them, especially nowadays. We were told after AFO's defeat that an era of peace will commence, but we've only seen more division arise. What happened in Natagumo for it to be so bad? Izuku asked, looking at Tanjiro. The boy answered, well, it was habited by Rui, Lower Moon 5, and his spider family, and let's just say it was a massacre for demon slayers. I barely survived the encounter. Muzan smiled as he said, ah, Rui. He was my favorite Lower Moon. Good times, good times. Jiaomai spoke up. We have demon slayers who are either people looking for vengeance for their loved ones or people who hunting demons was in their families for generations. The others have motives that are quite different. I feel it's cruel to allow unfit people to be taken to the slaughter. Rengoku said, well, let's look at the bright side. The boy managed to locate a Lower Moon in his first month. Unlike Izuku, rarely does any of us encounter them. I say we use this to our advantage to draw them out, so we can defeat them. The master smiled, fair point. But the drastic move of Lower Moon 5 proves that Muzan was far away from there. The man is known for huge diversions to avert attention from himself. It's quite frustrating, to say the least. But as long as demons linger around gaining strength as they feed on humans, we can only fight them for the sake of those who died. I feel that who are present today, the core Hashira, the finest swordsmen ever since the feudal era. The man then began to name them one by one, my loved children. I look forward to your success. Everyone was shocked by how their master treated them with such kindness and care. Izuku said, the master seems to be a very kind soul. I can meet him one day. Tanjiro smiled as he replied, he sure was. He refused to give Muzan the satisfaction of killing him and dying on his own terms as he blew himself up with most of his family. It was hard to see, but we made sure not to let his sacrifice be in vain. The boy wiped a few tears as his wife hugged him. The master said, Izuku, my child, I believe that you told me that you have something to say. Izuku bowed and said, yes, master, I have a couple of things that I intend to say. Most of them are rather worrisome. The first is the increased interference of heroes in my job and other demon slayers. I'm quite sure that I'm not the only one who came across this. Kyojuro then said, indeed, I have also encountered daytime heroes more often in my patrols. This caused countless deaths before I managed to escape from them and find the demon. Other murmurs of agreement rose. Jiwoo said, you should have seen Mount Natagumo after we left it. It was swarmed by them. I think we should have a talk with the new number 1 and tell him to stop the hostility given that he's the reason daytime heroes are interfering with us. No one noticed Izuku clenching his fist angrily as Shinobu held his hand and shook her head. Kaguya said, that's quite worrisome indeed. The Underground Hero Association has told us that Lemillion was indeed the reason behind this increase in daytime heroes patrolling the streets at night in places where demons might lurk. They hope to catch a demon to perhaps rehabilitate them so they can stop just from killing people who are just different. Obanai remarked, such useless and fruitless waste of time. Most demons eat heroes for lunch. The only reason Lemillion isn't a meal is that he can't be touched. Hell, he wasn't even the reason why they won the war against AFO. If it wasn't for our involvement, they would have lost. Everyone agreed, remembering the huge role they played in taking AFO down. Lemillion was shocked that he was hated by those people, but given the reason, he couldn't quite blame them. He was technically interfering with their job and causing human death to happen. In other words, he was only a pawn in helping the bad guys win. Jiaomai said, the heroes are reaching a new low, especially with the increase of demon activity. And the HSPC trying to report it as a massive cannibalistic cult. I suppose it's both a blessing and a curse that they don't know about us. Izuku carried on, but it gets worse. Last week I encountered a demon with a demon blood art, but the problem wasn't there. Everyone looked at him, He was a quirk demon. In the past, Muzan resorted to only turning quirkless people into demons for some reason, but now there is a sudden increase in quirked people becoming a demon, and this power that comes to their quirk is unbelievable. It's the closest thing to quirk evolution, and that's not talking about their blood demon art if they have it. Nyokairo spoke now that he mentioned it. I did encounter a couple of quirk demons, and their powers were insane, not that it mattered at the end, but for the average demon slayer it means death. The boy then spaced out. Mitsuri said, that seems bad. Demons with powered-up quirks and blood art seem like a huge headache. I hope we defeat him soon. Izuku's face then took a darker look as he said, the worst is yet to come. What I'm about to say is something that I found with Shinobu by accident and must not leave this room because it may turn everything upside down. All of the people present were now worried as Kyaga said, and what would that be, my child? The man was now worried himself as Izuku's tone was very ominous. Well, it was a small test that Shinobu and I did before you sent me off to watch over the siblings. But its implications that we found are huge. Everyone was now intrigued by what that Izuku had to say as Discord said, all right, I believe that's enough for now. He then looked at his guests and said, and I think that it's about time I sent you home unless you want to stay. Tanjiro and Kano said, I guess we could stay a bit longer. It's been boring lately. Michikatsu said, I have nothing better to do right now, so why not? Who knows, maybe I'll see a world where he has my powers. Yoriichi laughed at his brother as he and Muzan were sent away. Discord then said, "Alright people, I want your opinions on this. 10th universe. #TO anyone who's watching Demon Slayer from the anime. Please don't read this chapter since there are spoilers. Well, I have to admit that this is awesome." Tanjiro cheered on given it was the most exciting thing he did for a very long time. But in all honesty, I kinda like this world. I mean, it's good that the Hashira have some kind of balancing factor or someone who can keep the more extra elements in check, and this also increased the chances of fewer people dying through the final fight with Muzan given the extra hand. Kanao's eyes widened as she knew she needed to ask something later on. Discord nodded his head. "I won't say keep them in check, but more like help them understand different points of view, and you are right regarding the final fight. Less Hashira died this time around." He noticed Michikatsu's look as he addressed him. "He didn't die against you in your fight, but he died against Muzan in the end." The man frowned. "But at least his grandchild didn't die by his hands this time around." "Does my sister survive her fight?" Kanao asked, hoping for the best. So Discord answered, "In this one, yes she did, but it was only this world. You need to understand something that each case has different settings. In this world, she and Izuku made a very different yet similar plan to your sister's version. In essence, they planned to hit Demao with a poison so strong that he won't even feel it flowing through his body or feel it destroying his regeneration as they kept him busy with fighting. And when he realized it, it would be already too late." He tapped his chin, "But then again, all I said, it all comes down to what plays out. Plus, in that world, some heroes aided in the raid, a lot of them died, some got permanent injuries, and someone tried to foolishly apprehend Muzan and take him to HSPC for questioning. And I can personally assure you that the HSPC or reformed HSPC wanted anything but to question the Demon King." Momo asked, "What are you talking about? And who is Dama? And why would Suzu and his fiancée of that world want him dead this much? And who's the idiot who thought he can take out the Demon King?" Discord replied, "Wow, lots of questions, but they are reasonable, so let's begin from the end. The idiot is Mirio." The blonde wasn't shocked, and he was the idiot for having the power to kill Muzan but didn't because of two things. First, he lacked the will to do so, and second, he believed All Might's delusions about demons. He actually believed that if he captured Muzan, he'll force the man to give him the way of turning demons back into people or force him to relinquish his control over them. He was so confident that he literally turned his back on the down man, which caused him greatly. And believe me when I say death would have been much better than what happened to the poor guy next. Mirio was biting his nails. "What happened to me that's worse than death? Did I become a demon and attack everyone else?" He looked up at Discord, who gave him a blank look. The Chaos Master replied, "That would be spoiling the fun that comes further down the line." This made Mirio faceplant on the ground, but Discord carried on like business as usual. As for the why, the who, and the what, you see, Dama was the demon that killed Izuku's master and Shinobu's older sister, Kanikacho. Both of them spent years planning out his demise. Though the woman could have been saved since they managed to get her to a hospital, well, he bit on his fist. The hospital refused to help them given that Kani, like Izuku and Shinobu, was quirkless, and their literal reply was, "We can't waste our resources on someone useless. We have much more important things to do." As they took in her place a hero's son with a dislocated shoulder. This only served to further fan the flames of hatred in Izuku's heart against heroes given that Izuku saw the woman like an older sister for him. All Might clenched his head. Oh dear goodness. They refused to give her treatment. No wonder young Midoriya in that world hates heroes. Discord added, "Believe me, that was one of the many reasons why he hates heroes. There's a lot more, and you're one of them. Let's say, your little talk happened much earlier and in a crowded place." The man gulped. Nezu's eyebrows twitched from hearing this as he asked, "If you don't mind asking, how did Midoriya convince his mother to allow him to go after such a dangerous profession? Given what I have seen, she's already worried as she is, regarding his current choice of career. I can't imagine her accepting such a thing unless she isn't in the picture altogether." The woman was shocked by such a notion but then remembered that she might have died in this world. Discord was uncomfortable answering this. Let's just say that not all Inkas are good mothers, and this one is one of them. The woman fell over as she just heard she was a bad mother. Izuku said, "Well, I want to say I'm surprised regarding this, but from what I heard, I have to say I expected this. Tanjiro did tell me that most demon slayers came from households that suffered abuse, abandonment, or death, but still, I can't imagine a world where my mom is a bad person or abusive to me." Discord shrugged. "It is what it is, my good friend. I mean, in my world my mom went to be a supermodel with Auntie Mitsuki. And I healed people with blindness and other shit so much that people thought that I was a D." He then caused Ibara to float. "It took me 3 weeks to convince her that I'm not the second coming of Christ after she saw me heal someone who is blind." The girl blushed as she hid in Izuku. Alright people, more questions, Discord said. Hit me with it. Anjiro asked. Does Izuku meet us at any point, or are the heroes that helped him just a bunch of ragtag heroes? A very good question, I have to say, from someone who has mostly forgotten more than the invisible girl. The tailed boy fell over from the harsh yet very accurate insult directed toward him. Yes, he knew a few of you in the beginning, mostly the underground heroes of your class, and had a very good relation with Shinzo, who respected him very much and the dedication he put into his work. The others had a good relationship with him, but Toru did have a slight scare when she got too close to Izuku for her own well-being. Kanao chuckled a little bit. Yeah, my sister can be a little bit intense sometimes when she feels threatened and annoyed. Toru merely nodded her head as she shivered. Discord laughed a little bit as he said, but he did meet the rest, beginning with someone he wished he never saw again in his entire life, Bakugo, and after that, it was meeting other members of Wano, whether be it by chance or other events. Tanjiro looked at the spiky-haired boy and back at Izuku. Why wouldn't want to meet him? I mean, they seem like good friends to me from what I saw. Discord shook his head. It's a very complicated relationship, but in that world, Bakugo was actively looking for him since he disappeared one day from school. He clapped his hands. All right, Mini-Me. What do you think? After this is for my own amusement and your personal torture. Izuku merely flipped him off as Ibara chastised him, which he might start doing since the girl is at an impressionable age. Well, I have to admit that it was weird, to say the least, but it seems that I'm quite different from here. I mean, I love heroes, but there I hate them. I also seem more confident. I have to say that this version of myself is the closest thing to being a quirkless hero, but given how this works, I might find a version of myself who used breathing styles and is in a hero school. Discord gave him a thumbs up. Yes, sir, you'll see a lot of worlds where you use breathing styles or where you are a reincarnation of one of those three or the other two that just left us. Tanjiro and Kanao at the mere thought of Muzan being reincarnated after all the sacrifices made to defeat him. Izuku, on the other hand, didn't know how to feel regarding that he might be a reincarnation of a girl. It seemed a little awkward. Okay, let's move on before some of us have war flashbacks. Discord spun the wheel, which he now called the Wheel of Eternal Embarrassment, making Izuku's eyebrow twitch while Bakugo laughed till he fell over. The wheel finally stopped on something that made Discord smile, the shapeshifting hero. Yes, finally, I've been waiting forever for this. Izuku lifted his eyebrow. So in this world, I have some type of shapeshifting quirk. Is it similar to Toga or is it animal related? Discord shook his head, making Izuku ask, well, what is it? Discord smiled. You'll see. It's better than any quirk. You literally have the power of a god between your hands. You can destroy everything with a flick of your fingers. Now everyone was intrigued regarding what kind of power he had. But what I can tell you, the power is literally on your wrist and you're quirkless as they get. Izuku was shocked. Nezu was laughing evilly, scaring everyone from his world but giving chills to their guests. Mina was running in the forest in the training camp. She had to admit that she wished she failed her final exam. She might have been safe with the other people and wouldn't be here in a forest filled with fire and poisonous gas. She then heard footsteps coming near her. The girl froze as the newcomer appeared. A monster wouldn't give it justice. Tanjiro's eyes bulged out. I thought you guys didn't have demons like us. Izuku shook his head, telling him, we don't. That thing used to be a human, but AFO happened to it. AFO coughed. Kamado meet the Namu. They were humans, but I artificially bioengineered them to become mindless killing machines to do my bidding. But further down the line they became more smart and complex, but they remained only battle-hungry machines. Tanjiro and Kanao shivered as AFO gave them the same feeling Muzan did. But Mina jumped happily. Hey, I'm on the screen. This is so cool. She then whispered quietly, I must be the lucky girl this time around. This is great. The girl froze in her place as the chainsaw Namu looked down at her. It lifted its arm and swung it down. The girl waited for the pain, but it never came. She dared to open her eyes and looked only to see what looked like Frankenstein's monster holding the Namu's hand. The monster said, Hey ugly, why don't you pick on someone your own size? The girl then noticed the symbol on the monster's chest and breathed a sigh of relief. He was one of the Glass Watch Vigilantes, a group of highly trained mutants, quirked people who fought villains. This one, if she remembered correctly, was named Frankenstrike. It was in her opinion a lame play on Frankenstein and Lightning Strike. Izuku whistled. Wow, I'm huge. I'd see why I would be a vigilante. Mutant heroes aren't necessarily well accepted, sadly. I hope this changes further on. Shoji and Takoyami gave him a thumb-ups with Mina, Tsuyu, Toru, and Pony smiling. Nezu smiled. I think that young Midoriya is extremely smart in this world, given he fooled everyone to think that he's a group of vigilantes inside of a single person. Ibara replied, It would appear so, but I guess that the symbol has some type of relation with his powers. Let's see what type of powers he might have later on. Discord smiled. Oh, believe me when I say that both the combined power of AFO and Overhaul doesn't stand a candle to Izuku's full potential in that world. He literally needs a flick of his fingers to wipe them out of the pages of history. Mina smiled as she stood and ran away saying, "Take care of him, Frankie." Frankenstrike looked back at her and said, "Some hero in training, lend me a hand, will ya?" Mina froze as she lowered her head in shame. "I'm sorry for not helping you, Izu babe." Izuku only waved his hand saying, "Look at it this way, you were stuck between two titans fighting each other. It would be insanity to interfere in their fight. I'm sure I won't hold it against you." It was long after the disastrous training camp. No one was severely harmed and the villains failed their objective. They weren't able to kidnap anyone and some of them were captured for all their efforts, such as Muscular, who was found charred and barely clinging to life. Kota said a giant released laser beams from his shoulders and defeated him. Moonfish was encased in diamonds courtesy of the vigilante Diamond. Mustard, who was taken out by sleeping gas from Gutrot. Mr. Compress, who was frozen, and finally Mange, who was tied up in the trees with vines. But there was something positive. The heroes managed to get a lead on the vigilantes, or as they now think, one vigilante. Ragdoll, after being freed from Mr. Compress, kept a tag on the vigilante and realized that one of them was there. But multiple members of them appear, causing her to theorize that vigilantes were actually one vigilante with the ability to shapeshift. Nezu shook his head. "Such a shame, young Midoriya. You let your guard down and underestimated Ragdoll, causing your own downfall." Discord shook his head. "No, not really. He thought Ragdoll was out cold, so he didn't think too much about it. I have to give it to her since she fooled him, even though he trained his senses to tell if someone was actually out cold or not. But he was in a hurry." Izuku facepalmed as Itsuka said, "Don't feel bad, Izuku. I know that you only meant well." Aizawa frowned. "Let me guess, we're going to fight him, and I'm their secret weapon. And I will be shocked that my quirk is nothing special against him." Discord nodded his head as the man said, "We should seriously start looking at our opponents so we can't be taken by surprise." Right now, heroes such as the top 10, Eraserhead, and many more were scouting out a regular-looking warehouse. The nighttime hero said, "All right, you know the program. We came here to make the vigilante submit. From what we saw, he has powers that can walk all over us, but that doesn't mean we're on the losing end. That's why I came to neutralize his abilities." Endeavor scoffed. "I say we just walk in and take him by surprise. Then we chuck him into prison." Hawks smiled as he poked. "Are you still sore that the vigilante absorbed your flames more than once only to use them against you? Or is it the time that he froze you solid in front of people?" The flame hero exploded into flames as he glared at Hawks. All Might coughed. "All right, let's calm down. We need to apprehend the vigilante and turn him to our side. If we take him out, it will cause about 6% of crime to rise again." Izuku whistled. "Wow, that's some serious firepower if I can beat Endeavor. It must be unique." Tanjiro thought about it for a moment. "The nearest thing I could think of having abilities like that is Musen, but even he couldn't reshape the world as you said." Mina said, "At this point, I feel that he has alien powers. Imagine that, it would be so awesome. People living in outer space, each alien having his own set of powers. It feels so cool and amazing. I wish something similar like this happens to us." Kano asked her, "If they lived in outer space, how will they breathe?" "I'm not sure there's air there." The alien-themed heroine blinked for a moment. "I don't know, but I'm sure that some don't need to breathe air. I mean, look at us. I might as well be a demon from your world at this point." The girl laughed before remembering that she would be killed if that was true. Michikatsu shook his head. "Be careful what you say. Believe me, if you were, you wouldn't be shown mercy. Your head will fall faster than you can blink." The girl gulped and nodded. Nezu's voice came through a speaker and said, "All right, Edshot, begin your infiltration of his base." The hero became thin as a string as he slipped through ventilation pipes and entered what seemed the main hall, and saw two people sitting there. One was a boy with green curly hair and emerald eyes, and the other was a green-haired mutant girl with frog-like features. The hero reported back, "It seems that they are two people, a girl with a frog mutation and a boy with some kind of watch on his wrist. It also holds the vigilante's symbol. Do you think he's the one we're looking for?" He then heard them talking as he said, "They're talking. I'll open a comm so you can hear what they're saying." Aizawa looked at Tsuyu, who titled her head in curiosity. "I wouldn't have expected you of all people to hide a vigilante. I expected better of you, Asui." He stopped for a moment. "Or what will my version say to you?" The girl looked at him. "Well, it's true that I'm against vigilantism, but I'm no snitch at the end of the day. It's not cool to be a snitch, but I also suspect that I might have my reason." Tsuyu first talked. "Thanks for saving everyone, Izuku. I don't know what have happened if you didn't arrive on time, or helped All Might against AFO." The boy blushed. "Anything for you, Tsuyu. I mean, you're the one that I love." The boy rubbed her cheek, making her puff her cheeks and look away in amusement. Izuku's face went pale white as he jumped from Ibara's lap and ran to Tsuyu, asking innocently, "Another mommy?" The girl blushed as she smiled before hugging the young girl, saying, "Of course, Eri-chan. I will gladly be your mother." The other girls threw jealous looks at her. Takoyami and Tsuburaba only sighed in defeat. Tsuyu then threw herself in Izuku's lap as she said, "Well, Izuku, It seems that you're my Prince Charming now. Please, take care of me. She then gave him a kiss in a bold display of affection, making the boy malfunction. All the while Eri was cheering him on. Izuku only had one thought at this moment: do this for Eri. Stay strong, he'll have to send us back at some point. He looked at Discord, who was laughing. I'm going to kill him at some point. Tanjiro was secretly laughing till Kanao pointed out something that made him pale. What are you laughing about? There might be a world where Nezuko or a female Tanjiro is with him. The boy fell over in shock as he never thought about this, with Kanao laughing at his horrified face. The other girls were angry but pushed down their anger, knowing that their turn will come eventually. Aizawa looked at him and said, "The kid seems to be forming some sort of harem. I have to admit that I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not." Tsuyu then kissed him on the nose, making him blush as she grabbed his hands and said, "Izuku, can we please talk?" The boy nodded his head as the girl sighed. "Look, I know we spoke about this for 1,000 times, but I really think you should stop being a vigilante. Please go get yourself a hero license. I'm pretty sure if you talked with All Might, he'll pull some strings and clean your slate with the law." Izuku sighed as he flopped back on the couch. This was a normal discussion between them ever since Tsuyu knew his true profession years ago. He had to admit the girl had strong perseverance, but he just couldn't. There are a lot of factors that prevent him from doing that. On top of them, he single-handedly battles 6% of crime in the entirety of Japan. Add to that, he'd be wasting time in school learning stuff he already knows. He's basically a university-level student. He's currently studying an online course on quirk theory. "Tsuyu, please understand, I can't become a student at." He was silenced by a slap to the face from Tsuyu's tongue. "Look, I know 6% and you already know most stuff, but do it for yourself. Izuku, for the last 6 years you've been rotting alone with me as the only friend you have. This is not healthy. Any normal person would have gone insane at this point. And it's only recently that you had Eri come into your life. So this is also for her as much as it is for you. Didn't you say that you want the best for her? Look at Tsuyu going. She's real," handing to Izu. Takage said from the side, with the rest of 1B girls nodding their heads along with 1A girls. Izuku didn't know how to feel about this. Izuku replied, "Well, given that I single-handedly handle 6% of crimes in Japan, I don't think that I should waste my time in school, especially if I knew things that I was going to be taught." Tsuyu, Ibara, and Itsuka pinched his cheeks, saying, "What about Eri?" Tsuyu first started, "Even if you are doing a good job, you are no better than a villain since you are using your quirk above the law." Ibara carried on, "Furthermore, you can't just isolate yourself. You need people to talk to." And Itsuka finished, "And Eri needs a happy family, not some type of chicken pen where she would be chained." Izuku frowned as he rubbed his cheeks, which are glowing with pain. "First off, there must be some other reasons. And stop pinching my cheeks, it hurts," the boy said as a tear slipped from his eye, making the girl stop for a moment before proceeding with the pinching. Discord added, "Well, he is right that he did have other reasons regarding his refusal." Izuku looked away. "I know that, but I have others reasons. If I go to UA, it means I have to meet her and be forced to go back and live with them. You know of all people how I don't want that." The girl sighed as she knew the boy was talking about his sister and his mother. What happened between them was a sad mixture of stupidity, misery, misunderstanding, and miscommunication. It was truly sad, but all this caused Izuku to run away from his home. Izuku lifted an eyebrow. "So I have a sister. That's interesting. I have to admit that. But what happened between us to force me to run away?" Discord replied, "Well, your sister in that world took Bakugo's lead in making your life a living hell just because you were quirkless, not to hurt but to make quit being a hero since it was too dangerous for you. And Inko didn't help with her overbearing attitude and the sad looks which later on you thought were looks of disappointment and shame, so you were like, if they don't want me, I might as well disappear from their lives." Inko cried, "Oh my baby, I'm sorry for making feel like this. I should have been more attentive to you. I only wanted to protect you, but I think I might have made feel even worse." Izuku smiled, "It's all right, Mom. You meant well and that's what counts at the end of the day." Tsuyu slapped him again. "And I already told you, she doesn't hate you. Izuku, I've known her since the beginning of the year and she's still looking for you. She really loves you." Izuku replied defiantly, "I doubt that." He ducked to avoid a slap but received a kick to the gut from the girl as she laughed a little, with the boy adding, "There's also the stuff I know about the HSPC. If I even reveal my face, they'd try to kill me and God knows what they'd do to you." Izuku looked at Hawks, who said, "Believe me, you don't want to know. You seriously don't want to know." Izuku slowly nodded his head as his hand unconsciously stroked Tsuyu's head. Izuku then narrowed his eyes. "But we can have this talk later. I mean, we do have a guest." He then looked at a corner. Shouldn't the ninja hero be a little bit stealthier? Edshot's eyes widened as he yelled, "We've been compromised." Everyone was startled as a video appeared on their computer screens with Izuku saying, "I have to admit that you guys are quite annoying, but did you think you can set up this small shindig without me knowing?" You should know that I have sensors implanted in a 6-feet radius around the property to help me with intruders. Endeavor, ever the hothead, blasted toward the door and blew it wide open as he said, I entered the facility. This was easier than I expected. A green flash happened, blinding him for a moment. The flame hero sighed. I'm going to seriously regret this. I hope don't get too injured. Discord laughed. It depends on who he chooses, and believes some are seriously heavy hitters. I mean, one of them is literally a walking nuclear reactor, and his cousin is a walking nuclear factory, and their best friend is a walking chemistry laboratory. Everyone paled regarding this as the three from the Tashio era were confused, but knew that these three things are seriously bad and harmful. They looked at the screen. An energy blast then hit Endeavor in the face as a man with a Russian accent. Congrats. You passed level 1. Allow me to introduce you to level 2. A man in a metal suit walked from the dust as his fist was glowing red and the ground under him was melting into lava. Now, you might have entered my house to your own accord, but you will exist according to my own. At this, other heroes attacked. They were facing one of the vigilantes known as NRG. He was a walking nuclear reactor. Every time he appeared, radiation sensors would spike. Whatever was under the suit was sealed in there for a reason. Aizawa swung through the air, activating his quirk. Attack him now. Kamui Woods attacked him, but he was shocked when he was shot and burned as NRG said, I thought heroes were supposed to be smart. Guess not. Now stand down. I don't want to fight you all. Wow, I'm absolutely monstrous. This power I have seems really strong. Izuku said, with others nodding their heads as Discord said, believe me when I say that this power is beyond the stars. Mina's eyes widened in happiness. Midnight then said, how about you take a good night's nap? She then ripped her costume and her quirk activated. The armored man then slapped the dial on the center of his armor as he turned into what looked like a giant turtle. Terraspin. Bakugo blinked. Is that a huge fucking turtle? And what is that supposed to do? Turtle her to submission. Use something useful, Deku. Izuku looked at him. I'm sure I have my reasons. No quirk is useless. I'm sure it has something that manages to turn Midnight's quirk against her. I study quirks for a living. Bakugo scoffed as he sat down and mentally agreed with the boy. Aizawa said, who wants to have a bet that he'll cause half of the heroes there to fall to sleep? Others looked at him like he was crazy, but still made the bet knowing that they might get a few easy bucks. Discord rolled his knowing how wrong they were. The turtle then jumped into the air as his hands and feet turned into a giant fan as they began to rotate, releasing huge gusts of air and pushing the gas away toward the heroes. Sadly, most of them were engulfed in the gas, causing them to be knocked out. Present Mike then came and said, hey, little listener, just surrender and make this easier for everyone. The turtle stopped as it clutched its head and slapped the dial and turned what seemed to be a small humanoid with plugs connected to his feet. Echo, echo. The small humanoid began to multiply as it said, you have a nice scream. Want to hear mine? The clones took a deep breath and released a high-pitched scream as the awake heroes scurried to safety. This was one of the more troublesome forms according to the HSPC. Endeavor then yelled, Flash Fist, Prominence Burn. He released a huge gust of flames as All Might reared back his fist and yelled, Texas Smash. He released a huge amount of air toward the remaining clones. Most of them were destroyed and they all regrouped as they returned to one clone. Izuku gulped as he pulled on his sweater saying, wow, look at this. I'm facing off against both All Might and Endeavor. I hope I come out of this alive. It seems really dangerous. Enji snorted, well, kid, no offense, but this is what happens when you go way over your head. He was promptly smacked on the back of his head by his wife, who was smiling innocently. Kaminari, who was still sore about Izuku having a harem, said, well, I hate to agree, but he seems done for. Unless he can turn into a ghost and possess All Might to turn him against Endeavor. Now that would be truly insane. He looked at Discord, who flashed him a smile as Denki said, he can do that. This very is to op, for its own good. He then stroked his chin, trying, does it have something to do with the watch and the symbol? It seems to be the source of his power at this point. Gyro zipped him, don't be stupid. What kind of watch give? She was cut off by Discord. You are right. The watch is the source of his powers. Meanwhile, Aizawa was taking money from everyone since he won the bet against them. The clone slapped the dial and turned it into nothing. Everyone was confused till All Might heard a wispy voice. Sorry, All Might, but I need to use your body for a bit. The hero didn't have time to react as Izuku used a ghost-like form to enter his body and try to possess him. Keyword being tried. Once the specter was inside the blonde hero, Ghost Freak found himself inside a room where 7 figures were present, 6 men and 1 woman. They looked at him with curiosity, with the woman blitz speeding him and punching him as she said, get out of Toshi. The ghost man was knocked from the man as he groaned. Man, I should have possessed the flaming idiot. At least, he is unoccupied. He then turned tangible as Maruko kicked where he was sitting. The ghost said, wow, violence much. And they say violence against men is false. He then dashed at her, but the hero jumped away. She smiled, you ain't possessing my body. I don't like it today. We still have a score to still, so go and turn into him. I want to retain my honor. The ghost blushed and said, "Don't phrase it like that. People might get the wrong idea." He then slapped the dial and transformed into a mixture of a humanoid hawk and a chicken. "Are you happy now? Ready to have your butt kicked again, bunny girl?" Maruko smirked. "Oh, I'm ready, all right. I can't wait to have your chicken ass turned into jerky." The two ran at each other and began to kick and fight as other heroes tried to interfere, with the rabbit hero yelling, "Don't butt in. I want to take him out myself. He made a joke out of me." Izuku frowned. "Made a joke out of you? You almost killed someone due to your rash behavior. What did you want me to do? Get you a pat on the back and tell you a good job?" The Hawkman jumped away, avoiding a sharp feather blade slapping the dial, and transformed into a dinosaur-like being with a jetpack on his back. Izuku went into the air and attacked Hawks, who told him, "You know you attracted a lot of unwanted attention, kid. You're lucky I managed to convince them that you're more worth it alive than dead." The flying hero ducked under an energy blast from Izuku's mouth. Izuku looked at Hawks and the man once again said, "Believe when I say you really don't want to know. It's for your own good." The boy nodded his head skeptically before looking at the rabbit hero. The woman looked away, saying, "I'm not that reckless. Whatever happened, it must have had a reason for it." Izuku nodded his head. "Aren't you the one who says teams are for weaklings?" The hero shook her head. "No, I work fine with each other when I'm needed. It's just that when it comes to small things, I like to work alone. Plus, I wouldn't do something so rash that it almost kills anyone." Mina said, "Can we ignore this and focus on how awesome this version of Izuku is? I mean, he can turn into different forms and powers. Is the watch his power? Can it turn him into alien?" The girl said with giddy as Discord nodded his head, flashing her a thumbs up. Discord replied, "Yes, Izuku in this world has a device known as the Omnitrix, which allows him to turn into an alien from about 1 million choices. One of its forms is so strong, it is regarded as a god. But to use it, you have to make the 3 voices, which exist in it, to agree for the action that they are planning to use." But Izuku managed to trick the 2 other voices into giving him full control while they argued together. The being named Astrodactyl replied, "Whatever you say, bird boy, but they should know that if I'm injured, all their small little secrets will be revealed to everyone on the news, and it will be a sweet dozy to see them squabbling among themselves to hide the truth." Hawks's eyes widened as he knew what he was talking about and yelled, "Do you even understand what you'll do if you reveal those papers?" Izuku rubbed his chin, transforming once more into a planet-like alien as he took a spherical form and grabbed Hawks's feathers, causing them to rotate around him. "I think it will be justice served to everyone. Maybe Lady Nagant will be released from prison." Hawks was forced to fly away as his feathers came blitzing at him. The bird hero then took control once again of his feathers and put him back into his wings. "This isn't going to be easy like we thought." Izuku went to the ground and turned again into a reptilian-like being, saying, "Well, it was fun, but I have to go." He quickly ran to grab Tsuyu and took her somewhere safe and think what to do next, given that he got her into this mess. But a torrent of flames blocked his path, causing him to change again into a being made from rocks and absorb the heat. The flames of Endeavor began to flicker out as the being said, "Dude, you should know that you can't fight me at this point." The being pointed to himself and said, "I'm called Heat Blast for a reason, you know." The two looked at each other as Endeavor snarled, "May the best fire user win." And the two began their fight for superiority. Izuku chuckled, "Well, look at that. It appears Endeavor meets his match." Todoroki laughed, "Well, I have to say it's going to be fun to see my father's own flames used against him. Can I have more soba to eat?" The man in question did what he does usually and screamed, "SHOTO." Aizawa looked at his student and said, "Shoto, after this ends, you're going to have concentrated therapy. This isn't healthy." The boy frowned as he looked away. Mina replied, "Can we ignore Shoto's horrible family life and focus that Izuku has an alien watch? Imagine, if I had this watch, I can bring interstellar peace." She noticed everyone laughing at her as she pouted and looked away. Discord threw away a tear from his eyes. "I think this is enough for now. Now, I want to hear what you have to say about this world." 11th universe. Mina jumped in happiness. "This world is cool. Tell me all about it. I need to know everything there is to know about this world. Oh, how was my reaction when I first met him? What type of aliens did he have?" She then stopped for a moment before she resumed her momentum of questions. "Tell me, does he have powers similar to mine? Did he have fun using his powers? And also, did he master his powers and become stronger? I have so many questions." Her eyes then began to shine. "Also, are there aliens in that world? Please tell me." Discord rubbed his forehead as he felt the headache to end all headaches come to him. He then put a hand on Mina's mouth and forced her to sit down. "Wow, you've had a serious Nejire moment there." The pink girl rubbed the back of her head sheepishly while the blue-haired girl pouted and frowned. Discord cleared his throat. "Okay, lots of questions. When you first met him, you were all over him. You literally crawled all over him like a swarm of ants. Tsuyu had to slap you with her tongue to get you off him. And yes, he has different power sets that use similar to yours. Now regarding the aliens, I'll tell the first 10 he had. There was the ghost you saw, which is called Ghost Freak. an eyeless dog-like creature named Wildmud, the raptor alien you saw XRL8, a four-armed creature named surprisingly 4 arms, the flaming man you saw at last named Heat Blast, a merman named Ripjaws, a man made of crystals named Diamond Head, a small toad-like with a mind that rivals Nezu named Grey Matter, a techno-bubble named Upgrade, and a bug-like creature named Stinkfly. All Might gasped. I have to admit that his powers are quite varied and various, though I wonder how didn't I take him for someone working for FO. I mean, he seems that he has multiple powers. The man still remembers every time he mistook dual-quirked people for people working with AFO. Discord looked at him and said, I'll come back to you. As for the rest of your questions, Mina, he didn't have fun with his powers. You see, he knew that with his powers great responsibilities came along, so he never abused them. And as for training, he used the same beach that All Might trained him to use and understand his powers, and he came along a very far way. Discord then said, All right, All Might, you asked me if you ever thought that he worked for a FO over there. The answer is yes. You were very paranoid about a bunch of vigilantes with multiple powers running around, let alone a child with multiple powers. You only calmed when he aided you in taking AFO down. The hero nodded his head. He can understand why he eventually threw the accusations. Kokoshibu asked him, Now I know that I'm not from here, but I do feel a little bit inclined on how the boy came upon such a strong device. It is hard to believe that he just stumbled on it during some random part. Discord laughed a little bit. Well, there is some truth to your last statement. Everyone looked at him weirded out as he said, Well, there are certain worlds where Izuku just walks around and happens to stumble upon it, and he learns its secret. The black-haired man didn't seem impressed. But in this world, someone gave it to him after he saw that he has a truly heroic spirit, but other than that, he didn't stick around much. Ajiro then asked, But wouldn't it be much more beneficial for him to have a mentor? I mean, I'm a martial artist, and I could have learned fighting from videos, but I needed someone to guide me. The other hero students nodded their heads along with Tenjiro and Kanao. Discord shook his head. Well, you might think so, but no. In some cases, having a mentor is much worse than not having one. The device which he uses needs to be learned solely through first-hand experience, and having a mentor won't change much. Plus, the mentor himself didn't understand till later on in life, so he wouldn't have much help. But Izuku is 10 times smarter than him, so it was good. Plus, this mentor has a lot of villains who will come following. Izuku gulped a little as he asked, Like what type of villains? Discord shrugged. You know, your usual tyrannical alien dictator wannabe. The dimension-hopping time traveler who wants unlimited power, the insane doctor, and the zombie clown who all by the way still shows up at some point or the other. Well, let me process that for a moment. The boy rubbed his head. Are there other ways for me to gain this power, or is it solely through this device? Discord nods his head. Well, sometimes you manifest naturally like a quirk. He then looked at FO who smiled, ... or you have the world's worst father. Izuku sighed a little, rubbing his forehead. Let me guess, he did some experiments on me while I was still in my mom's womb, didn't he? Discord nods. Yes, he hoped to create the ultimate weapon, but Izuku refused to bend to his will. Inko hated him due to the pain she experienced from being pregnant with him for 4 full years while AFO experimented on him. He was born into a cell and was treated badly by everyone, especially his mom, who was an unwilling participant in this experiment. When All Might busted AFO's chops, Izuku was sent to jail, and the Omnitrix was made to help the HSPC control his powers and make him work for them. But he refused and managed to escape and befriended a girl which betrayed him for money, causing him to develop a deep sense of hatred toward women. In the end, Izuku became a vigilante who saved people to prove to others, even though he was the Demon King's son, that doesn't make him evil. And a lot of things happened that caused him to rip AFO into pieces. In the end, Izuku was cornered inside an alley by many heroes and was killed by All Might. Izuku died with a smile on his face, knowing that he was going to meet the one person who truly cared about him. All Might looked at his hands. I killed him, but why? He's just a child. Discord shook his head. Because All Might, some versions of you hate AFO so much that you see anyone remotely related to him as pure evil. That version of yourself truly thought that killing Izuku would be doing the world a huge favor. Nezu looked at him and said, All Might, I'll put you within you on regular sessions every Monday. The blonde hero replied, Please do. I'm quite shaken from this. To think that in a different world, his obsession with his nemesis caused him to kill a child just because he was his son. Izuku looked at FO and said, Worst dad in the history of dad. Discord cut him off by saying, Not exactly. In fact, most versions of FO I came across are actually decent parents who live and stop you from doing stupid shit. He then pointed at All Might. He's actually the bad dad. All Might felt even weaker as AFO smiled and said, Just for your information, I want you to know that I was a good brother, and unlike what you think, I didn't lay a finger on dear little brother. He was already sick when I put him inside his vault for his safety. Yoichi scoffed. Vaulting me won't change the truth that the Demon King can't win. You have his right-hand man here. Ask him what happened to his boss. The young puffed his chest victoriously. AFO replied, "Oh my sweet little naive brother, you should know that I don't care what did. All I care about is what I do to ensure that I can prove to you that villains do win in the end." Itsuka rubbed Izuku's back as he cried a little, There, Izu. I know it's frustrating to know that you're trapped inside a 2-century squabble between brothers, but we're here for you." Tanjiro was last patting him on the back, while the OFA users were reviewing their life choices. Satsuna coughed. "Okay, changing the subject before I have a blood clot. Tell me about that god guy Izu has in that fancy watch of his." Discord smiled. "Yes, he calls him Alien X, and a single snap from his fingers is good enough to destroy the universe and rebuild it in seconds." Everyone was amazed at such a power, but he uses him only in world-ending cases since that is too much power for anyone to have. Shoto then asked, "You said that there are cases where he has a mentor. Do other versions of himself have different mentors?" Discord nodded. "Yes, many versions of himself have different mentors. I have myself had a mentor that taught me everything I know. I might bring him out later on. He's currently sleeping. Speaking of other mentors, you have 2 right here." Everyone looked at the demon slayers. There are many worlds where Tanjiro and Kokoshibo are his mentors. Kano asked him, "What about me?" "Rare, but happens if he was a girl." The girl nodded. "Though sometimes with Kokoshibo, it is for less than holy reasons," Discord said. Bakugo said, "Either he's making him his successor in case he was taken out, or he's using the nerd to come back to life by hijacking his body." He looked at Izuku. "Stop trusting people so easily, nerd. It's a biohazard for your life and ours apparently." Izuku could only pout and say, "I'm not like that." Shoto shook his head. "No, that is you to a T please. Midoriya, don't trust anyone who pretends to give you a hand of friendship. It's dangerous for all people involved." The boy sighed as he said, "All right, but just for your information, I'm not that dumb." He crossed his arms as Tsuyu giggled and began to stroke his hair. He then looked at Discord and asked, "Are there any aliens hiding on that Earth?" Discord smiled. "Yes, in that world, Kamakiri is an alien from the underground alien city that exists under Musutafa. He used the quirks to give him a perfect human cover, but you almost blew it." Mina looked at the mantis-looking boy who yelled, "Stop right there, Pinky. I'm human as they can get. I'm no alien and I by no way came from outer space." The girl huffed as she looked away with annoyance. She hated how some people had no imagination whatsoever. Zero raised his hand. "Did they catch him at any point or did he get to UA?" Discord nodded his head. "Yeah, they managed to catch after this small confrontation. They decided to make an assistant teacher at UA, since forcing him to become a hero was a stupid idea." Seeing that no one had anything to say, he looked at Izuku. "All right, Mini-Me, what do you have to say about this? I mean that this is you after all." Izuku glared at him and said, "I hate you." He cringed when his other self laughed. "All right, I think this world is interesting. It shows me as a person who works hard and is willing to burden himself for the sake of others. The powers are awesome, but it seems that I have too much power on my hands. I just hope that I don't abuse it at some point. Other than that, I'm cool." The Chaos Master exclaimed, "All right, let the Wheel of Eventual Embarrassment give us its judgment." Izuku felt a vein throb along his forehead. He then saw the wheel stop on a world called the Backstage of UA. Izuku tilted his head. "What does that mean? Are going to show something regarding me hacking the system of UA? I think that would be cool. It means that I'm smarter than Nezu." Nezu looked at him and smiled. "Challenge accepted, young Midoriya." Discord shook his head. "No, not exactly. I guess that you have to watch and find out. Isn't that the most beautiful thing about this? There is no way to know anything other than watching and understanding." Izuku launched himself into the sky as a giant overhaul was following and yelling, "That girl is a curse. I'm the only one who will be able to use her to her fullest extent. Give her back this instant." Izuku only growled as he sent a punch toward the man in his monster form and said, "No, I will never do that, because how can I call myself a hero?" He lifted his fist looking at the man. "If I can't save one small girl." Everyone shivered as they remembered seeing the fight. Eri hid herself inside Ibara's hair to protect herself from seeing Overhaul. Momo then said, "This is seriously terrifying. I mean, seeing it on the TV is something, but seeing it up close is another whole level. Did you really face that monster head on?" Izuku chuckled saying, "Yeah, I did, but I would do it another million times for Eri." He hugged the little girl who calmed down after seeing him. This was one of the many reasons he saw him as her papa. The two went to attack each other. Izuku lifted his fist as Eri clung to him for dear life, while Overhaul sent out his hand toward them. Everyone at this moment was invested in this fight. It was such an intense moment that you couldn't get your eyes off it. They wanted to see what will happen next. Suddenly a voice rang throughout the place as someone said, "Cut. That's a warp for today. Tomorrow we finish the fight. Be here at 12 sharp to finish the scene." A man with a director cut walked to the street that was actually a part of filming studio. Everyone was shocked at this as they all yelled in one voice, "What in the world is happening here?" It seems that they stumbled on an acting world, but that seemed impossible, right? Discord began to laugh. Well, as you can see, this is a world where all of you are a bunch of actors in action series called My Hero Academia, and Izuku is the lead star. Mina and Toru jumped squealing in happiness. Tell us everything about this world. Are we famous? Are we superstars? Do we have fans? Discord grabbed them and put them on the ground. All right, calm down your horses. First off, Mina is a well-known actress who has 5 blockbuster movies under her belt even though she is only 25 years old. As for Toru, she's a fashion model who does acting on the side, but she does have a show where she is a main character. You both have fans and creepy stalkers too. The girl's face is soured at the mention of stalkers, or at least Mina, since Toru was invisible. Izuku then asked, so there are no quirks in that world? They only exist in the minds of readers of manga and comic books. Yes, Discord replied, in that world, quirks don't exist. People are all, as you may call them, quirkless and have no power. The most impressive thing they have is the ability to lift a car after years of muscle training, and that's if we're talking about a small car. Tanjiro asked, wait, if there is a world where they are only actors, does that mean there is one where we're the same? He didn't like the thought of his suffering as just something people watch to entertain themselves in the afternoon. Discord smiled, saying, well, you'll have to wait to find out. He didn't like this smile. As Izuku was being lowered from the air, wires were visible from his suit. Once he landed on the ground, Ri jumped off his back and ran toward Overhaul or Kai. Daddy, did I play my part right? The man embraced her in a hug. Yes, sweetie, you did really good today. Everyone's jaws hit the ground as they couldn't comprehend the scene in front of them. In this world, Kai was Iri's dad and he was a good one. But then Izuku remembered that the man was just an actor, so he couldn't say that he was a bad person per se. Iri then asked, Daddy, I'm confused. Isn't he a bad person? Why am I calling him Dad? The boy calmed his breath since there is no escaping this. Do you remember when we play make-believe? The girl nodded her head happily. Well, in that world, Kai is a good person who is your dad, and he's only playing make-believe with you and he's not actually hurting you. The girl was still confused but nodded her head nonetheless. Izuku walked toward him and Iri smiled. Uncle Zuko, did I do good? I really looked scared there, didn't I? The boy smiled at his niece. If he had to be honest, his older brother terrified him a little in his performance. The boy smiled as he rubbed the girl's head. Of course, Iri. He then said, because of that, I'm taking you to eat ice cream after this. The girl lifted her arms and began to cheer. Her dad then said, Iri, no sugar for you. Do you remember the last time you ate sugar? What happened? The girl pretended to be ignorant, remembering how she trashed her room and the house, causing her father a lot of headaches and a fist to the head from her mom. She tried her puppy eyes, but the reply was instant, no. Iri then crossed her arms and pouted, oh, sugar muffins. Izuku blinked a little as he looked at his niece and said, Iri, that's the wrong way to say it. The girl looked at him in confusion. You have to say foo. He was then slapped on the head by Kai, yelling, stop corrupting my daughter. Izuku noticed 3 glares at him and chuckled awkwardly. Wow, I guess that I'm Kai's younger brother in that world. That's really interesting, to say the least. And apparently, I'm trying to corrupt Iri. The boy was confused about why he was doing this. Discord said, well, in that world, it seems that you have foul language that gives Bakugo a run for his money. It seems that you can't spend 5 minutes without at least saying fuck. Izuku only said, well, at least I'm not like Kakin who can only stay 5 seconds without swearing. The explosive blonde was about to launch himself, but Kirishima stopped him, saying that it wasn't worth it. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. A simple stop, it would have been simple. Damn, it hurts. You have one hell of a hand on you. I felt like a sledgehammer hit me in the head. Kai scoffed. With your language, I think I might as well have used one. Stop doing this. He glared darkly at him. ... or I will tell Mom to deal with you. The boy immediately fell to the ground. I'm extremely sorry that I did this, but please don't tell Mom. She's still angry about the vase. I don't want to see her reaction about this. Kai smiled as he said. Gooderi at the main time was laughing at him. She then asked, Uncle Zuko, can you take me to meet Ibara? I really like her. She's so nice and funny. The boy rubbed the back of his head as he remembered that the girl was currently doing a swimsuit photo shoot. She was busy and he couldn't reach her. The girl was really good at her thing. Plus she managed to score a role on the show. In actuality, the girl only took the role of the religious girl as a middle finger to him when he told her that she couldn't pull it off. I'm sorry, Iri, but she's really busy. The girl pouted a little as he cursed under his breath. Damn it. So cute. Ibara looked with wide eyes. Swimsuit photo shoot. What was that version of herself even thinking of doing something so sinful? Then again, she saw a few moments ago a world where she was a teenage mom. But still, she gulped. I don't think I feel so good. Izuku hugged her, saying, calm down. Whatever she does, it doesn't represent you. The girl nodded her head before looking at Discord. Is she at least religious to some extent? The Chaos Master smiled. No, not really. In that world, you're a full-on atheist who doesn't believe in God, but if it helps, you do charity work for the poor. The girl smiled weakly before looking at Izuku. The boy gulped as the girl asked him, Izuku, when we get married, you'll respect my religion, right? The boy began sweating. Where the hell did that come from? Yes, of course. I'll make sure to take care of you. The girl hugged him and rubbed her face against his face. The other two went jealous and did the same thing as they asked, us too, right? The boy nodded weakly as his soul officially left his body only to be returned courtesy of Discord. I have to see. Izuku looked at Kai. You really nailed the role of the villain, Kai. I mean, for a moment there I actually thought that you were serious about killing me. The man laughed a little. Well, I like to embody the role that I play. Add to that, I usually take the occasional body guy role, so I became very proficient in acting the role. The man explained with a little bit of pride in his voice, which was true since he had an Oscar for a role in a movie. During the shooting of the third season, Kai's acting was so realistic that Eri's original actor and her substitute quit from fear, causing many delays. So finally Kai decided to bring in his real daughter, who was used to playing hero and villain with him. Izuku then fired at him an air-to-air missile. Wow, that explains why your neighbors look at you like you're going to kill them at night in their bed. Kai felt a vein throb as he fired back. Says the guy who needs a filter to his mouth and only got the lead role in this show because Bakugo has resident bitch face and Todoroki gave off an emo vibe according to the director. You were their third option. Izuku only said, so apparently in that world, I have a foul mouth. What a weird coincidence. Shoto looked at his mom and said, Mom, I don't have an emo vibe, do I? The woman shook her head. Of course not, my snowflame. You're the shiniest boy I ever met. Isn't that right, NG? The man coughed a little, clearing his throat. Well, he does have his moments sometimes. The man then felt a chill travel through his spine as he looked at his wife. The woman had a very unimpressed look as her face was darkened, with her eyes being pure white. I mean, you're the most shining star that I ever saw. The man looked at his wife, who smiled, making him sigh in relief. The boy was weirded out as he said, well, thanks for that, I think at least. Bakugo was currently foaming at the mouth as he looked at the screen and said, what the fuck did that idiot say I have? Who has a resident bitch face? He was smacked to silence by his mom, who told him to suck it up. The boy then heard someone calling him out. He looked to the side and saw the hero of the neighboring studio set. The boy was staring at the show named Demon Slayer, and he had to agree that the boy was one of the nicest people that he ever met. He had no idea how he managed to get a role with so much violence. Tanjiro came up to him and said, Izuku, how are you today? I heard that you were doing fine and that you're about to finish the big fight of Season 4. That's so fantastic. Izuku smiled. Yeah, I'm doing good actually. I heard that you're about to finish Season 1 if I'm correct. The boy nodded his head quickly. He was about to ask another question when he heard a car horn. Tanjiro apologized. Sorry, but I have homework in school tomorrow, so I have to go. Big brother can get impatient sometimes. Izuku always wondered how the good guy of the show was related to the big bad. But who was he to judge? Tanjiro's soul evacuated his body once he saw that his brother in that world was Musen himself, but returned quickly. Okay, calm down. That guy is an actor, so he isn't a demon or someone who hurts others. Even with that knowledge, I still wish I can cut my eyes out. Discord looked at him and said, wow, you're taking this better than I believed you would. I'm shocked. The boy gave a weak thumbs up as he tried to compose himself. A man with long black hair then walked past Izuku saying, why did I have to take 2 roles? This is so tiring. I just want to go home and sleep. Michikatsu said, I suppose that I don't exist in that world, and only my brother does. He's also playing 2 roles, mine and his. Discord appeared beside him and said, if it makes you feel any better, your character was inspired by his childhood friend, and you were supposed to be a demon turned good, but they scraped it since you look like you crawled from hell. The man took a deep breath and let out a sigh. Peaky. That's just peaky. Discord began to laugh evilly. Man, I have to thank Nezu-sensei for all the things he taught me. Aizawa asked him, and what in the world he taught for you to become twisted like this? Discord smiled. Well, if you must know, he taught world domination. The teachers paled while Nezu laughed like a madman. And also the most important lesson, why screw with one person when you can screw with multiple people at once? Nezu replied, show them, my disciple. Show them the true power of chaos. The two began to laugh with each other like insane people. Momo stood up and said, so you brought the others here to screw with them? The Chaos Master nodded. You're truly an evil human being. The girl crossed her arms and looked away from him. The Chaos Master said, well, they are still having fun. It's not like they're not enjoying it. She looked at everyone and they nodded as she pouted. I suppose so, but don't overdo it. Izuku was sitting and reading his lines for the final fight. He was nervous. This was one of the most important moments of Season 4, and he didn't want to screw it. Suddenly his vision went dark as he heard a soft voice. Guess who's this? Izuku smiled as he twirled around, grabbing Ibara by her waist and kissing her. My beautiful girlfriend, Ibara. The girl smiled softly as she hummed, saying, so how are you doing? Are you ready for your big moment in the show? I'm really excited to see you. The boy smiled a little. Yeah, I am, but fuck, I'm really worried. I'm a little worried that I might mess up. You get what I mean. The girl nodded her head. She then grabbed Izuku's cheeks and made him look her in the eyes. Izuku looked at Ibara and blushed. The girl did the same thing, and they both wondered, what is going to happen? I'm nothing too serious. My heart can't take it anymore. The girl then said, I believe in you, Izuku. I mean, if I manage to pull off a religious girl, you can pull off the hero thing easily. She then stood up and said, but I'm still angry about my role at the last moment. The girl was supposed to be the lead girl and love interest with Izuku, but budget cuts and the nightmare of her special hair made her go into Class 1B, and Ochako make it into 1A. Izuku laughed a little as he liked this yander side of his girlfriend. Don't worry, you'll always be the main star of my life. The girl smiled softly before hugging, making sure to take a cigarette from the pack on the table, and went out to get a fresh breath of air. Ibara looked with a sad look. I smoke too. I suppose I have to get used to this. She pouted as Izuku rubbed her back to make her feel better. This was going out of hand and it was becoming borderline scary, but everyone was enjoying himself. He knew that would end as soon as a villain version of himself popped up. The boy once again returned to reading his script, but suddenly the door of the trailer was flung open as Kirishima and his twin Tetsu barged in. How are you, Bush Bro? The boy fell from his chair to the ground with a dazed expression. Both boys have the decency to blush. The two boys rushed in and helped him up as Kirishima said, Wow, we're really sorry, bro, but we didn't know that you were nervous. Usually, you're the opposite of that. The boy shook his head a little. Well, I am a little bit nervous regarding the boss fight scene. I mean, you don't get to do that every day of the week. I'm just a little bit worried that I might fail the role and do badly in it, the boy said with a weak smile. Dude, you're playing which has nothing to do with you. I mean, if Bakugo can pull off a bad boy, you can pull off the fight. I mean, look at the guy. He's a total crybaby bitch. He cries from shampoo commercials, Tetsu said, trying to cheer Izuku up. Izuku smiled, remembering his co-worker who was one of the nicest people he has met. The guy had no evil bone in his body. It was his face that made him look like a deranged sociopath. Izuku was pretty sure that the role was Katsuki's first bad boy role, given that the last role was a prince of a kingdom of fairies. Bakugo was foaming at the mouth as he heard this. What was that version of himself thinking? He was making him look weak in front of everyone. He looked at Discord and yelled, Open a portal right now. I need to teach that version of myself how to be a man. Discord grinned as he opened a portal that Bakugo jumped into. A few moments later, he came out of it looking like a caveman with a huge beard and animal clothes with a sack. His mother fell over laughing with everyone else. Bakugo looked at Discord and yelled, You bitch, what's wrong with your mind? I almost died in that little stunt of yours. I was stuck in that damned place for 25 fucking years. Discord shrugged, consider it extra training. Bakugo merely growled as he sat down. The green-haired boy then asked the others, Where is he, by the way? I haven't seen him for like 3 days now. Both boys looked at him like he grew a second head. Kirishima said, Didn't you know? Momo gave birth to their child like a week ago. He's just having time with the baby before he comes back to set with her. The boy blinked. He didn't hear of that. Was he so distracted that he didn't notice such a thing? A voice then echoed, Everyone, get ready, we're on in 5 minutes. Momo put a hand to her mouth as she said in disgust, I'm with Bakugo in that world. This will only end in headaches or migraines. I bet I will need a huge amount of pills just to be able to process anything he says. Bakugo then yelled, Hey, I'm not that bad, you know. I'm a decent person. Momo then said, Who tells people to kill themselves? I find that hard to believe, though I will give you credit that you do feel guilty about it and never meant if your reactions are anything to go about with. The boy didn't say anything but bit on a banana from his sack. His hair then turned into rainbows. He looked up and shrugged before continuing to eat as if nothing ever happened. Kirishima grabbed Izuku and dragged him outside saying, Come on, bro. It's time for the big action scene. Let's get rolling. Kirishima grabbed his upper part while Tetsu grabbed his lower part and they began to drag Izuku toward the set. The boy said, You two know that I can perfectly work, right? They looked at him and nodded. They finally reached the set and Izuku began taking deep breaths to calm himself down, for it wasn't every day that you do something as huge as this, so he grabbed a juice box and drank it. The director came in and said, Listen, everyone, I want this scene to be perfect. I want to feel the evil intents of the villain from behind the screen when I rewatch it. I want to feel the struggle and pain of the hero when I see it. He looked at everyone and said, Got it? Everyone nodded their heads as the director turned toward Izuku. And you, I need you to bring your best to the table today. I want to feel the same energy that I felt with Muscular. Izuku only nodded his head. How someone as peaceful as the actor that played Muscular managed to pull off his role was a mystery for him. Izuku began to sweat. I swear that I'm nervous in his place. Acting is tough and worrisome. I'm really happy that I'm not an actor. He didn't notice Aizawa giving an unimpressed look that said you're afraid of acting and not fighting crazy villains. Kanoko said, Izuku, how are you afraid of acting while you're not afraid of breaking your bones? The boy chuckled a little bit. He blushed and began to scratch his cheek as he supposed that his friends were right on some accounts. The director then yelled, "All right, people, put the boy in the harness so we can begin the scene." The boy walked with the specialist to get him in his gear and begin the greatest part of his life. Izuku wiped some sweat as the others laughed at him. "This is really nerve-wrenching. I hope I managed to get this scene right." Bakugo scoffed. "Tell me, how were you planning to get into the hero course with nerves of jelly beans?" Discord laughed at the comment. "Well, that's funny. All right, let's move on and see what you can say." 12th Universe. Toru bounced up and down. "That world was so cool. I have the one thing I desire attention to. It's really amazing. I'm some kind of superstar, but I have to ask, how old am I in that world? Because I know that most teenage roles are taken by actors who are older than they seem." She quieted a little before asking again. Oh, and do I have some kind of scandal? I know most stars have some kind of scandals revolving around them." Everyone looked at her confused as she said, "What? Is there something on my face?" Discord shook his head. "No, but you want to have attention, don't you?" The girl squirmed a little as he patted her head. There, don't feel bad. I know being invisible must be hard for you, so I don't blame you, but tone down a notch." The girl nodded her head. Discord then cracked his neck. "All right, your questions are as follows. First off, you are 23 years old in that world and are considered the 10th beautiful woman in the world according to the beauty index." Mina hugged Toru, who was blushing, but no one could see her due to her invisibility. "As for the scandal, you have a scandal where you were accused of flashing the people in a beauty contest, as ironic as it is." The girl was now happy to be invisible, not wanting anyone to see her expression of disbelief on her face. Ibara asked him, "Do I act in big movies?" Everyone from her friends looked at her, making her say, "What? I already have a child in one world. Might as well see what kind of roles I usually take. And how did I meet him in this world?" "Thank you." The chaos being smiled. "All right, Ibara. Well, you mostly work in low-budget movies because you aren't too keen on acting. But most roles are usually a strong-headed girl who fights or the usual damsel in distress that needs saving, like your role in Snow White." The girl smiled. "Oh, that sounds amazing. I always loved this story. My mom used to read to me when I was a small toddler. It was such a delightful story." Discord then said, "I'm happy that you liked this. Now regarding how you met Izuku. You met him when he was your Prince Charming during Snow White. You two talked a little and then agreed to keep seeing each other." The hero girl smiled a little bit. "I think that is the most amazing thing in the whole wide world. This seems like a true fairy tale comes true. The hero of the story gets his girl. It sounds like God made us for each other." She rubbed her face against Izuku. "Isn't that right, Izu?" Kendo and Tsuyu then hugged, making sparks emit between the three girls, and Izuku sweated a little bit as Eri said, "Please, mamas, don't fight. I love you very much." The girls looked at her and hugged, saying, "Of course, not sweetie. We're just having a little bit of competition with each other on who can make your daddy happier." The boy blushed as Discord laughed a little bit. Discord then asked, "Does anyone have another type of question?" He noticed that no one was asking anything, and he shrugged, given that this world wasn't as interesting as the others. But Mina lifted her hand. "You said that Ibara and Izubaba are with each other, and so is Momo and Bakugo." The chaos being nodded. "So who is also in a relationship in that world?" The chaos hero smiled. "Well, I know a couple of relationships. For example, Shoto is with Ochako, you're with Shinso, Nejire is with Shiro, Yui is with Shota." The girl smiled happily at the relationships and looked at Shinso, who simply shrugged. Discord then said, "Any type of meaningful questions? Ones that aren't of the lovey-dovey type." No one talked, so he looked at Izuku. "All right, let's get this show moving. Minimi, what do you have to say before I embarrass you some more?" The boy merely glared at him, fighting off the urge to pull a Kaken moment. The boy sighed. "I think that this world was a little bit amusing. The thought of me being an actor is unrealistic. I mean, I can barely look people straight in the eye, let alone act in front of millions of people." Discord nodded his head. "All right, moving on. Let the wheel give us its eternal wisdom." The wheel began to rotate till it landed on something that made Discord's eyes go wide, and he laughed like a maniac. The sign showed Kaken and Deku. Izuku dared to ask, "Why are laughing this much?" The boy looked at Katsuki, who was just as confused as he was. The boy wondered if they had to clear everyone from Katsuki's blast radius. The being of chaos smiled as Izuku thought, "Oh no, that's going to cause complete chaos." The boy looked at Katsuki, who had everyone eyeing him like he was a bomb going to explode. Discord then said, Have everyone move away from Boom Boy or you'll be smoked." Everyone ran away except Kokoshibo, causing Discord to say, "You aren't a demon with hyper-regeneration here. You'll be injured like the rest of them." The man then quickly bolted it. Katsuki looked around and said, "What a bunch of cowards." He then stroked his beard. "This means you're all just afraid of my strength." Discord then said, "Hardly. No one wants to have explosion scars on their bodies. Me and every Izuku who allows you to torture us like this are just a bunch of wimps." Katsuki then almost blew a fuse, but he calmed himself down. The scene then switched to a home. It slowly moved inside of it till it landed on something that made everyone chuckle a little, with Nezu and Discord laughing like insane people. Inside the house, there was a small mouse hole with a string in it. The scene then follows the string that ends in a cat basket. The cat inside the basket then wakes up stretching. It was a blonde cat with ruby red eyes. He leans on the side of the basket and grabs the string. Everyone is holding off their laughter till Mina said, "Don't tell me that they're like that cartoon we used to watch when we were younger. This is so hilarious." And Bakugo is the cat. The role kind of fits him. Bakugo merely glared at her to make sure that she was dead enough when exploded her. He was about to become the world's greatest joke. He knew this cartoon and what usually happened to the cat and how the mouse usually outsmarted him. Tanjiro asked, "What is the meaning of this, and why don't I see anyone familiar? And why does that cat resemble him?" Pointing to Katsuki. "And why is everyone laughing?" Discord answered him, "Well, you see, in some worlds, they aren't human per se. In this one, Katsuki is that cat. Regarding why everyone is laughing, you'll see soon enough." The scene went back to the mouse hole. The cat began pulling the string, and from the mouse hole came out an angry-looking mouse with green fur and shaggy-looking hair with its arms crossed. He was unamused. The mouse was now in front of the basket as he was handed a glass cup. The cat then lowered its hand and pointed toward the kitchen, causing the mouse to go there to fill the cup with milk. The hero students laughed a little at this scene. Izuku smiled a little, knowing that he was the mouse. Bakugo looked at him and glared. Izuku then said, "Oh man, the fun is about to begin." The cat then had a rubber straw which it put inside the cup as it began to drink from it. He then grabbed the green mouse and patted it on the head before flicking it back to its house. Katsuki then fell over laughing at the scene as he said, "See Deku, not all the episodes have the cat being the one defeated and bothered. I bet I'm going to kick your ass." Izuku smiled as he said, "This is still in its beginning. At least wait till the end." The scene now changed to the outside as the delivery van pulled beside the house. The cat looked outside, seeing a man with a small gift walking toward the front door. He began to imagine what was inside the gift, which was various foods in his opinion, till he heard a soft meowing sound that knocked him out of his daydreaming. He jumped up in shock and quickly ran to see what was happening. In front of his owner's legs was a small kitten with pink, white, and black fur all over. He was not happy at all, while the mouse that was also looking had a dreamy face of happiness. Mina smiled as she knew who the cat represented, and from the looks of the boiling gravity girl knew the same thing. She walked close to her and said, "Chaco, isn't it time to go to your Prince Charming?" The Machai girl's eyes lit up, but before she can stand, Discord appeared. Discord shook his head. "Sorry, but this doesn't count. Better luck next time." The girl was disappointed. The cat then retreated a little and kicked the mouse back to its hole. She then concluded that if the kitten stays, everything will go to hell for him. He won't be the favorite anymore. Once he saw the owner was gone, he decided to get rid of the small kitten, but the mouse had different plans. Kaken then went quickly and grabbed the cat, trying to throw her outside the house. Deku saw this and quickly removed the string holding him and swung at the cat, who was about to kick the kitten through the window. The rope attached itself to the cat's leg, causing him to rotate around him before falling to the ground. The kitten, on the other hand, went flying in the air, causing the mouse to go and grab a pillow to save it. Laughter was echoing at Bakugo, who was steaming like a potato. Zero looked at him. "What the heck, Bakugo? That's so hilarious. I think my heart is about to explode from laughing. This is so fun." Izuku was putting his hands on his face to stop his laughter, not wanting Bakugo to go on a full murdering spree should he see him laughing, as he laughed into his chest, with the girls chuckling beside him, adding more to Bakugo's annoyance. The blonde boy looked to the side and noticed that the three guests weren't laughing, which calmed him a little, but little did he know that two of the three were holding back their laughter. Tanjiro and Kanao had one thought: "This is so funny." Meanwhile, Michikatsu had another thought that took him back to the time he was still among the living. Reminds a bit of Akaza and Dauma. The kitten flew through the air as Deku was following it with a pillow till she finally landed in it, with its tail being the only part visible. The kitten came out of the pillow and began to lick Deku in the face, which he accepted as he patted it on the head. Kaken looked at the scene and frowned as he stood up and ran toward them. This caused Deku to lift the pillow and run with it, but the cat ambushed them, grabbing the kitten. Deku kept running till he was stopped as he collided with a table's leg. This caused a plate to fall on him. He looked and saw the cat running toward the window to finish its plans. Deku then threw the plate toward the cat, which had it under its leg. Manga then said, "Something extremely funny is about to happen. Prepare yourselves." The others nodded their heads as they looked back at the scene in front of them, while Bakugo was bubbling with rage. His face was so red that someone can mistake him for a stop sign. The cat began to spin around like a tornado as it let go of the kitten that the mouse caught. But the cat kept spinning, going outside the window, and burrowing into the ground with its legs out, as Deku made sure to close the window with a devilish look. Ha ha ha. Bakugo was transformed into a mole. Kaminari, Kirishima, Zero, Mina, and many more said at the same time as they laughed heavily. Bakugo foamed as he launched himself at them, but was smacked by a wall that pushed him back. Izuku finally broke down in laughter as the girls beside him did the same. I just can't hold it anymore. It is so funny. This is the best thing that I ever saw in my entire life. A little while later, Deku was seen in the cat's basket laying on the kitten as he heard tapping on the glass. He opened his eyes and saw the cat, which demanded he opens the window or he'll face the consequences. The mouse only made fun of his threats. The cat gasped as the mouse was feeding the kitten from his glass of milk. The cat then ran back and began to charge toward the door, which opened right in front of him as a banana peel which placed in front of him, causing him to gasp and jump. The mouse and the kitten looked at him as he stuck out his tongue. The cat landed on a roller skater which kept him going till fell down the stairs toward the basement with multiple crashes. The cat then came back only to slip on the banana from before, causing him to fly outside the house and land inside a fence. The cat managed to free itself. The cat then noticed the faster it ran, the higher it can jump, which it used to reach a window that closed on him as the upper half of his body was inside the house and the other half was outside. Deku closed the window. He then brought a paddle and stood by the cat's rear as he smirked deviously. He then lifted the paddle as he readied himself to strike. He wouldn't dare. Kaibara said, "This isn't going to happen, because this isn't really going to happen, not to a version of Bakugo of all people." He heard growls and saw steam rising. Bakugo then yelled, "I will kill you, shitty Deku, if you dare to do that. You hear me? I swear to whatever god, devil, deity, or demon king that I will kill if you dare." Nina laughed as she pointed toward the screen. "I guess it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Man, I never thought I'd see the day when Bakugo got a good spanking." The cat tried to look behind it and worry, but suddenly it jolted in pain and continued to do that as it cried tears with the strikes continuing. At the end of this, the cat's rear was glowing as it raised a white flag declaring its surrender. Finally, in the end, the kitten was drinking milk while the cat was begrudgingly massaging the mouse, who held a very smug face of victory. Kaminari was now on the ground smashing his fist against it as everyone was laughing at Bakugo, who was feeling that his heart was about to explode from anger. The boy took a deep breath and was about to yell at them, but his mother smacked him against the head. "Wow, that's the funniest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. Maybe I should start spanking you myself." The boy looked at her. "Don't you dare, you old hack. I'll kill myself before I'll allow that to happen." The boy and his mother continued to fight as everyone deadpanned at him, but stopped when Discord said, "This is by far not over. Get ready for another one." Bakugo's eyebrows twitched while Gyro said, "I can't wait to see another one where Bakugo gets his ass handed to him." She got a yell for her comment, but Gyro flipped him off. The chaos being smiled at them as he said, "Brace yourselves because it begins right now." The scene showed the house of Deku from the outside before showing a scene from the inside. The green-haired mouse was currently having a nightmare of being smacked around by the cat when it woke up to knocking on its front door. The mouse walked to it and opened the door and looked around only to see a basket on the ground. He inspected it by poking it, but the basket poked back and ran inside its house. The green-haired mouse followed the basket as it scurried around his house and collided with a wall. The movement stopped as Deku managed to remove a cover from the object only to find a little mouse with white hair and a small horn with a note. The note simply read, "Please take care of Eri. She's always hungry." Deku looked at the note and rubbed the back of his head as he tried to digest the information that seemed to confuse him greatly, wondering how will he be able to take of it given that he can't take of himself. At the bottom of the note, he noticed a side note, "Feed her lots of milk." Eri jumped in Izuku's lap. "Daddy, that's me. That's so cool." The boy stroked Eri's hair as he smiled happily at her. He was thankful that Overhaul's shadow was removed from her. The mouse then looked at the little one who pointed to her mouth, causing Deku to rub his chin, thinking of a way to feed her. Before gaining an idea and signaling for her to be quiet, he then went to the other entrance of his house and looked outside. He smiled when he saw the cat's bowl of milk with the cat itself out cold in sleep. He then signaled for the little mouse to come closer, which was a mistake. The little one quickly ran toward the milk with no regard for its safety, but Deku managed to grab it before it went too deep. Eri kept trying to go there, but Deku kept grabbing her before he gave up and hung her on a hook. He looked at her and shook his head, telling her to be silent. He slowly tried to reach the milk, but Eri ran toward it, making him gasp in shock and fear. Izuku shook his head. "This is like her when she sees an apple. I swear I saw her once trying to climb a balcony to get an apple from a tree." He looked at the girl who was blushing a little. Eri rubbed her leg against the ground as she looked away and said, "I really like apples." Izuku lifted her and rubbed his nose against hers. "I know, but please try to be more careful." Eri looked at her mamas, who nodded their heads at her, making nod her head. But Discord then gave her an apple, making her drool in happiness, and she began to stuff her mouth with it. Tanjiro then said, "She really likes apples? Huh, kinda reminds me of Nezuko and her sleeping." Izuku replied, "Well, Eri had a rough childhood, and apples were the only sweet thing fed to her, so I can't blame her for loving them so much." Eri currently was standing on the cat's nose as she prepared to jump into the milk, but she missed and ended up on the ledge, losing her balance and grabbing the cat's whisker, waking him up from the pain it felt. Bakugo smirked. "Oh, you are going to get it now. You hear?" He was silenced by a sledgehammer to the head from Momo, who said, "If you ever think about hurting Eri, I'll make sure nobody finds your body. Do I make myself clear?" The boy fearfully nodded his head as the girl walked back to her seat. Deku quickly ran and grabbed Eri, jumping into the milk before the cat saw them. Kaken looked around, wiping its face from the milk. Seeing no one, he shrugged before beginning to drink from the milk. Inside the bowl, both Deku and Eri watched as the cat's tongue passed by them, till the green mouse noticed that the cat managed to scope up Eri. The mouse quickly jumped from the milk bowl and looked at the cat. It then opened its mouth before grabbing Eri and running away from the cat, who was shocked briefly before chasing them. The three ran, with one chasing the other two. At first, Deku was holding Eri, but when Eri saw Kaken, she lifted Deku and ran with him to his house, quickly shocking the older mouse. The little mouse made it to his house but smacked Deku against the wall as it entered the house. She then dragged him in as the cat smashed into the wall, knocking it out cold. Bakugo howled like a madman in laughter. "Good one. She should do it some. This shit is really funny." He decided to ignore that he also smashed into a wall because Deku was the one who was also hurt. To him, this was all he needed to make his day extremely better. Eri lowered her head in sadness. "I'm sorry that I hurt you, Papa. Can you forgive me?" Izuku hugged her as he said, "Of course, Pumpkin. I'll never be angry at you." The girl hugged back. Ibara then said, "You're such an amazing father, Izu. I wonder how will you be with our children when we get married and get blessed with some kids of our own." Itsuka, Tsuyu, and the other girls were by her boldness. But Izuku didn't care, as his soul already evacuated his body due to embarrassment after he heard his mother muttering something about cute grandbabies from Izuku and his girlfriends when the time comes. Didn't his mother know that he was doing this just to help Eri? He swears that his mother will kill him with her way of thinking. No way that the girls were really interested in him. Discord looked at him and rubbed his head. "Is every version of myself this dense? I mean, most of the other worlds it was the girl that initiated the action." The scene now changed as Izuku was using multiple straws to make a bridge to the milk and help Eri drink from it. The cat noticed the straw bridge enter its milk and heard drinking noises coming from the milk. The cat then smirked evilly as it grabbed the straw and began to suck on it, causing the little mouse to be sucked inside of it and making Deku scream in horror as he followed the little one, stopping it from being eaten by the cat at the last moment. The green mouse grabbed the straw which held Eri and blew in it, sending the younger mouse to the house as he ran after it. But Kaken caught up and moved the entrance to the house to the side, causing the green mouse to hit the wall, and the cat caught him. Bondo asked, "Can he really do that? Seems a little bit impossible." Discord replied, "You have a glue dispenser for a head, and your best friend has a bubble thought for a head, and that's bothering you." No one argued after that. Eri then exited the hole with a hammer and struck the cat's tail, causing it to jolt in pain. The cat jumped howling in agony as Deku grabbed the little one and ran away with the cat giving chase. The three ran till Deku passed the milk bowl and put his hand in a stop sign. Everyone stopped as Eri drank from the milk and spat it at Kaken, who was blinded, giving the two mice enough time to run away from him into the cabinet inside the kitchen. The cat followed them and began to try and pry open the cabinet to get them. Inside the cabinet, the green-haired mouse made a plan when opened a can of shoe polish. On the outside, the cat brought a pan and readied himself to attack as a small black figure appeared, greeting him. "How are you doing today, Mr. Kaken?" Everyone was confused as Ochako asked, "Deku, why do you sound like someone from New Orleans?" The boy simply shrugged, not understanding what he was doing. Izuku said, "Well, it seems that the plan is working, so points for creativity, I think. Now let's see what also I'm going to do, because I'm sure that it's going to be good." The others nodded their heads as Izuku was holding back his laughter from this small scene. The black figure then said, "Hurry, child. We need to go." Damn, children these days. A small figure followed the older one, but the cat saw through the trick and followed them, only to be met with a pan to the face, throwing it back. Deku ran toward it and grabbed its tongue. He then forced the cat to bite its own tongue, which made it cry out in pain. The mouse ran away as the cat gave chase. Eri came and Deku passed by her, giving her a frying pan with the intent of attacking the cat. Izuku then said, "I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling about this, and I'm sure that this is going to somehow backfire right back at me." The girls comforted him. Bakugo simply said, "Well, Deku, you should already know by now that you win some, you lose some. I thought life taught you this." Bakugo was then pelted with different objects due to his boldness, acting like he wasn't the one who made Izuku's life a living hell. The chase began, but when Deku passed by Eri, she smacked him with the pan, flattening him to the ground. But he jumped back and ran. This happened a couple of times before Deku stopped her with a stern face as the cat stood behind him. Deku then pointed at Kaken, and Eri swung the pan right into his face, leaving an imprint of the pan on his face as the two mice made their escape. The two then went under the carpet as Kaken grabbed a glass bottle and made it to the other end of the carpet. Mina frowned as she said, "Oh no, he's going to grab Eri. I hope that he doesn't hurt her." Discord then said, Then you won't like what's going to happen next. Kaken then grabbed Deku and put him in the bottle. Eri was left alone and ran away. The cat then put the bottle down and sealed it with a couple of books, giving Eri chase. Once the little mouse exited the carpet, she brought a pie and put it in the cat's face, which he collided with. The mouse then ran away from the cat for a while before stopping in front of the milk. Kendo then said, "Wow, they weren't kidding that she was always hungry." The cat then grabbed her in his fists, but when he opened it, he saw nothing. He then felt a mass moving across his body till it reached his tail. The cat grabbed it and aimed a gun at his tail. He then shot it, but his tail was injured, making him cry out in pain. He then chased Eri with a fly swatter in his hand and managed to corner her. He lifted the swatter and prepared to strike the little mouse, who attempted to protect herself. Everyone gave Bakugo a dirty look as the boy said, "Oh, so I'm the one giving spanked? It's all fine and dandy. Someone else gets spanked and suddenly I'm worse than a FO." Ochako then grabbed his shoulder and began to squeeze it hard, for every single moment of pain. "That version of you inflict on Eri, I'll tighten my grip and make sure you suffer." Bakugo looked at her astonished as he said, "Hey, you can't hold me accountable for what other shitty versions of myself do. That isn't fair and isn't heroic at all." The girls deadpanned at him. "Consider this payment for all the pain you put Zuko through." The cat then hit Eri. Deku, who was still trapped, saw this and went mad with rage. He managed to break the glass and go to check on the little mouse. He saw that she was in extreme pain. He looked at Kaken with an angry look as the cat took a step back, hiding the swatter, but all this was too late. Deku took a deep breath and let out a mighty roar, causing the cat to go yellow from fear. The girls began to cheer Izuku. "Go and beat that child abuser, Deku. Kick his ass." The cat tried to run away, but the mouse caught him and gave him a beating of a lifetime. In the end, Deku was standing behind the cat with a mallet as it meekly fed Eri milk, fearful of what would happen to it should he cross the mouse once more. Sato then said, "Wow, who knew that Midoriya could go savage? Could he even be angry? It seems a little bit impossible. I mean, he's the nicest guy ever." Discord shook his head. "Just because he's happy doesn't mean he isn't angry. We're just that good at hiding our emotions." Ochako then asked, "So that means Deku isn't the happy guy he pretends to be? Why doesn't he tell anyone? We're his friends." Members of the self-proclaimed Deku squad nodded their heads, but Discord shook his head, saying, "Because most versions of ourselves already accepted that we need to keep other people happy and our happiness comes second. In addition, we mostly use that anger as a motivator to become better heroes." Discord ignored the shocked looks. "Let's move on. We have a small scene before we end this funny intermission because I sense the next one is going to be a heavy one." The scene shifted inside a pool store as Kaken was seen playing pool and managed to land a hit, and a ball entered a hole which led it to cause many noises, making up a mouse. The ball then hit the mouse, causing it to grumble as it went to confront the source. The mouse exited a hole in the pool table. It looked around for a moment and saw nobody. Once it turned back, the cat was waiting for it, causing it to run away from it. The cat then used the pool stick to hit the white ball and sent it after Deku. The mouse tried to jump into one of the holes, but the white ball stopped it, sending the mouse back to the cat. The mouse reached the cat, who blew wind in its face, sending it tumbling down to the middle of the table. The cat then sent a row of balls which trampled the mouse while he laughed at it. The balls rebounded and returned toward the mouse, which tried to run away from it, but it was caught and the cat used it as the new head of his pool. Izuku chuckled a little. "Well, it seems that I'm the one who's going to be in pain this time around." Bakugo laughed a little, enjoying the chuckles he is hearing. "The tables turned right now. This is fun." He was silenced by a slip to the head by his mother. The cat then used it to hit an 8 ball. The mouse was dizzy as the ball came back and branded it with the number 8 on its rear after the cat forced it to do tricks. The mouse was enraged and walked up to the blonde cat. It grabbed its pool stick, bending it back and sending it into his face, which made him jolt in pain. The mouse ran away as the cat threw an 8 ball toward him, but the mouse ducked down, causing the ball to hit the edge of the table and return to the cat, deforming its face and caving it in. Zero rolled on his back. "So much for Midoriya suffering now. It seems that your turn and suffering returned to you, Bakugo. Try not to lose your head because it seems you're about to fall over." Izuku then tried to calm the boy down. "Calm down, Kaken. I mean that it's not as bad as it looks. You have to admit that this is a little bit funny." Bakugo glared at him but said nothing because he only wanted to move on from this disgusting world or universe or whatever they wanted to call it. The cat then grabbed 2 balls and sent them toward the mouse, but he countered by using a pool stick to return them to the sender. In the end, the cat had new eyes. He then shook his head and threw a new ball that the mouse countered once more, but the cat used a baseball glove to catch it. The ball made a hole through its hand. The cat threw another, but the mouse hit it so hard it went flying as the cat attempted to catch it. Bakugo sighed. "Something extremely stupid is going to happen to me." Discord nodded his head, causing the boy to sigh and watch the scene as he grumbled under his breath. Kendo leaned toward Izuku. "Do you think that he'll blow up when this is over? It seems that he's about to have an aneurysm from the amount of anger he's experiencing right now." The boy rubbed his head. "I don't know, but we can't be sure. I mean, he gets angry for the most ridiculous of things, so I won't put it past him to have one right now. Sayu added, well, either way, we're going to have a funny scene on both sides of the show. The four began to laugh as Eri chuckled a little at their words. The cat began to quickly follow the ball. It moved between tables and tried its hardest to catch it. It managed to do that, but the force threw the cat back till it landed inside a soda vending machine, which began to malfunction due to the collision. The machine then began to throw out soda cans in simple spits, till it began to choke on something and threw out Kaken with a metal cap on his head positioned like a soda can. Kamakiri laughed like a madman. Man, this is so hilarious. This is gold material. I can't imagine something like this happening to anyone and him being able to show his face to people another time. Shota punched him, making him grumble. Everyone continued to laugh as the scene suddenly turned dark with Toru whining, hey, what's happening? We wanted to see more of Bakugo getting his ass handed to him royally. Bakugo then shouted from the side, shut it, invisible bitch. I'm going to kill you all today. Discord laughed a little. This was priceless, but we need to move on to the other worlds, so that's enough of this one. The 13th universe. Nina pouted and crossed her arms. Come on, dude, just let us finish this episode. We were about to get into the good stuff and see the cat having its ass handed to it with the free benefit of having Bakugo foaming at the mouth while having a heart attack simultaneously. The blonde bomber was being held back by Kirishima, who desperately tried to prevent murder. Discord shook his head, because I said so. Fun time is over. Now, we go back to the real juicy stuff. Momo then asked, fun time? I thought this entire thing is supposed to be fun time, but at the expense of Zuzu. The green-haired boy slumped forward in depression while his counterpart laughed uproariously. This was not going as planned. The boy was supposed right now to be training to become a hero, not being transformed into a universal laughing stock by himself, no less. Discord wiped a tear from his eye. Well, to be clear, I like every couple of worlds to make a sort of recess, so to speak, so you can all rest a bit and decompress, because some shit that you're going to see is really disturbing and unsettling more than what you saw, especially if it's a villain Izuku, because most of them are brutal and doesn't know what the word mercy means so much. They make AFO look like a saint. Everyone was taken aback by this statement because Izuku seemed so nice. It was hard to imagine him as a bloodthirsty villain. Nezu asked, so in short, what you are saying is that the world we saw was like a small commercial before we return to the actual footage, and we might see it again when you deem it. Discord nodded his head as Nezu smiled evilly. I can't wait to see more of that world. It just shows how strong mice and rats are. He then began to laugh like a crazy person. Discord looked at everyone and asked, any more questions before I move on to embarrass Minimi some more? Shoto raised his hand and Discord wondered what he had to say. The boy coughed. Don't you want to know our opinion regarding this world? I mean, you did the same thing for the 11 other worlds. Discord grabbed the boy's cheeks and squelched and looked at him with a deadpan look. A look that said he should already know the answer. Shoto, listen to me carefully. The boy nodded his head. This world is nothing but shits and giggles. What kind of other opinion will I hear other than it's funny and hilarious? I'd be wasting time hearing opinions out. He then pushed the boy's face away, teleported Izuku to the front, and said with an all-might laugh, you're in luck, Izuku. You got to spin the wheel this time. Good luck. Izuku gulped as he began to spin the wheel, and it began to change scenes till finally landed on one title that caused some boys to laugh and Izuku to glow red from embarrassment, Catwoman. Izuku then muttered under his breath as he sat beside Tsuyu and Ibara with Itsuka sitting in his lap and napping in Ibara's vines. This couldn't get any worse than that, can it? The look on his counterpart's face made him realize that it can become worse than this. He really hated this place. Izuku frowned. I have a feeling telling me that I will be embarrassed beyond belief in this world. Itsuka rubbed his cheek. If it makes feel any better, Izu, the others and I will be beside you the entire time and make you feel better. She pecked him on the nose as he looked away with a small blush. Before the boy can say anything, if it helps you feels any better, you won't be the only person getting embarrassed here. The scene began to change and flicker till it landed on the top of Japan's National Museum. Well, this is going to be fun. Izuku gulped, hoping it isn't what he thought it is. The weather was a little bit windy, but someone managed to land gracefully on the top of the museum. The figure was dressed in a skin-tight black suit which showed off its beautiful figure. The figure had a mask on its face with cat ears on the top. The figure also had a belt hanging from its backside like a tail and another one wrapped around its waist with many compartments on it. This was a new up and rising villain known as Catwoman. While villain would be too much of a generous word for her given that she only steals stuff, people mainly compare her to gentle criminal who was technically a villain, but never did anything than steal or prank the occasional hero. This though didn't stop heroes from tailing and failing at catching her. Even the number one hero Endeavor failed and almost spent the night out of his house when the feline villainess gave him a peck on his nose, making his wife boil in anger. The flame hero looked at Izuku. I'll boil that version of you alive when I manage to catch her. He was cut off by Izuku. Well, you don't know it's me. I mean, this could be a world where I rehabilitate a criminal like I usually do. The flame hero didn't believe him, but his wife seemed to have the time of her life as she was laughing so hard, she fell over. Ray retorted, "Please, Angie, this is supposed to be fun. Lighten up." The man looked at her with a frown. "I mean, you are an old man. You should be happy a girl even looked at you, let alone kissed you on the cheek." The room was filled with silence at the savage burn Shoto's mom just made. Tanjiro winced. Oh, that must have hurt his pride. He began to remember the times he told Zenitsu that he should be happy that he even agreed to let him come near Nezuko. Let marry her. I think I should apologize to Zenitsu when I go back. Kano patted him on the head. The girl then looked through the glass on the top of the museum and smiled. Cameras are done with EMP. The guards were sent phony schedules to make sure that they don't show up. She then used her fingernails to make a huge opening in the glass for her to fit in. The woman then tied a rope around her waist and climbed down into the museum. She pulled out a small powder and puffed it, revealing lasers for motion sensors. The woman giggles, beginning to gracefully dodge the lasers to make it to her goal, which was a necklace that was said to have been made from the Heian period. When she saw it in the news, she knew she has to have it. Mirio hummed a little. I suspect that she has some sort of quirk that tends her to steal shiny stuff. Mr. Compress then added, perhaps that version of the boy has a quirk similar to mine. Most of my stealing gags were made because I couldn't control myself and I would steal them without feeling. Mirio then said, but still with her skills, she could be a hero. Maybe that version of myself can save her and help her become a hero. He was cut off by a snort from Discord. Is there something wrong with what I said? The blonde boy wasn't bothered, but something felt not right here. Discord nodded his head and answered him. This version of you had OFA with the side effects. You tell what's wrong. The boy's face fell as he understood the implications, while Night Eye, who was sitting nearby, cringed at the results of Mirio taking the quirk. Izuku then protested. Why do you insist that I'm her? Baby, it's Momo. I mean, they have the same body structure. This made everyone look at him as Tanjiro smirked and decided to tease him. Tanjiro said, and how do you know that Midoriya-san? Were you looking at her all the time? Izuku looked at the boy and yelled. Betrayal. This caused Discord to have memories of his first sports festival, and a thought echoed through his head. Maybe I should wake Master up. He did say to do that if I did something worthwhile. He shrugged. Perhaps in the next few worlds, I'll wake him. Kano smiled and decided to take his lead. Midoriya-san, you picking quite several ladies. You should be ready to take all of your children equally. The boy fainted, much to everyone's amusement. Momo meanwhile blushed, covering her face. Zuzu has been checking me out. The woman kept dodging gracefully till she reached the vault and using some advanced gizmo managed to crack it open and steal the necklace before returning to the roof, where she jumped quickly to the side. Oh, if it isn't the handsome Dynamite. The man in question looked at her like a scorned lover who has been cheated on. Are you sad because I tangled with Ingenium last week? She winked at him. I promise from now on, I'll be a good girl and fight you alone. She dashed to him. The hero threw an explosion, but the woman jumped above, kicking him in the face and causing him to fall on his rear. You bitch. He then jumped up and attempted to attack her again, but she took a whip and wrapped it around a pipe as Bakugo approached her. Mina then said, just watch and learn, ladies, about how you tame a Bakugo. She was bouncing in her place. This version of Izu babe is really a badass woman. I bet he's going to give him a beatdown of a lifetime. I can't wait to see what happens next. Bakugo screamed. There's no way a woman in a leather tight suit is going to beat me. I'm going to kick her ass. Just you watch and see. No one believed him. Everyone wanted to see how the beatdown went. And how many tricks can this version of Izuku pull up his sleeve? Izuku then said, I find it hard to believe that Bakugo will be. He was stopped by Tsuyu, who cupped his cheeks. Izuku, don't think less of yourself. You're plenty strong on your own. You can defeat him. The boy nodded his head as the girl shoot out her tongue into his mouth and pulled him over for a kiss. The boy was a blushing mess when this moment finished. The woman then pulled herself up as Bakugo slammed into an AC system. My, are you hurt, dear? Do you want me to kiss your boo-boos away? The man looked at her murderously. He then lifted his hands and put his weapons in her face, but she merely sighed as she crossed the distance, making her claws pop out and cut the weapons into pieces, surprising the hero. She then threw something at him. It was a foam pellet that exploded upon contact with the man, trapping him inside. He couldn't produce explosions anymore, which meant that he was trapped. The woman walked up to him and slapped his cheek. What do I ever do with you? She then pulled out a small piece of paper that had the names Catwoman and Dynamite on it. She crossed something on her side of the page. A new victory for me. This makes us at 100 wins for me and 0 for you. She began to giggle. The trapped hero then yelled, I'll kill you, bitch. You hear me? He then began to struggle. When I get out of this shitty trap, I swear I'm going to kill. Consequences be damned. The lady continued to laugh as she approached the trapped man. The woman traced a hand on his face and said, all that effort though deserves a reward. Izuku then said, please don't let it be what I think it is. Please don't let it be what I think it is. Shoto then asked, what are talking about Midoriya? And why do you seem nervous? Is it because I'm about to prove that you're All Might's secret love child? Izuku looked at his friend with an exasperated look. They had this discussion around 1,000,000 times. Why was he so insistent that he was All Might's love child? If anything, Aoyama would fit the profile. Izuku shook his head. No, but I feel that this version of myself will threaten my life right now. The lady then grabbed his face and pulled him into a kiss. It lasted a few moments before she let go. The hero looked at her in shock. He then yelled, "You filthy skank. This was my first kiss. I was saving it for someone special, not gutter trash like you." The cat lady giggled. Well, if helps feel any better. This was my first kiss too. She then jumped off the side of the building. Goodbye until we see each other again, my hero. It was only moments later that Aizawa arrived on the scene and freed his student. "C managed to outsmart you again." The boy didn't say anything but only glared at the ground. "Look, I can always ask someone else to help you. This villain isn't like anything we dealt with." Izuku ducked as Bakugo charged him, yelling, "Deku, you bitch. I want to kill you on behalf of that version of yourself. How dare that version of myself steal my first kiss? I'm sending you to hell personally. I won't allow this one to slide." He jumped toward Izuku as a portal opened in front of his face and another behind him. He then began to go through a cycle of entering one portal and exiting the other only to enter the first one again and so on. Everyone else was laughing at the boy for both reasons. It was funny. Shoto then said, "You're right, Mom. This is funny. At least when I'm not the one that has to endure it." Bakugo cut him off. "No, I said that I'll bring her in and that means I'll bring her in." He then blasted away from there as the nighttime hero shook his head. Well, at least it ended better than when Shoto tried to arrest her. The boy had one blind eye now after she scratched his right eye. In an apartment, Catwoman slipped inside. She walked to her room before depositing her latest heist. It was successful. And tonight she met her dear Dynamite. She then removed her mask and goggles, revealing long flowing black hair with green highlights and emerald green eyes. The girl known as Izuku Midoriya smiled. "This necklace now is with her rightful owner, which is me." The girl put it on a huge stash of loot she had before going to the bathroom to have a shower. Izuku looked at the ground in embarrassment. His face was glowing red. The boys, all of them, were laughing at him, but Kendo came to the rescue. "What are you clowns laughing at?" Manga made the unwise choice of answering her, "Well, he's a girl." The girl crossed her arms under her chest. "Really now? And what's so funny about that? What's so funny about being a girl? Tell me, Manga." The boy looked at her and gulped as danger signs appeared from his thought bubble. He then felt every girl stare at him, wanting him to talk. He then replied, "I'm dumb, but not that dumb. I rest my case." She then slapped Monoma on the back. "But he's that dumb. Take it away, Monoma." The boy looked at him, betrayed. He saw every girl wanting him to talk so they can beat him. Girls are awesome. I have no idea why one wouldn't like to be one. I mean, you do carry babies for months and this proves your strength. The girls nodded their heads with approval as the boy slumped down, avoiding his death. The next day came and Izumi went to her work. She sat in her office and began to work on her quirk analysis of Catwoman. She internally chuckled at this. She was throwing her colleagues in loops and no one would be able to discover it. After all, who would suspect the quirkless innocent girl to be a villain? They wouldn't be able to believe that some quirkless girl with some training, tinkering skills, and a class of acrobatics managed to make fun of heroes even endeavor. She took a special pleasure when she took out Frost's right eye. The idiot was willing to endanger an entire orphanage to catch a flame villain with his ice, even though the villain's fire was much stronger than his ice. She managed to defeat the villain and the hero. In simple words, she hated him. There was nothing else to be added. Shoto's eyes were wide, hearing what he would have done should he continued not using his flames. His mother patted him on the back. "Don't worry about that, sweetie. You aren't him." A loud voice rang across the room. "Deku, where are those notes on that cat bitch?" The girl then pretended to shiver in fear. The girl then pretended to walk with shaky steps to him. The girl carefully lifted the notes before the hero snatched the notes. "For the love of God, Izumi, grow up." He then crossed his arms. "We aren't kids anymore. I'm not going to hit you." The girl rubbed her shoulders. "I know, but I can't help it." The girl looked at him with a smile. "I don't know what to do in front of you. You're so awesome. I hope that my notes can help you." The hero scoffed. "I doubt it. It didn't help me the 100 last time." The girl cut him off. "You aren't giving me enough details or videos or anything to work with." The man then yelled, "You're the quirk genius. Figure it out." The girl replied, "This isn't some kind of challenge. I need data." Aizawa stood up. "I can smell the failure." He looked at Bakugo, who cooled down. "How could she work at your own agency and no one knows about it? This is one of the most ridiculous things that I ever saw." He sat down and began to draw circles in the ground. Bakugo retorted, "How should I know?" He then pointed at Izuku. "Have you seen him before he got All Might's quirk? He was a walking string bean." And he then looked at Izuku. "I don't care how, but I'm going to destroy you when this is over." He began to growl like a caged animal. Discord patted the blonde on the head. "Believe that we were 10 times as dangerous as you were. The blonde boy looked at him. We just didn't act on our impulses to ruin. He was silenced when a foot met his mouth and Izuku growled, "Not another word. This stays between us and only us." Everyone was intrigued by this. Only a few understood what discord meant. AFO was now interested in getting his hands on those notebooks to destroy society. Izumi pouted and looked away as Bakugo took the papers from her. "Give those and they better work this time around or you're fired." He heard a scoff come from the girl. "You wouldn't dare do that." The man felt his eyebrow twitch. "I'm your best quirk analyst." The girl put her hand on her hip and flicked him on the nose. "You can't survive a day without me." The man was about to walk away, but Izumi grabbed his hand. "Hey, Kaken. I was thinking that maybe today we can go have lunch too." The man freed his hand from her. "Not today, Izumi. And forget about it. I will never go out with you." The girl's face fell as he walked away. She then quietly said, "Oh, okay." She then walked away wiping a stray tear. "I guess the only relationship we'll have is your Batman to my Catwoman." The girls looked heartbroken at the girl version of Midoriya. They then directed their attention to Bakugo. The boy was then pelleted with rotten tomatoes. Mina then yelled, "How dare you break her heart like that?" She took another tomato and chucked it at him, causing the boy to duck it under the boy. It takes a lot of effort to tell a boy we love our feelings. The boy threw a blob of acid at the boy who ducked. The boy replied, "Hey, you can't just force someone to accept your feelings. It will only hurt you more in the long run." The girls seemed to accept this. Toru then said, "You're lucky." She then looked at all the boys. "You're all lucky." The boys all gulped a little. In his office, Katsuki looks at a picture of his childhood with Izumi hugging him. The boy remembered their promises to become a hero couple, get married, and form a family. But all this went to flames. When his quirk came, he pushed her away, seeing her weaker than him. Over time, he didn't see her as his equal. He began to see himself as Superman and Izumi as Lois Lane. He kept pushing her away to protect her from the world of heroes. He didn't have the courage of Superman to have her involved in his world. Bakugo then says, "I'm sorry, Izumi, but I'm not good enough." He looked and began to scroll through his phone. "Maybe, someday, you'll find someone else that can fill that void I left." The girls then began to swoon at him, with Mina saying, "That's so romantic, Bakugo." The boy's sweat dropped with the rest of the men. "Man, they have some serious swing moods." Izuku then said, "Well, I always say that Kaken is a big softy under all that anger of his." He then looked at Mitsuki. "He's just all anti. You just need to pile the layers of anger off." Bakugo looked at him and growled, "Why the hell are calling soft? Deku." The boy blasted a small explosion. "I'm going to smoke your ass." The boy was then smacked by his mother. The woman then said, "Katsuki, you once cried because of the movie Bambi for 6 hours straight, and that was 6 weeks ago when you came to visit me." The boy looked at her with a betrayed look. "Oh, don't look at me like that. We both know that true as it gets. You have a soft heart, but that's why you're my little baby boy." She then hugged him, making the boy grumble. Back with Izumi, she walked to her seat. She sat down with a frown evident on her face. Meanie. She hated that Katsuki always shot down her attempts to go on a date with her. She hoped that after he became a hero, he got rid of that inferiority complex wrapped tight inside a superiority complex, and that he began to at least see her as a romantic partner. The girls frowned a little as Mina said, "I really hope that this version of Izubabe finds happiness." She rubbed her hands together. "It is really hard to see a girl having her heart break." Izuku whistled. "Well, at least he's doing it for a good reason, and he's certainly better than other people I remember from old school." "So you pinched him. Did they use to put fake lover letters in your locker?" The boy laughed a little, but Ibara pinched his other cheek. "Yeah, they used to do that. There were many buckets of water in my past." The girl had a hard life already from the get-go. Being quirkless gave her a death sentence. Her childhood was never endless torture, with Katsuki helping her, because his mother put a foot down when one day she saw him bullying her. After that came puberty. Boys began to flock around her, thinking that she was going to go out with them because they had strong quirks. After that, the war. Her dear mother died when that son of a bitch Shoto Todoroki fought an ice villain and kept giving him ammo. Her mom was frozen solid. And when he was confronted, his only reply was, "I had everything under control, and I'll train better to gain control over my ice." 3 weeks later, she had the pleasure of blowing his brother's brains out. Talia cringed. "Why was I the one killed?" "He's the one that killed her mother." The boy looked at Izuku. "Why come you killed me and not him?" "It isn't fair." Izuku replied, "Perhaps I wanted him to suffer." The burnt man raised an eyebrow. "I mean, that version of myself saw my mother die because of Shoto, and clearly he wanted to save you, so I might have taken you out to force him to feel the same pain I felt." Talia hummed a little. "Your answer is accepted." He then lowered his hand. "I won't make you into Beacon." The green-haired boy had all his hair stand on its end. Shoto, on the other hand, was just staring with a question in his mind. "Would I truly become like this? Someone who lets other people die just to spite my father?" He shook his head, but then felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked and saw his father. "That's not you, Shoto. You're going to be an amazing hero one day." He then hugged the confused boy who hugged him back. Ray could only smile at this. I wish our family was like this from the beginning. She then looked at the screen and wondered, I wonder if there's a world where his obsession with All Might didn't ruin our family, and we lived a happy life together. The girl, after all those tragedies, felt something break inside of her. One night when she was about to get assaulted, she decided that she didn't want to be Lois Lane anymore. She wasn't a damsel in distress that Superman needed to save her. That night, a man left the world and a new person was born. That night, Izuku Midoriya came out of the alleyway covered in blood with a razor in her hand. She decided that if the world won't give her what she wanted, she'll take it for herself. She deserves happiness. Everyone else can go screw themselves. She had a few goals that she needed to obtain, but first, she trained herself. Oh, my dear good. All the girls shouted. They hated the idea. They shook their heads getting rid of it. Izuku frowned. He really hated scumbags who targeted defenseless people. Needless to say, people didn't like the implications of this. It was truly hard to hear that. It wasn't hard to tell that Izumi had a mental breakdown somewhere along the point. It seems that she had suffering that lasted her for a lifetime. It was sad that heroes couldn't reach her in time. Nezu shook his head. She would have made an amazing hero. Her ability to trick, sneak, and overall go from one place to the other unnoticed would have made her another eraser. All Might then said, look at the bright side. At least her crimes are mostly focused on stealing stuff. He laughed a little. At least, she isn't the second coming of FO. Izumi looked to her side and saw her co-workers, or more appropriately her underlings, whispering among each other about her rejection for what could be 100 times. She growled under her breath, what are you morons whispering about? She then eyed them all. If you have something to say it to my face. Not when my back is turned to you. One of the more confident ones walked to her. Yeah, we were talking about how you still try. He was cut off by a punch to the jaw, sending him flying and most probably unconscious. She looked at the rest of the stunned crowd. Any more of you dipshits want to make more witty remarks? They all slowly shook their head. Great, get back to your fucking job before I steam you. All of them then scurried away like roaches as the girl sat down in her seat and began to do her work on Catwoman to help Kaken to apprehend her and bring her to justice. She then heard the door of the quirk analysis department open. She looked up and saw one of the unspeakable four in her walk straight up to her. Achako then said, why am I one of the unspeakable four? Why am I a bad person in this to Deku? Discord looked at her, and she knew that he had something to say, and by all means it wasn't something pretty. He had a very conflicted look on his face that said I'm not sure if I should tell her or not, which made her very worried. Discord then spoke. You see, not every version of yourself is a good version. I mean, one of them dated Izuku only to attract Bakugo's attention when she dumps Izuku so he can take her as his woman. There are a lot of shitty versions of you out there. The girl had a hollow look in her eyes. I want to kill that bitch and hang her skin as pelt on my front door. She also had tears running from her eyes. She then felt someone hug her. She looked and saw Izuku and Eri hugging her. The boy then said, that version of you isn't you, so don't blame yourself. The girl beamed in happiness, but her romantic moment was taken away from her by Ibara, who stuck out her tongue when nobody was looking as she took Izuku away from her. The gravity girl felt a vein throb on her forehead. Holy Mary, once like that, then two can play this game. Izuku didn't know why, but he felt he was stuck in some sort of crossfire as the three girls he was with hugged him tighter than before. Achako walked up to her and said, hey, Izumi, who's the office work here? Although she was smiling, she can tell Achako was laughing at her. How she wished she can rip that smile before feeding it to cats in the alleyways. The reason for the war between them is Bakugo. The bitch is trying to steal her future husband in broad daylight. Although they were close friends at the beginning of UA, and Izumi helped win the sports festival in her first year, everything went to hell when Achako told her that she was going to date Bakugo after she told the gravity girl how much she loved him. She felt betrayed because, after that point, Achako began subtly mocking her for her quirklessness and spreading unflattering rumors about her. Note to self, destroy Achako's family business and steal all the money they have to make them piss poor. Achako then jumped. That bitch. Everyone assumed she was talking about Izuku's counterpart, but she carried on. How dare she put Izumi through so much torture, and for what? Bakugo. She looked at the boy. I've seen villains with better personalities than him. The boy jumped up offended. Hey, I'm not that bad, you know. Everyone ignored him, causing him to deflate and draw circles in the ground. This was his lowest moment ever. But on the bright side, he saw a world where two girls were fighting over him. Izuku chuckled a lit. He never expected in a million years a world where he and Achako would be enemies. She was his first friend and best friend for that after all. The multiverse is weird. The greenette forced a smile on her face. As good as your family's business. Silent exclaims of shock could be heard from the entire office, and Izumi took a small pleasure in the vein on Achako's head. Who knew for such a cutesy face, she was a bitch through and through. Uraraka kept her smile, though it was strained by the many veins popping on her forehead. At least it's much better than your love life, that's for sure. The silent exclaims of shock became loud before Izumi looked at them and silenced them with a glare. Ochako huffed, "Man, that version of myself is a true bitch. I would never be like that under any circumstances." The girl remembered what Discord told her. "At least, I hope so." Discord replied laughing, "Never say never." Bakugo then yelled from his office, "What the fuck are you doing, round face?" The brunette looked at the man. "We have an important meeting to attend to. Stop wasting time. You can talk with Izumi when we're finished." The brown-haired woman smirked, walking to the man. If looks can kill, Ochako should have become a crime scene right now from Izumi's glare. The girl slumped into her seat once again. At times like these, she wished that Ida was still around. He was her best friend. She met him after she accidentally tripped on the stairs on her way to class 1 degrees Celsius when he caught her. From there, he introduced her to the other members of 1A. At some point, she even imagined starting a relationship with him given how earnest he seemed. She knew he needed someone to help him loosen up. He seemed like a great person, but he took things way too seriously. But Stain happened and all of that died in its tracks. Ada was a blushing mess right now. Knowing that a female version of your friend at some point entertained the idea of having a relationship with you was embarrassing enough. Having your own brother teasing you about it was even more embarrassing. Shoto found it a little bit amusing, but then said, "Wait a minute." Everyone looked at him. "Does that mean Ida dies when he went after Stain?" A heavy silence occurred as Discord replied, "Yes. He died. Without Izuku, there was no way anyone could have found Ida and stopped Stain from killing him." Discord clapped his hands. "Anyway, back to the world. We might see Stain and his crazy delusions soon enough." Ida merely nodded his head slowly. At night, Izumi stood on a rooftop watching her next target, the Todoroki household. She heard that the flame hero's wife had a particular set of beautiful earrings, so she decided to relieve her of them. It was for the greater good. She deserved happiness. She jumped down and began her prowl for the beautiful earrings. Endeavor looked at Izuku, who was whistling innocently. The man then said, "I guess that version of me is about to roast a particularly troublesome cat." Izuku gulped a little. "I really hope not." Did he disagree with that version's actions? Sure, 100%. Did they mean that she had to die a horrible death? No, far from it. What she really needs is serious help. Discord clapped his hands. "All right, enough of this. Let's move on somewhere else." The 14th universe. Discord looked at them, and Nejire perked up. "This world is so cool. I mean, seeing Izuku as a girl is really fun and awesome." The girl bounced around in the air happily. "Plus, he looked extraordinary and very beautiful as a girl. I mean, did you see his hair? It was like 100% awesome and well-groomed." The girl then stopped before throwing a barrage of questions that caused Discord to rub his forehead. "I need to know her secret for keeping her hair so pretty. Why did she choose a cat theme? What does she do with the stuff she steals from people? Is she like Robin Hood? Does she manage to steal from Endeavor's house? How is she so good when it comes to sneaking around? How?" Discord then put his hand in her mouth and said, "Enough, my brain hurts. I'm 3 billion years old. I can't keep up with your questioning. Didn't they tell you to respect your elders at school?" Nejire pouted a little. "You're not as funny as my Zuzu is." Izuku, once he heard the phrase my Zuzu, had steam coming out of his ears, and he fell to the ground twitching from shock. Discord and Nezu looked at her since she wasn't part of the harem that they expected. But this only caused them to laugh at the chaos that will ensue down the line. The other girls who were in love with Izuku looked at Nejire as the new contender, not knowing that there were about 5 more girls that loved Izuku and wanted to be his girlfriend. Discord looked at Nezu. "What a wonderful day for chaos, Nezu-sensei. Don't you agree?" He then summoned a glass of martini for him and Nezu, which the rodent gladly accepted. Nezu took a sip from his drink and said, "A wonderful day indeed. I can't wait to see the possibilities." He looked at Discord and said, "I hope I taught you my world domination plans." Discord nodded his head, making Aizawa feel pity for that version of himself for dealing with Chaos Nezu. This seemed like a nightmare from a horror movie. He doesn't deserve this. Nejire then yelled, "Hey, what about my questions? I'm waiting for an answer." Discord shrugged his shoulders. "All right, the secret for her silky hair is a brand of shampoo that sadly doesn't exist in your world." This made Nejire slump down in sadness. As to why she chose a cat theme, she wanted to present herself as something beautiful but dangerous. Someone who, if you ever messed with, you'll definitely be getting scratches. No, she isn't Robin Hood. She steals for herself as a coping mechanism, for she sees those as rightfully hers since the world took so much from her. It's only fair that she takes some of it back. Her skills come from countless hours of training, and finally, everyone looked at him. Endeavor lost quite an expensive necklace that night along with some rings and earrings. Momo then said, "Well, it makes sense that she's stealing expensive stuff." The girl then sat down in a thinking position. If what he said is correct, Izumi has lingering trauma from her assault and her mother's death that she was never able to move on from. Add to that, her love for Bakugo, who ignores her because he thinks he isn't worthy of her. Plus, there are the 4 who make her life hard. This simple statement caused many to wonder who are the rest of the 4 pains. Shoto then asked, who are the rest of the people who make Izumi's life a living hell? Discord looked at him, you are one of them. The boy was shocked to the core that he was a major pain in the life of an alternate version of Izuku. You are always asking her for marriage. Everyone tilted their heads in confusion as Kano asked, and what's so bad about that? Discord shook his head. You see, the one asking Izumi for marriage is the old Shoto, not the one you're seeing. The girl blinked. Before meeting Izuku, he was a very cold person who would let people die just to prove a point. Think about it as yourself before and after meeting Tanjiro. The girl nodded her head, understanding that the dual-haired boy was at some point like her or had a similar situation to her. Shoto then asked, so what I understand is that I never used my fire, and I'm asking her to marry me because. The boy asked, wondering why would that version of himself go to all these lengths for one girl. He admits Izumi looks nice, but she's clearly not interested. Discord answered him, to spite your father. You see, just like your father, the endeavor of that world changed for the best and made amends with every member of his family except for Talia. You know why? And you because you refuse to believe he can change. So, when you heard that Izumi was quirkless, that version of yourself wanted to marry her to make his father angry that his son married someone weak. Shoto facepalmed at the sheer stupidity of that version of himself. So one day, he walked up to her and told her to marry him to give him a quirkless child so he can spite his dad. For all his effort, he only got a black eye and a busted lip. Shoto shook his head in disappointment, seeing how that version of himself became a perfect image of his father. Momo then asked, and the other 2 are? Discord only smiled, meaning he won't say a word. The girl had a sweat drop on her head and nodded, knowing this won't go anywhere. He then looked at Izuku. All right, Minimi, the man of the house, the person who currently wants nothing more than to strangle himself with his own boxers. Tell me what you think of this world and be honest. We have people watching us from across the veil of reality. He then looked at the readers and winked. Izuku raised an eyebrow regarding the last statement, but at this point, it was inevitable for that version of himself to break the 4th wall. It was a little weird and shows a side of me I'd rather not see ever again. It just shows how anyone can snap in a single night. All it takes is one bad day. Discord then spun the wheel of internal embarrassment again, and after some time it landed on a world that simply said, SCP, save, crash, protect. All of them were confused regarding the title. Discord explained a bit. I'll explain the title, but I think I'll bring someone from their world to this dimension to explain their world better. But the title originally meant secure, contain, protect, but something happened that caused the first 2 words to change to save, crash. The word save refers to saving people. The word crash refers to crashing their enemies, and the word protect have the same meaning, which is protecting humanity. He then clapped his hands. Now, I'll bring the Izuku from that world, but be warned, he loathes all of you, especially you. He said, pointing at Hawks, confusing the hero. Let's just say that one of the Commission's missions did him a great misdeed. I'm not joking if I say that he will attempt to kill you the moment he sees you. The hero gulped as Discord added one more thing. And believe me when I say he makes AFO's and Muzin's kill count combined together look like rookie numbers, since he has long passed 1 billion kills. And finally, his powers are close to cosmic levels, making AFO look like a baby learning how to walk. The heroes shiver in fear. The demon slayers were now worried about a being so strong he makes Muzin's counterpart in the hero world seem weak. Here goes nothing. Discord snapped his fingers. Suddenly 2 more people arrived. One of them was an older version of Izuku, but he looked like he came from another planet. He had the harshest look on his face with no hint of the smile that his friends were used to. He wore an open vest exposing his muscles to the world. The older version of Izuku had a cowboy hat attached around his neck with a string. He also had 2 animals with him, a snake wrapped around his neck hissing at everyone and a hawk resting on his shoulder. Finally, he had 2 swords attached to his hip. The second person was a fair-skinned girl who seemed to be wearing clothes made from cotton. She was the opposite of the male standing next to her. She was waving her hand at them while smiling all the way. She had reindeer legs and a small tail. She also had antlers on top of her head, and between the antlers she had a cross attached. Her eyes were multicolored, with one being red and one being blue. She also had a sword attached to her hip. Finally, she was extremely beautiful. Minda couldn't contain himself and risked his life. Holy shit, who's this bombshell babe? The older Izuku yelled, "Rah, rip him to shreds." The bird on his shoulder flew to the sky as it was engulfed in flames and began to grow bigger. The flames continued to grow till they stopped and disappeared, relieving a giant robotic dragon looking down at everyone. The dragon opened its mouth to shout a fireball at Minda, but it was then turned into its hawk form. Discord looked at Izuku and said, "Look, I know you hate them, but no killing anyone." He looked away. At least not yet. SCP. Izuku replied angrily, "Whatever. Let's get this shit over with." Discord appeared behind him. "Come on, big guy. You're acting like I never helped you before, or I mean going to harm you." SCP. Izuku growled at him, "Does SCP? 3812 ring any bells? The girl chuckled a little, patting her male companion on the back. He got you there, Izuku-kun. The girl smiled at Discord. Don't mind Mr. Grumpy Pants. Believe me, he sees you as a friend, but he can't break his emo edgelord routine. SCP. Izuku merely scoffed before looking away. The girl then looked at everyone and said, Hello, everyone. My name is Gaia. She then pointed at Izuku. And this one you might know is Izuku, but he prefers people to call him Demon King because he can't trust anyone unless they prove they're trustworthy. Momo then raised her hand. Gaia nodded her head. I have a couple of questions. What is the story behind your world? Who are you? She then looked at SCP. Izuku, who glared at her. And why is Zuzu acting like we're his worst enemies and he wants to cut us into bits? SCP. Izuku replied, I'll answer the last question. Momo dared to look at him. First off, my backstory is none of your goddamn business. Second off, you are my enemies and I hate you people. And third off, the aggressive rant was cut off by him feeling someone tugging on his pants. He looked down and his eyes widened when he saw Eri. The girl sniffed her tears back. Does that mean that you hate me, Mr. Deku? The man sat down and gave the girl a small smile. No, Eri. There's no universe that I would hate you. He hugged her and patted her on the back. They just hurt me a lot. He stopped for a moment. Only one of them was my friend, but the others hurt. This made me kinda sad. Eri looked at him and smiled. Then I'll make you happy like you did with me. The girl hugged him back, making the harsh look disappear and get replaced by a soft look. Eri then looked at Izuku's snake and began to pet it. The creature slithered itself onto Eri's neck and settled itself there. SCP. Izuku then said, Alright, let's get this shitshow on the road. Gaia squealed from the side at the display of affection her friend and comrade is showing. The girl coughed into her fist. First, my world is relatively normal, so to speak, but there are things that are known as anomalies. It's similar to your quirks where a certain person, animal, area, or entity has unnatural powers, whether technological, magical, mystic, spiritual, etc. However, the people of my world didn't know about them, and I'm pretty sure if they did, there would be a mass panic. Ochako then asked, What do you mean powers acquired by an area or an entity? Gaia replied, Well, in my world, there are some spots that have their own powers. They have different powers that are too much to explain, but believe some of them were dangerous. One time, we had to wipe out an area the size of Japan for it to stop its threat. The girl said with a little guilt. She then continued, because they were anomalies, someone had to contain them and seal them away from the public eye. This caused the emergence of the SCP Foundation. It was an organization that worked day and night to protect humanity by securing anomalies and containing them to protect humanity. It was built on 3 principles: secure, contain, and protect. I guess you can see where the name SCP came from. Bakugo scoffed. So your world had some pseudo-quirks, and some shitty organization was set up to hide them away. I don't see. A sword was pressed against his neck. He looked and saw SCP. Izuku holding a burning sword. It's way more than that, you ticking time bomb. Some of those monstrosities didn't have anything except destruction on their mind. Some powers were just too unstable to leave out in the open. Others were reality-bending and can end the world in a blink. Next time, keep your genius words in your pie hole. Bakugo only looked at him in shock before saying, Man, you're much better than my Deku. SCP. Izuku growled. But Gaia quickly carried on, like he said. But believe me when I say that the SCP Foundation were no heroes. They often used people with life sentences to experiment on the SCP. As with such experiments always having a 90% death rate, I was forced to fight another SCP, which still gives me nightmares to this very day. Gaia then added, but there were always threats that the Foundation couldn't contain. Normally, like, those threats were world-ending. One of them was known as the Scarlet King. He was a war-loving interdimensional warmonger. In each dimension he has visited, he left the place in ruins, and he visited my home dimension. At that time, I thought it was all over when he arrived, but suddenly I heard through whispers that someone managed to beat him the moment he passed into our world. I thought that his son SCP-999 was the one who managed to kick his ass, but boy was I wrong. This news made me pray in happiness. However, everything wasn't as it seemed. Whoever beat the Scarlet King was given his powers and declared the new King of Destruction. And from there all things went to hell. Everyone had lots of questions, but kept them until the end. The reindeer girl then said, the new king wasn't so keen about destruction, but he wanted world domination. He first killed SCP-999 since it was our only hope to defeat him. Then he recruited other SCPs, promising them to be part of his armies, and they were going to get a slice of the earth. The old Scarlet King's armies along with 6 of his 7 daughters served the new king. The last daughter refused to work under the new king, causing her to be imprisoned to break her will. Everyone paled as she continued her explanation. It was rough times, especially since people who were supposed to fight him merely stepped down. The only one who tried to fight him was called the Gate Guardian, but he was defeated, a feat even the old Scarlet King never succeeded in doing. His sword was thought to be lost till my group, Izuku, and I found it. You just saw it in action. It is said the sword is so powerful that it's hotter than the sun itself. Izuku was the only person able to hold it due to its intense heat. His immunity to heat made him the perfect candidate to use it. She then clapped her hands. Back to the original topic. The world was plunged into darkness with Rouge SCP, as killing people by the truckload. However, they didn't kill everyone as the new Scarlet King described what happened as population control. The world went on with people slaving in agony with overlords over their heads. I didn't accept that, so I founded a group to fight him consisting of members who shared my ideals. But by the time I did that, it was already too late as that monster killed everyone with morals. Also at the time, I was weak. My body was full of pain and disease. I was born weak. I didn't know what to do. But a member of my group proposed I use a machine SCP, known as 914. Once I used it, I was remade better. I was still the same person with better control over my powers. Another member of my group used it. In my group, only 4 used it before we destroyed it into 1,000,000 pieces. After that, we began to start our plans. She then looked at Izuku. That's when Izuku fell from the sky on us. 2 of our members engaged him in combat, but he defeated them soundly. The girl after that explained how they started their war against the new Scarlet King by finding the Gate's Guardian's sword, and how they managed to convince Izuku to join their fight. After that, we began our long fight against the Scarlet King, any entities like the Scarlet King, and Rouge SCP, that may threaten human life. We began saving people, killing our enemies, and finally trying to protect whatever was left of humanity. Everyone was shocked. Heroes were shocked that they only kill, but they could understand why did they do it. Momo then said, "That's too much to take in." The girl sat down as Kyoka flopped beside her, and you said that he likes to conquer dimensions. The girl rubbed her forehead. SCP. Izuku shot back. She clearly stated that the only one who did that was the old king. Are you deaf or something? I thought you were supposed to be smart. The girl shrunk back on herself. This caused Izuku to snap at his counterpart. Hey, why are you being such a jerk toward her? Whatever happened in your past doesn't give you the right to be mean to her. Did you forget how to be a hero? An intense aurora of hatred engulfed the room. Don't you dare patronize me. I was the best of the best before those sick bastards deemed that I was a threat, so they did everything to get rid of me. The person that I am today is because of them. As Hawk looked at Izuku and glared at him with the snake hissing at the boy, Izuku backed down wondering what might have happened to make this version of himself so angry at everything. Discord clapped his hands and said, "All right, let's begin this world, shall we?" The scene began revealing Izuku drowning in the sea with a huge slash on his chest. One of his swords was floating beside him, slowly slipping away from his hand's reach. Ibara then yelled, "Oh dear lord, what happened to you? I can see you're..." The girl then quieted down, remembering how he reacted to others talking to him, but something different happened. SCP. Izuku opened his mouth to speak, but he then looked away and muttered something under his breath. Ibara didn't hear him, but she could have sworn she heard him say that he was sorry. Izuku was still looking at his counterpart, wondering what happened to drive to become someone like this. What happened to make him so cynical and angry against his friends? What happened to you? Am I going to become just like this? He then remembered the world where he was betrayed. Could they have betrayed him? This would make sense. No one is immune to hatred. He then looked at the scene. Something then began to happen to the water around him. The water began to somehow rot and dissolve. The injury on his chest was slowly closing. Suddenly, the boy's hand gripped the sword in an iron-like grip and pulled it closer. The boy's eyes then opened wide, but something was different. His eyes had draconic features. His body then began to shift and mutate in the darkness of the water. Out on the surface of the sea, everything was peaceful until something with the speed of a missile shot out of the water with a thundering boom, disturbing everything around him. Everyone looked at the older Izuku, who smirked and said, "Discord, could you make me an apple?" He then looked at Eri and corrected himself. "Make that 2 apples." Discord nodded and made 2 apples, giving it to SCP. Izuku. The older Izuku gave one to Eri, who began to munch on it happily. SCP. Izuku grabbed the apple and began to squeeze it. Everyone's eyes widened as the apple began to slowly shrivel until it disappeared. Pony then stuttered, asking, "Do you have a power similar to Eri's rewind?" SCP. Izuku shook his head. "My power isn't a quirk at all. I honestly don't what it is." Everyone was afraid of him at this point, but I can tell what I can do. It gives me the ability to absorb minerals, irons, salts, liquids, and many more from anybody or anything that I can touch. Even water isn't safe from me. In a sense, I have a more useful version of Shigaraki's decay, since everything I absorb, I can turn into energy. Furthermore, I have control over the quantum realm, which means have control over the laws of physics themselves. Everyone was afraid, but only Eri laughed. "That's so cool. Does that mean you can fly?" SCP. Izuku replied, "More like use gravity and magnetism to move in the air, but sure, I can fly." In another location, sparks could be seen emitting from everywhere as two combatants were fighting each other. The first one was a woman of immense height holding two swords before suddenly changing into a battle axe and swinging downward. The woman had pitch black skin that absorbed the sunlight around it. Horns sprouted from everywhere body. She had a mouth located in the center of her chest. Finally, she had 3 eyes, 2 normal ones and one placed vertically in the center of her forehead. They all glowed a bright yellow. The other combatant was Gaia, who looked severely injured from her fighting. The blonde-haired girl shifted her leg only from vines to appear and capture her opponent. She then jumped into the air trying to strike her opponent from the head to bottom. The other woman managed to free herself, making a shield and using it to slam Gaia away from her. The woman then spoke in a voice that sounded like 100 war cries. "Why do you continue to fight? Why do you even bother? Your strongest have been defeated. Give up, and he might just spare you." Gaia responded by slamming her foot on the ground. A huge tree emerged that skewered her opponent. The girl then quickly bolted into action and sliced the woman's right hand off. The woman then ripped the tree from her body, regenerating any damage done. She grabbed the blonde-haired girl and slammed her to the wall and said, "Any last word, princess?" The blonde-haired girl replied by making a sharp branch that went straight into her opponent's eye. The woman growled, lifting her arm to hit the girl, but something happened. Momo then said, "What the hell is that thing? Can we even consider it as human? It looks so terrifying." She then hid behind Kyoka. Everyone was terrified by the monster's look as Gaia explained. "This is the old Scarlet King's first daughter and the one of generals of his many armies. Her name is Izuku. Her powers consist of weapon manifestation, super strength, bloodlust, weather manipulation, enhanced reflexes, and many more. SCP. Izuku growled, "I hate that bitch. She gave me one nasty scar on my chest." Gaia patted him on the back. "I think that was the first time I came close to death ever since I entered that world. But I came on top when I sliced her head off." Mirio then asked Gaia a question. "Gaia-san." The girl looked at him. "What are your powers exactly?" The girl smiled. "Well, my powers are quite simple. I have control over all plant life. I can summon them at will. I also can communicate with them. They are my little spies. I also control nature. SCP. Izuku then said, "What about the other part?" She punched him on the neck. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Izuku-kun. For someone who wanted to be a nun at one point in your life, you sure like violence," he said, rubbing his sore throat from the punch. "You could have just nudged me to be quiet." She looked at him with a mischievous, "I learned it from the best of the best." She then looked away. "Plus, people have their life goals change. Besides, I don't want to hear that from someone who tied me to a tree as punishment for being late to training." Everyone looked at SCP. Izuku and was afraid of him. Even Izuku was afraid of him. Tanjiro shivered, remembering Obanai's training. "Man, that kinda reminds me of Obanai's training. Anyone who didn't fit his fancy was tied to a post to teach them a lesson." Kano heard about this but thought that they were kidding at the time. Kikoshibo couldn't help but wonder how strong this version of the kid is. "Who would win in a sword fight between us?" SCP. Izuku heard him. "You mean the little man with the albino snake around his neck?" "Yeah, I know him. He's a friend. I got that idea from him, to be honest." Tanjiro then asked, "How did you meet him if you're from another world?" The older Greenette smiled. "How sad that I can't visit other worlds?" He then lifted a watch that seemed old and was about to get destroyed. "This is the Chrono Watch. It allows me to open a portal to a world at random. I visited many versions of your world." As the giant woman lowered her hand to attack Gaia, something came barreling down from the sky in a ball of fire and slammed into it, Izuku, pushing her away and destroying most of her body, only leaving half a torso and a face. The woman regenerated quickly as she looked at the new arrival. It was none other than Izuku holding Gaia princess style, but he looked different. His body was covered with scales like over. He had 2 dragon horns on his head. His teeth were sharp. He had huge claws that can rip flesh easily. A tail that had a spike at the end of it. In other words, he was here to kill. Izuku smiled. "You look kinda different." She tapped her chin. "Let me guess, a new haircut." She then said, "Not that it would help." She lifted her hand, sending a lightning strike toward Izuku, but he merely made a shield from scales and stopped the lightning attack. Hanta jumped. "That was so awesome. It's so cool. He looks so awesome." SCP. Izuku growled at him. "I don't need to hear that from trash like you." Hanta deflated and looked away. Izuku frowned at the way his classmate was treated and was about to say something, but Discord appeared beside him. "Look, I know that you don't like this, but believe that you're better off not annoying him." Izuku sighed and nodded his head in acceptance. Itsuka leaned toward him. "Izuku, I know that you're angry at him, but remember that something must have happened to make him this way." The boy looked at her. "I mean that he didn't wake up one day and decided to become an emo who wants nothing but to make Tamura his fan." Izuku replied, "But that." He was cut off by Izuku. When I look at him, I honestly don't see a monster. Izuku raised an eyebrow. I only see someone who's been hurt and pushed the edge so many times that he became the monster that everyone wanted him to be. Ibara then added, I don't think he will change his ways, Izu, but I can see it in his eyes when he looked at me that something extremely disturbing happened to him to make him like this. Izuku huffed, you know, if heroics never worked for you, you would make amazing lawyers. The girls began to laugh at him as one girl looked at them and glared. I just need to wait for the universe where I'll appear as Deku's girlfriend, then I'll sit beside him. That Ivik looked shocked that he managed to block her attack. She sent another lighting act only for it to be absorbed by his scales, causing them to begin to glow before he expelled the excess energy from his mouth and directed them toward her, striking her in the chest. The giant woman went flying and was slammed into a side of a mountain. Izuku then put Gaia down to a side of a tree and said, be careful next time. You almost died. The woman looked at him. I can say that to you. She then surveyed him. What happened to you? Since when could you do this, Oni King? Izuku slightly smirked. I just found out. He then took out his sword, but that's a conservation for later. The sword he picked was a katana with a dark purple blade. He looked at Ivik, who pulled herself from the mountain and launched herself at him. Izuku looked at Gaia. Rest for a couple of minutes. I'll hold her back till you and others can join me back in the fight. The green-haired man then took a stance with his opponent, creating a long sword. The man then sped forward and swung his sword twice in a diagonal form, creating two huge arcs of dark energy that traveled toward his opponent. The demon woman prepared to defend herself, but the two arcs then took the form of dragons and raced toward her, avoiding and ducking until they finally managed to hit her, destroying her left shoulder and taking a huge slice of her right side of her body. Tanjiro then looked at SCP. Izuku, can you do a breathing style, because that attack you used clearly reminds me of a breathing form. The older Greenette shrugged, since his memory wasn't the best from all his near-death experiences. Michikatsu added, this must be a branch from moon breathing. It used something that resembled my chaotic moon blades. The man rubbed his chin. It seems powerful. If I had to give it a name, I would use darkness breathing, since the energy used there seems black as night. SCP. Izuku replied, it is possible that the attack I used is a breathing style. He rubbed the back of his inside. I traveled many dimensions and universes. I picked up many skills from foes and whatever I classify as allies, whether weapons, magic, science, technology, swordsmanship. Gaia then said, and that's why you're always so awesome, Izuku-kun. She then hugged him, much to his chagrin. He blushed a little before looking away and muttering a small thanks. Izuku then quickly launched himself toward his opponent and readied his claws, which were engulfed in some sort of energy. The man swung his claws in two diagonal attacks, but the woman dodged them. She then made an axe and swung it at Izuku, who blocked it with his sword but was thrown back. The boy then ripped off a handful of his scales and threw them at the demon woman. Some missed, but the rest clung to her, causing a huge explosion to occur. The boy felt something and rotated his sword in a circular motion, making a dragon-like black hole that stopped an incoming fire attack. The boy scoffed, demons and their fire attacks. He then charged forward and swung his katana, only to be met by Ivik's own katana. He then exchanged blows with her. The boy was beginning to be pushed back, but then used his tail to stab her in one of the eyes. The boy then thrusted his sword toward her abdomen with dark energy surrounding it. The attack was strong and did serious damage. But there's little someone could do against something with hyper-regeneration. She didn't have it before with the original Scarlet King, but the new one gave her and the other daughters some serious upgrades. She swung her arm, hitting him in the abdomen, knocking the wind out of him and launching him back. She growled, pathetic ant. Mina then asked, I don't get it. You've had an upgrade. Shouldn't you be like wiping the floor with her? Izuku could feel the anger emitting from his counterpart coming off in waves, so he said, Ash. Mina, call me Mina. All right, Mina. Getting an upgrade doesn't mean instant victory. The girl pouted a little, but she then heard someone else speak. Gaia replied, he's right. We barely won this fight. Even with this power-up, we tipped the scales in our favor so much. She was still much stronger than us. In the end, we managed to keep her down for good by having Izuku-kun disintegrate into nothing using his powers. Izuku surveyed the new injury on his chest. It was going to be one heck of a nasty scar. He then saw movement beside him. He looked and smiled. He then lifted his sword and began to move quickly, causing darkness to envelop the field. The demon woman was then slashed multiple times on her body, but she managed to slap Izuku away. The boy used a tree to launch himself back at her, readying his right fist to punch her. Dragon Hellflame. The woman didn't notice someone coming from behind wearing a gauntlet aiming to punch her. Izuku's fist now resembled a fire dragon as he used his tail to cut off the demon's hand that went to stop him. The two attacks met the demon woman, causing smoke to fill the area. Once the smoke was cleared, it revealed Izuku and the man, each held by a hand from the demon woman. You thought that would work, you stupid bugs? Izuku replied, takes a bug to know a bug. The demon woman began to squeeze harder. The man in her other hand tried to bite her since he knew that she won't attempt to hurt him, for squeezing him will only kill her. He was a man of Middle Eastern descent. He was wearing ancient clothing. His entire arms and legs were made from metal. He was SCP-73, also known as Kane. Ochako then asked, "What is Kane's power, Gaia-san? It seems useful." The blonde-haired woman happily replied, "Well, his powers are quite simple. He can negate any damage done to his body by returning it to the sender. In other words, if you stab him with a knife, you'll be bleeding out or dying. He also has the ability to make anything related to nature wither and die away." Ibara hummed. "The name Kane reminds me of Abel and Cain. Could they be related?" Back in the fight, the woman tried to kill Izuku only for him to smirk and yell, "Shadow, burn her to ashes." Suddenly, Izuku's shadow began to shift and contract, turning into a huge shadowy dragon. The dragon opened his mouth, unleashing a weird type of energy. Takoyami was surprised and looked at SCP. "Izuku, you have a minion of shadows too." Out of Izuku's back, a shadowy figure appeared. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Shadow. My abilities are strong during the day since it gives me a tangible form and I can use the sunlight to extend my reach. My history with Izuku is quite complicated." Takoyami wanted to talk more, but a growl of displeasure emanating from Izuku's counterpart stopped him. What kind of darkness did help befell upon him to make him hate us this much? Izuku then jumped in the air away from her and took out his sword. He launched himself at her. The attack took the form of a pitch-black dragon that carved her in half. The demonic woman released a thunderous roar of anger, causing Izuku's eardrums to explode. She then regenerated in a blink of an eye, took a huge chunk of ground, and slammed it down on Izuku. The giant woman smirked at her work but stopped when she felt a huge pain in her back. An obsidian sword was launched deep inside her back. She removed it only for a man in a tunic to attack with swords, stabbing her in the eyes while laughing madly. Kane yelled at the man, "Abel, be careful." The other man growled, but he was soon thrown away by the woman's hand. The huge rock that she slammed on Izuku shattered into pieces as a tornado of fires emerged from it, drilling into her guts. Ibara then asked, "Abel and Cain, are they the same Abel and Cain from the Bible?" Gaia shrugged. "I'm a Christian myself, and I'm not sure. Abel is the opposite of what he is in the Bible. He's bloodthirsty. The only reason he joined us is to fight strong opponents. His brother is more docile. I think they are, since Cain is always apologizing to Abel and the latter always seems pissed when sees the former. His name is SCP-76. As Izuku was drilling through the demon's gut, another figure was slowly running toward her. He was a thin figure. He had long arms. His face was like a chiseled statue. He used her distracted state and grabbed one of her arms, ripping it from its socket. He then used that arm to stab her in the neck. He then began a restless assault on her. Izuku finished his attack and jumped back. "Robert, move. I have an ace up my sleeve." The thin man jumped away, listening to Izuku's words. Suddenly, the ground under the demon gave way, revealing a snake with dragon-like features. The snake coiled around its victim and opened its jaw. From the jaws, nuclear fire was released, burning the demon to a crisp. Everyone looked at Izuku's snake, which was keeping Eri busy from the gruesome fighting. Mina then dared to ask, "Can she do that on her own?" Gaia shook her head. "No, Izuku needs to take his dragon form first, then the change will happen to the snake." Izuku then yelled, "Uncoil her. Iris, it's your turn. Rock and roll." A woman with blonde hair, a camera, and a bazooka came running. She first took a picture of the sky from her camera. Once the picture was produced, she jumped through it, appearing in the sky. She then unleashed a rocket from her weapon. Goodbye. The rocket hit the demon woman as Izuku attacked the demon lady with his own attack. A beam was being produced from between his horn and was shot at his opponent. Everyone whistled. That form is some serious firepower. SCP. Izuku scoffed and looked away. Gaia then explained. The one with the white body and beautiful face is known as SCP-96. He was once a monster with one aim: killing anyone who saw its face. He was usually docile unless anyone saw his face. That's when the real action happens. He would go into a non-stop state of crying before literally running to the person who saw it, like a man on a mission. Even pictures of him would trigger his murderous state. Nothing can stop in that state. And believe they used nukes, and SCP-96 just shrugged them. A year or so before the king's invasion, a female worker there saw his face and, well, he wanted to kill her. Luckily, she was beside SCP-914 with a statue of a beautiful man. She managed to trap him inside and activated the machine. When he came out, this was the end result. After some time, he fell in love with the worker. When the invasion came, she died. He joined us so no one will ever feel his pain. Aizawa then asked, "Does he still have those murderous tendencies?" Gaia shook her head. "Whatever happened in that machine got rid of that. Now to the girl, her name is Iris. She has a single ability. Any photo she takes, she can use it as a cross gate. Say she was in China and she had a picture of France. She can simply walk through the photo to France." Melissa, who was silent from the beginning, That sounds like a wonderful ability. Gaia nodded her head. Yeah, she's always good for surveillance and stuff. Discord then said, all right, enough of this world, let's move on. Hawks connected. Man, I wanted to see more of this fight. We were getting to the good stuff. As if something flipped, SCP. Izuku looked at him with an unexplainable look of rage. He pointed his finger at him and hissed, you. Hawks gulped as Discord said, oh boy, this can't end well. The 15th universe. Hawks knew that he fucked up big time. He was supposed to be quiet and not allow himself to let out a single hum that might give him away. Well, he was about to face the consequences of his actions. The only thing that passed through his mind was cursing the HSPC for whatever shit they made SCP. Izuku's version of Hawks do. He gulped when he saw the man in front of him began to change and shift. In mere moments, he was engulfed in a blaze. When the blaze left, his skin was made of red rock-like material. He had 3 eyes, one of them was in the middle of his head. He had 2 antlers on the top of his head, each of them branching into smaller antlers. His eyes became something similar to red jewels. His fingers became razor-sharp claws. There were so many features that Hawks couldn't even keep count as SCP. Izuku growled, demon form. SCP. Izuku was about to attack Hawks when Gaia stopped him. Izuku-kun, don't do it. I know how you feel, but killing him won't bring her back. The demonic being looked down at her. Please calm down. They stared at each other for a couple of moments before the demonic form disappeared and Izuku returned to normal. The green-haired man glared at Hawks. Today, you survived due to her intervention, but understand something. Hawks shivered at the heavy aura that SCP. Izuku was emanating. I loathe you. There's no universe where I won't actively try to kill for your crimes. You killed someone very close to me, so you better keep your guard up, because I'm coming for your soul, and I want to take it to the deepest pits of hell. Hawks quivered in fear hiding behind Enji. Izuku wondered who is the person that Hawks killed to make that version of himself hate him to such an extent. He didn't dare to ask any questions. This version of himself scared him to the core, and he couldn't help but hate him. Call him a hypocrite. But for someone who aspired to be a hero, he sure acted the furthest thing of it. He was acting. Izuku then noticed his counterpart looking at him and growling. Ibara chuckled a little, putting her hand on Izuku's mouth. Please, Izu, remember not to mutter. SCP. Izuku growled again. I didn't ask for your fucking opinion about me. Someone like you who had the power handed to him will never understand my struggles. He scoffed. Then again, you're nothing but a pawn between 2 brothers squabbling about the possibility of the Demon King winning. He shook his head. So pathetic that you're struggling against him. I killed at least 26 versions of AFO when I reached 100 years old. AFO gulped a little. For once in his life, he felt something he thought he lost years ago. Fear. Discord then said, all right people, what do you think about this universe? No one dared to ask a question since Izuku's older version made them very afraid to the degree that they couldn't breathe the right way. Finally, Tamura managed to shake his grandma off him. First off, that world was awesome. I mean, it looked like a real-life video game. It was amazing. I always read about the SCP Foundation on the old pre-Quirk era wikis, but I never thought there was a world where it was real. Also, I have to ask both of them, what was the hardest fight that you both had to fight? Which SCP gave you the hardest time? SCP. Izuku's sweat dropped a little. Of course, you know. I imagine a nerd of your caliber would know something about the SCP Foundation. He rubbed the back of his head. Well, SCP-682 was the hardest. The little bitch just kept coming back no matter what I threw at it. In the end, I threw it into a universe where the Earth was just a giant snowball. That action alone almost killed me, since I can't control which world I open a portal to without using too much energy. Gaia looked conflicted. She had a scowl on her face. SCP-343. No more comments. The older Izuku patted her on the back as his snake coiled around her neck, nuzzling its head against Gaia's head, making the reindeer woman smile a little. Tamura frowned a little. SCP-343. Isn't that God? I find it hard to believe he joined the Scarlet King's side. I thought he might be one of your members. Everyone looked at Tamura with confused looks, especially Ibara, who was very religious. Gaia replied, he was no god. He was a false idol. He met his end at Izuku-kun's hands. All of his fancy tricks didn't work on someone who exists in the quantum world. His attempts to rewrite our world didn't work, which led to Izuku-kun killing him. Ibara wanted to push further but didn't because she knew that the topic was a little sensitive. The vine-haired girl shyly raised her hand. I know that you hate us and all, but are there any more members of your group, Midoriya? I mean Demon King. He stared at her for a moment and answered, there are other members. SCP-49, the Plague Doctor. His abilities were simple enough. He killed anyone with direct skin touch. He was obsessed with something he called the pestilence. That was before he used SCP-914. After he used the machine, he could heal any disease. He helped us when we destroyed the last remnants of SCP-610. Don't ask about it. Believe me, Shizaki. It's for the best that you don't know about it. There was the ever-annoying Dr. Bright known as SCP-963. His case was quite peculiar, so to speak. The thing is, in life, Bright wasn't anomalous, but one day he was killed with an amulet in his hand. After he died, his soul was trapped inside the amulet, so now anyone who wears the amulet becomes Dr. Bright, memories and all. And finally, we have SCP-280, or better known as Cactus Man. At first, he was weak like Gaia was. He flinched from an elbow to the gut, but he became more than strong after a soothing vacation in SCP-914. Minter raised his hand. SCP. Izuku growled with so much hatred that it could kill someone. What the heck do you want, you disgusting perv? Kyoka snorted. I guess even Warlord Izuku hates Minta more than anyone else. She heard a growl, but she pretended not to hear it. She didn't want to know what kind of shit they did to create this version of Izuku, but something told her they will know down along the line. Minta gulped. I just want to know what is SCP-914. You both talked about it a lot. Gaia beat SCP. Izuku to the punch. Well, it is a machine that improves or destroys anyone or anything that's put in it. It has 5 modes: rough, coarse, 1-to-1, fine, and very fine. Rough would tear anything in shreds of what it was. Coarse would break it down into its key elements. 1-to-1 would give you the same thing, but with different yet similar qualities like cola and Pepsi. Fine would improve it slightly. Very fine was the one that took the cake since it improved anything put in it to a ridiculous extent. Very fine is the setting that helped me control my powers better, made SCP-49 a better doctor, increased Cactus Man's abilities, and changed SCP-96's nature. Nezu whistled. No wonder you destroyed to pieces. It would have given your enemies a lot of firepower if they managed to put their hands on it. Gaia nodded. Tanjiro said, You said that you traveled through dimensions. What happened when you first entered ours? SCP. Izuku looked at him with a bored look before smiling smugly. Let's just say that the Hashiras finally found their match. It barely lasted 10 minutes. Tanjiro gulped. But then again, I did go on to slaughter Muzan. Never managed to finish the job. Coward fled away before I can deliver the final blow. Izuku asked his counterpart. What was the most disturbing universe you visited? SCP. Izuku frowned a little, looking at Minta. The most disturbing ones are the worlds where Minta has a harem. I usually end up killing him because I still have standards even though I hate the girls. The worst of them was a world where I found Minta taking his pervert act a little too far. He growled and spat at Minta's face. The girls understood what he was aiming at and felt horrified and disgusted with Minta. Let's just say, he went after a version of my only friend in my original universe, and this forced my hand to act and put him in his place. He never saw me coming. The fear on his face made me want to rip him to shreds. But I had something better in mind. He is tied to a sun where he will burn regularly, but he will never die. Minta felt disgusted with himself. Sure, he was a pervert, but he wasn't a rapist. He then saw Izuku's counterpart take out a cube and throw it in his direction. The grape-themed hero looked inside the cube and gulped. Inside the cube, there was a sun. On the sun, the boy saw 2 people tied there. The people tied to the sun were a version of Minta and a version of Hawks. Rin then asked, Wait, you said only friend. Does that mean of one the girls were your girlfriend? Everyone looked at Izuku's counterpart expecting an answer, only for him to look at Rin. Do you want to join Minta and Hawks in eternal suffering? Rin flinched and looked away. Discord appeared. All right, let's move on before this Izuku burns you all into ribbons. SCP. Izuku scoffed. Please, it was only in universe 234,322 divided by alpha where I slaughtered them all. Everyone gasped. But in my defense, you were villains who did nasty stuff. I did some good too. I stirred myself and someone else from that world into the right path. Though it was weird seeing AFO as the #1 hero with an intact face, but meh. OFA users gasped. There's a world where AFO is a hero, which means they are the villains in that world. Yoichi said, I can't imagine a world where I'm a villain. Being the personal responsible for my brother's descent to villainy is acceptable, but being a villain downright is horrible. AFO wanted to make a joke, but Izuku spoke up. I need to ask my counterpart a question. Discord shrugged. Izuku asked his counterpart something burned him ever since it happened. Why are so friendly with Shigaraki? Did you join the League of Villains in your world? SCP. Izuku shrugged. I wouldn't say join them, more like had an alliance with them. He explained, after everything in my life went to shit, Tamura was the one to offer me the hand of friendship. I took it immediately if it meant I get to have my revenge. But in the end, we both agreed that the world is just too small. Tamura carried on, for 2 demon kings to exist together. We had a deal. We destroy our common enemy and then we duke it out. It appears you won, not that it's surprising. I can see it in your eyes. You're much more ruthless than this version of yourself. Your power also trumps mine. While I decay stuff, you absorb minerals. So, I conclude that you brave my decay using the earth itself to keep healing yourself before killing me with the rest of the League. SCP. Izuku nodded. Discord then said, "All right, enough distractions. Minimi, what do you have to say about this world? Please be careful. And don't spout some of your self-righteous bullshit." Izuku frowned. "Okay, this world has a lot of things to unpack. First, I think it's cool that a version of myself traveled through the multiverse and learned new skills. I don't know regarding the whole killing your enemy thing, but I think it's like the Demon Slayer version of myself. They were forced to take desperate measures." He then looked at SCP. "Izuku, really? Minta has a harem. Who's that desperate enough to go out with him?" The boy shouted in protest, only for Izuku's counterpart to point at 1A and 1B girls. "Those are the people desperate enough to go out with him." The girls were given burp bags because their faces looked green. Ibara was the first one to speak up. "I'd rather have premarital relationships than be with him." Momo said, "Please, tell me this is a joke. I can accept to be with a nice and civil version of Minta, but being with a pervert version is just too much to handle." Izuku's counterpart shrugged. "Hey, it is what it is. Don't blame me for your choices in men." He then added, "And as I said, I usually kill those versions of Minta. The idea of him having a harem rubs me the wrong way." Minta frowned a little at the blunt admission of being murdered in different words for having a harem. Discord then said, "And away we go." He began to spin the wheel of worlds till it finally landed on something. A small twist of fate. Discord began to chuckle. "Man, this one is going to be good." Izuku didn't know why, but this wasn't going to be funny. Discord added, "This world is a simple what if." The scene showed an old Japanese house with a pond beside it. The frogs were croaking. Grasshoppers were jumping around. The air was causing the trees to swing gently back and forth. Suddenly, someone jumped inside the garden and began to walk toward a window. He took a simple pebble and chucked at the window to draw the occupants' attention. The window opened, revealing a teenage Rei Himura. "You're late. I told you to be here at 8 sharp." The girl pouted and looked away, causing the figure to panic, begging her not to be sad. Izuku felt his jaw drop. He was with his friend's mother. He quickly passed out. He didn't know what to do right now. Her papa passed out, but she saw a new mama. Perhaps she can help her wake up her papa. She walked to the older woman and asked her, "Does that make you my new mama?" Rei smiled softly. "I'm not her. The one in there is my cousin." "And not her." She noticed that the girl was sad at the rejection. "But I can be your auntie if you want." The little girl brightened up quickly. Rei laughed with Eri, asking her, "And what do aunties do?" She knew what mamas and papas do, but she never had an auntie. The woman's heart clenched. Rei smiled. She usually spoils her beautiful niece by giving her many sweets and a lot of money. She then hugged Eri and nuzzled her face against the little girl, making Eri smile. Rei tapped Anji's shoulder. "Honey, give me your wallet. We have a niece to spoil." The flame hero asked, "Do I have to give you my wallet?" Rei raised an eyebrow and took the wallet, giving Eri at least 500,000 yen. The girl went back to her mama's with her new money. Itsuka, Ibara, and Tsuyu chuckled a little before taking the money from her for safekeeping. Izuku then came back. "Man, I had the weirdest dream ever. A parallel world version of myself brought to the void to watch different worlds. The girls were in love with me, and finally, there was a world where I was in love with Shoto's mom." The girls giggled at him before hugging him and kissing, making him realize that his dream wasn't a dream. SCP. Izuku replied, "It's not a dream, sunshine. That's the real deal." Gaia elbowed him in the gut, making him pout a little. The reindeer girl laughed. "That's the Izuku-kun that I like." She slapped him lightly on the cheek. "I want you to smile more. You're a kind person. Don't forget that." He smiled slightly at her and looked away. The figure looked up. His emerald green eyes reflected against the girl's gray eyes. Izuku then said, "I'm sorry, but my dad was making sure that everything was fine in the airport when we arrive and go to America." The girl giggled a little before jumping outside the window. The girl squealed, "Catch me, Izu." The boy panicked before growing flaming wings and grabbing her midair. The boy changed entirely. Right now, he had 2 curved horns on the top of his head. His hands were now claws that can shred through metal. His feet now had 2 toes in the front with a toe in the back. His eyes were glowing red. He had a huge tail from fire. The boy frowned. "Ray-chan, don't do that. I know that you don't want to get married to my flaming trash bin of a senior I have, but no need to throw your life away." The girl giggled. "I know, but I have you so I was safe." Izuku was hiding inside Ibara's vines. He expected the Todoroki siblings to attack him anytime soon, but nothing happened. He looked at them and they seemed that they weren't bothered at all. The boy had to ask, "Aren't you guys bothered that a version of myself is about to take your mother away from your father?" He then went back to hiding. Shoto was the first one to speak. "Midoriya, you being my father is like a dream come true." The boy smiled a little. "Do you know what that means? No self-projecting, no quirk eugenics, no obsessive Talia, no dabai in the future, or at least a villain dabai, no boiled water being dropped on me, and most importantly, no fractured family. If I didn't know this was wrong, I'd make you marry my mom now." This made Endeavor shout, "SHOTOO." Dabai spoke next. "I'm cool with it. It's better than Endeavor. Natsuo nodded his head, while Fayumi frowned at her brothers. Izuku chuckled a little while Itsuka whispered in his ear, "They sure are a dysfunctional family." Suyu croaked in agreement, while Ibara was too busy coaxing Izuku to come out of her hair. Izuku sighed. "All right. Everything is said and done. Do you have your passport?" The girl chuckled mischievously, plucking out her passport. "And your clothes have been already relocated to the apartment my dad bought for us in America." The girl nodded. "Well, Mrs. Midoriya, it seems we have to catch that flight now. Let's go to the airport." Ray yelled excitedly. "Higher, Izu-kun, higher." The boy flew higher, mentally sighing in happiness. "It's truly good that I'm a hero. Allows me to fly without problems." Shoto and his siblings were shocked. Their mother never was this animated. Even before her breakdown, she was more conserved if anything. "Mom, were you like this?" Ray shook her head. "No, not really." She put a hand on her chin and began to think. "My parents never wanted me to grow a spine, so they only taught that I was born to serve them and the family." She smiled softly, though. "I wonder what caused this change in my behavior." Discord answered, "In that world, Izuku worked for your parents for a couple of years." Ray hummed. "He saw the way they treated you and urged you to stand up for yourself. That version of yourself did outrageous things like threatening to dye her hair pink or stop eating unless she is sent to a school, among other stuff. Your parents were not pleased, but in the end, they yielded." Ray smiled. "I suppose this is the solution that version of myself came up with to avoid marrying Enji." Discord nodded and gave a thumbs up, making her say, "I do wonder sometimes what would have happened if I stood up to my parents." SCP. Izuku said, Universe 222,435 divided by Bravo Charlie. "Nice place. No Dabas to rip their heads off their bodies while he tries to make himself into a thermal bomb." Kaya elbows him in the gut, telling him to stop saying scary stuff. 22 years later, Izuku could be seen walking in an airport, pulling behind him a cart full of luggage. The man stopped and panted. "How the hell do two girls have so many clothes? It defies the laws of physics." Behind him, Ray and Fayumi came laughing at him. Ray was also holding a blanket. Ray said, "You're the one who played the chivalry card." She shrugged. "I don't know though." "Come on, Dad." Fayumi patted him on the back, smiling. "It's not that bad. Talia is handling some of our stuff with Natsuo and Shoto. They aren't complaining." The three boys came panting as badly as their father. Shoto flopped on the ground. "I'm exhausted." He looked at his mother. "Mom, I'm tired. Please help me up." Natsuo leaned toward Talia. "Mama's boy." The older teen nodded. Shoto frowned. "I'm not a mama's boy," he said while hugging his mother. Both Talia and Natsuo's sweat dropped. "Sure, you aren't." Shoto hummed. "We all look the same except we swapped red for green in our hair and eye color." He looked at Discord. "Can I switch with that version of myself for a couple of weeks?" Fayumi slapped him on the back of his head. "No, you aren't. You promised you'd try to be civil with Dad." "This isn't being civil." The boy rubbed the back of his head. Discord added, "But there's more to this world. For example, in this world, you're a big fan of Endeavor." Shoto felt his jaw hit the ground while Dabai was laughing like a madman. Shoto asked with evident shock on his face, "How did that happen?" Discord shrugged. "You didn't train under him, so you don't know about his personality." Talia asked, "So we came here for little Shoto to go to UA. Like Dad did." He bit his lip, looking around. "What will we do if he showed up at our front doorstep?" Izuku shrugged. "What can he do at this point? I mean, I married and had 6 children with her." They all walked to the exit. "He'll just have to suck it up like a man." Talia rolled his eyes. "And the commission? They still didn't forgive the shit that you pulled on their poster boy for heroics." Izuku frowned a little, remembering the day he explained to Lady Nagant in America why he was called the New Jersey Devil. "Sure," Talia said before smirking. "Plus, I can always terrorize them from the shadows," he said as blue flaming wings appeared from his back. Izuku smiled at him and went to Ray. "How are you doing? They already know by this point, and they sure aren't happy that you ran away with me. I'm sure they're gonna sick getting on me." Ray smiled. "Of course, I didn't train my power for years to be afraid of my parents." She then smirked. "Really, Getten? You're afraid of him?" He shrugged. "What? He's a real menace and an ankle biter. The last time I saw him, he bit my hand." Ray shook her head and handed him the blanket. Izuku now held in his arms 2 baby twins. One of them had his green hair while the other had his wife's snow-white hair. It was one of the greatest moments of his life when he saw both babies awake. He just couldn't wait to see them in a few years jumping around and asking him if he can take them to the park. "Izumi, Hasashi, I love you both." He walked away with his family to the taxi which will take them to their new house. Hopefully, he wouldn't have to see his in-laws' ugly mugs or Endeavor's snarly face. Thoughts for later, I presume. Shoto whistled in appreciation. "Man, Midoriya, you rock. I wish you were my father." Fayumi slapped the back of Shoto's head when she saw her father slump in depression. Dabai then asked, "It seems that I didn't burn off my face in this world. What stopped me from existing?" "Honestly, you did go through your obsession phase." Dabai raised an eyebrow. "But through Izuku's fault. But rather you developing an obsession with becoming strong as your father in that world and proving yourself to him." In the end, you both had a well-thought-out talk and you attended therapy while Izuku began teaching you how to use her quirk safely even with its drawback. When you decided to become a hero, you entered the underground route because it was much safer and you used a costume similar to the one you're wearing right now. Dabai nodded. I can't say it's perfect, but still better than nothing. He looked at his father. At least, someone acknowledged me rather than throwing me to the side. Endeavor could only lower his head in shame and sadness. I wonder what would have happened if I did the same thing. Damn, my obsession with All Might. Izuku was now sitting in front of the new principal of UA. Hi, Nezu, sadistic rat demon. Sometimes, I wonder what truly happened to the scientists who experimented on him. Nezu replied, believe me when I say that you don't want to know, Midoriya-kun. Izuku felt a chill travel down his spine. So, the rumors are true after all. Nezu replied, more than true. Izuku opened his mouth to speak. And no, I'm not reading your mind. I only need to read your body language to know what you're thinking. Izuku then said, I hope you didn't bring me from America just to give me nightmares like the rest of your staff. Nezu laughed given his reputation is worldwide. Izuku looked at Nezu. You truly are terrifying, Principal. Nezu replied by laughing even more. Nezu calmed himself down. No, I didn't bring America's number 5 hero just to give him nightmares. I have our very own All Might for that. The rat pretended that he didn't notice the frown that appeared on Izuku's face when All Might was mentioned. Izuku frowned. I can't believe that there's a version of me that hates All Might. I mean, he's the coolest hero ever in the entire world. The girls beside him pretended not to notice his counterpart being calmed down by his companion from kicking Izuku's head off. SCP. Izuku frowned. I hate All Might. He's everything wrong with this world. Tamura walked up to him and gave him a cup of beer. SCP. Izuku took it and said, cheers. Izuku asked him, so, you brought me here because? Nezu smiled. I want you to be the newest member of our staff. 1B's new homeroom teacher. Izuku blinked a little. You want me to be the homeroom teacher of Class 1B? The man rubbed his head. Is that old Vlad's job? I don't want to steal the man's career. Nezu shook his head. Vlad, well, he's currently out of commission. A series of bad events caused him to be out of the field for about 4 years. Even theoretical is out of the question. Izuku nodded. So, it seems that I'm going to be your teacher, Ibara-chan. While playing with her hair, he said, I hope I can live up to the honor of teaching Class 1B. Itsuka said, of course, you're one of the smartest people I know. I'm sure that you can teach my class no problem. She looked at Monoma. I just hope you can tame that idiot's over-bloated ego. Monoma deflated in sadness due to his crush's words. Vlad raised his hand. But SCP. Izuku answered him. You fell down the stairs breaking your leg and a couple of ribs. Got caught in a huge explosion caused by a villain near your house only to get hit by a car. And to end it all, a nurse during an operation to put back your hand that was chopped off by a straw saw blade. Put too much anesthesia so you went into a coma. All in the same day. Vlad paled. What the hell? How did that stuff happen to me and all on the same day? The green-haired male shrugged, rubbing the head of his snake. You got hit by a bad luck quirk. Izuku hummed for a bit. All right, so when do I start? Man, I can't wait to teach Shoto how to be a hero. He shivered a bit. Can I ban allowing my son to go to the training facilities? Nezu laughed like a crazy person. No, you can't. Let me guess. Your youngest is a bit of a training junkie. A bit was an understatement of the century. Everyone in his household had a turn to drag Shoto out of the training room. Monday was his, Tuesday was Rei's, Wednesday was Taoya's, Thursday was Natsuo's, Friday was Fayumi's, Saturday was decided on a draw, and Sunday was Shoto's day off. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, something like that. He shook his head. Well, I accept. How am I going to work with? Nezu raised an eyebrow. I need to know to list down their weaknesses and how to kick their ass for quirk lessons to my students. Nezu laughed. He had the best teacher he can ask for. No, no, no. Aizawa shouted. 1 Nezu is enough, but 2 of them are just too much for the mortal realm to handle. He was silenced by a blot of lighting hitting him. The man spasmed a little and looked at his student counterpart, and saw an unbelievable amount of hate directed at him. Be quiet. Your voice is annoying my ears. Gaia pinched his cheeks while pouting. Stop scaring people. I'm mad at you. SCP. Izuku turned to her frantically. Come on, don't be mad at me. Please, you're my friend, and I hate seeing you mad at me. The girl began to laugh, making him pout a little. Nezu's smile twitched a little. You're going to work with wonderful heroes from all aspects of heroism like 13, Hound Dog, Ectoplasm, Eraserhead. Nezu stopped a little bit, noticing the strained smile on Izuku's face. He knew of the strained relationship between both males. Izuku saw Eraserhead as a whiny little bitch who saw the world revolves around quirks and didn't put any effort until Eraserhead stole both of his brothers, while the latter saw Izuku as a gifted warrior type who could never understand the struggles of someone with a villainous quirk. Izuku asked, Eraserhead is teaching. The guy has so many biases. He shouldn't come near any teaching facility with a 100 yardstick. He then scoffed. I guess he asked something among the lines of allowing to expel anyone he wants if he deems them unworthy after Aburo's death. Aizawa lifted an eyebrow. I stole his friends? How did that happen? Discord explained. Well, Mike was the first person to befriend you and introduced you to both Aburo and Izuku. While Aburo took to you quickly, Izuku considered you someone who has a closed mindset. He can't accept the words that you always used about how the entrance exam is irrational. Izuku saw it as rational because it showed creativity for people with mental quirks, since it would put them on the line against something that their quirk isn't effective against. This caused you both to clash eventually, with both Mike and Aburo siding with you, thinking Izuku is a quirkist. You went along with their misunderstanding as a middle finger to Izuku. Aburo looked at Aizawa. Damn, some versions of you are royal pieces of shit. They all heard a cough coming from Izuku's counterpart, but he didn't say anything, but the message was loud and clear. It was telling Aizawa that his version of SCP, Izuku's world, was also a piece of shit. Nezu sipped his tea. Ah, yes, putting two people who want nothing more than to rip each other's faces off. He sighed in relief. I keeping my legacy alive through chaos. Aizawa commented. Of course, you did this on purpose. That sounds like something up your alley. Aizawa sighed. He truly didn't want to see a world where he and his student are at each other's throats. After a small talk with Nezu discussing the terms of his employment and other conditions, they finally agreed. Where is the slacker right now? Izuku asked. It was as if God heard his question. The door opened, revealing Aizawa in disheveled form walking in and saying, Nezu, I want to expel the entirety of Class 1A. I tested them and they have no potential. The man saw Izuku and frowned. What the hell are you doing here? Izuku scoffed, preventing from ruining the students' lives. Izuku looked at Nezu. Nezu, change it from expelled from 1A to transferred to 1B. Nezu smiled. Already done, he said as Izuku smirked at Aizawa's shocked expression. Izuku smiled at the sleepy man. Sorry bitch, but there's a new sheriff in town. Aizawa blinked. Wow, he worked really quick to take that one advantage from me to turn it into a middle finger. He clapped his hands a little. The kid really works fast. Nezu asked a question. How come he's going to work here while also continuing his work in his agency? This a logical question if you looked at it. Discord explained. That Izuku is considered to be of the fastest heroes alive. He's on par with All Might in Hawks and speed. He once flew from Texas to Washington in about 5 hours. He's really fast. Nezu began to dance around. That version of himself truly has an eye for talent. He really likes the multiverse, though it did open his eyes to very important stuff. Though, he was currently wondering, will they see versions of Izuku who has powers from TV shows like Kamen Rider? The mere idea of such a thing made him feel happy because it would be a huge middle finger to all those quirk supremacy supporters. Izuku said, I don't like this. I mean, Aizawa-sensei does what is best for us. What's the worst that happened if he expelled them? It isn't like they can't study anymore. Satsuna interjected. Greenie, are you insane? Having an expulsion on your record is a death sentence. Where do you live? Do you know that many people end up homeless because of this? Izuku rubbed the back of his head. I heard about something like this, but I thought they were exaggerating things. Guess the rumors are true. His hair stood up, and I guess I barely dodged a bullet. This was so close. Aizawa looked at Nezu. What is the meaning of this? Our contract was clear as day. He pulled it up from his suit. Any student I expel is done for and has a black mark put on his permanent record that he is expelled. Nezu smiled. Yes, but Midoriya asked for something in the contract. Any student you expel on their first day is reinstated in his class, and we have funds cut from your class since I do agree with his assessment. Why do you need a full class funded if the class is not full or is not there to begin with? Aizawa scoffed. I'm planning to add new students to my class once the sports festival is done. Nezu laughed. Aizawa, we both know that's a lie. You can add 1 or 2, but you can't add 20 students just because they fit your parameter of how cynical and jaded they are. Well, that's quite peaky, Aizawa commented. He looked at Discord. Please tell me this version of myself isn't doing this out of spite against Izuku. Discord shrugged. No, not really. You do it for the same reason, because of Aburo. Aizawa sighed. Izuku was in his new agency when the door of his room was flung open. A voice drenched in anger said, You. He looked up to see a pissed-off Endeavor glaring at him. Izuku nodded. Wow, he's fast. He shook his head. NG-senpai, how are you doing? It had been like 22 years since I last saw you. How are you doing these days? Endeavor growled. You ruined everything. You ruined my perfect plan to create a perfect weapon to surpass All Might. Izuku frowned. He was no stranger to his senpai's plan. Izuku was the one who told him about Rei in the first place. Don't worry about it, NG, Izuku said, patting him on the back. All ended well. Rei didn't go crazy from being used to eugenics, and you won't have your eldest son doing some stupid dance routine thinking that he's cool. Dabai looked at Izuku. My dance routine isn't dumb. It is awesome, asked Toga. The blonde girl suddenly disappeared and reappeared beside twice. The girl answered him, Sorry Dabai, but it's lame. I mean, why go through some dance routine? Discord then clapped his hands. Alright, that's enough for this world.